Aristine is an abandoned princess forced to marry the prince of an enemy country. But instead of thinking about love, our heroine is obsessed with making money. The people of Sylvanas are all shocked. The king has just declared that his daughter, the first princess of Sylvanas, will marry into the enemy kingdom. Aristine looks numb and not a single word escapes from her lips. Meanwhile, the nobles call the king biased. He is marrying his first daughter to a barbarian, yet he pampers the second like a princess. The king, unbothered by these words, calls Aristine useless. He is just happy that her noble birth will finally be useful to him. A month later, Aristine boards the carriage like an obedient daughter. She departs for Ilugo under her father's command. But once they leave, her face changes and she flips her father off. The girl has a huge smile on her face. Aristine has finally escaped from the horrible palace and her insane father. The emperor was obsessed with making his child a masterpiece. He was so horrible that one day, he personally set the girl's room on fire. The 6-year-old Aristine managed to escape, but her father wasn't concerned. He only wanted to know if she had awakened her gift. The girl couldn't feel the pain from her injured lungs or burning flesh because her heart was broken. Still, the king continued to abuse her. After an incident with her sister, he locked Aristine up for 10 years. In those years, the girl's heart finally died. But one good thing happened to our heroine. While she was locked up, Aristine finally remembered her past life. The girl worries about someone called Raunel but decides to focus on her future. She is curious about her new life at Ilugo. The place, called the State of Fire and Iron, is ruled by the barbarians. Her father claimed the barbarians slept with monsters, so they are only half humans. He mocked Aristine, saying her husband might even prefer those creatures over a boring bride like her. The girl scratches her ears because she can still hear those harsh words. She never expected her father to bless her marriage because the two countries have always been enemies. He must have been furious after they lost the war. The Sylvanas Empire always called itself conquerors, but there was one country they could never defeat, the state of Ilugo. Her father started another war, but once again he lost. This time he was defeated by her future husband, Tarkan. The king knew he couldn't continue the war, so he called a truce. Ilugo agreed because they were already fighting the monsters surrounding their land. The two countries, eager to end their enmity, decided on a marriage alliance to seal the deal. But Aristine knows her father is just pretending. He is using the marriage to buy time and plans to begin another war when Ilugo lowers its defense. He will use her as a sacrifice and blame her death on Ilugo. Then it will be easier to wage a war on an allied state. Aristine smirks because the scheming king has no idea that his pawn is going to screw up his plan. The girl already has her own strategy, but she will need the help of her future husband, Tarkan. The convoy escorting Aristine stops for a break. But while everyone else looks clean, our heroine is covered in dirt. She glares at the maids, wondering what other plans they have. She felt suspicious when she was forced to use a carriage instead of a portal. Her fears were right because she was stuck inside the carriage for 10 days. Even now, her limbs are still numb. She is also covered in dirt because every time she tries to change her dress, the soldiers would peep at the window. Now, they are suddenly asking her to come out and enjoy some tea. Aristine is suspicious, but the girl decides to act obedient until they reveal their plan. She looks into the tea and suddenly sees a scene from the future. A girl spills boiling water on her while pretending to feel sorry. The others laugh at her burnt face, calling it the appropriate look for a barbarian's bride. The vision ends, and our heroine sighs. The emperor abused her because he wanted this ability called the Emperor's Eye. The man thought his daughter was useless and didn't possess the power. He doesn't know that she can see the past, present, or future just by looking into the water. Aristine looks eager as she glances around, waiting to see what will happen. Just then, a girl approaches with a tray of boiling water, wearing the same clothes she saw in the teacup. Our heroine knows her vision is bound to happen, but this time she is prepared. So when the girl moves closer, Aristine suddenly glares at her and makes her move. Her actions leave the other ladies shocked. Lady Brody planned to destroy Aristine's face, but instead, she ended up with a burnt cheek. Her friends run around, trying their best to console her. Meanwhile, our heroine watches with a proud smile because she managed to change her fate. Brody's friend marches up to Ari, blaming her for the incident. Our heroine is wide-eyed, clearly surprised by their logic. She points out that she only stood up and Brody herself poured the water on her own face. Aristine can't be blamed because she isn't their nanny. The friend wasn't expecting Ari to talk back since the rumors always called her dumb. She is speechless, but our heroine doesn't let go. She even calls the girl an adorable baby who needs a nanny. The girl quickly turns red in embarrassment, but has no way to escape. Just then, Brody appears with her ruined face and her friend uses the chance to run off. Ari watches them, feeling a little pleased. The bullies always torment others without thinking of the consequences. Now that they have also been hurt, they would think twice before harassing her again. The princess had originally thought that she would ignore the ladies until she arrived at Ilugo, but the vision she saw through the emperor's eye changed her mind. Since she can't use her ability whenever she wants, she has to teach the ladies a lesson and scare them away. And just like she planned, the women are indeed frightened. They had all believed the rumors that Ari was an insane savage after spending 10 years in confinement. But when they look at her now, she just seems so elegant. Rosaline is shocked by her own thoughts and almost slaps her head. The king had ordered her to torment his daughter, but instead, the princess had scolded her. The lady vows to destroy Ari next time. But it seems our heroine's fierce attitude has frightened the ladies. The only thing they can do is stomp on her clothes and make them dirty. They even mock the princess, thinking that they are hurting her. Instead, Ari turns into Flash as she grabs the clothes and runs into the carriage. She acts like they are about to steal the dress and even glares at the women as she closes the window. The ladies are all stunned by her weird behavior. They thought dirtying her clothes would make her unhappy, but the princess just finds them cute. They have no idea that this dirty clothes is better than her uncomfortable dress. But Ari notices something strange. The ladies only packed one new dress while the rest were old clothes from her confinement. The new dress is already stained, so she has no appropriate clothes to wear for the national wedding. The girl soon realizes that her father is trying to set her up and finally understands why he sent over so many luxurious carriages. A few days later, the convoy arrives at the Ilugo West Gate where the barbarians are already waiting. They think the Sylvanas are weak and vile cowards, so they mock Ari. They are certain the princess will faint when she sees them. A redhead warns them to stop their tantrums and prepare to receive the guests. The men head down but are stunned by the luxurious carriages. They notice the disdainful looks from the Sylvanas knight and the elaborate dresses of the ladies. They all believe the princess will also be a proud person. But when the door opens, all they see is a dirty-looking girl dressed in old clothes. The Ilugo warriors are all shocked because she looks like a small, dirty cotton ball. Their surprise changes to anger as they guess the Sylvanas emperor's plan. Just as Ari guessed, her father ordered the servants to make her look as filthy as possible. Since he is waiting for another chance to start a war, he wants the people of Ilugo to maltreat his daughter. He sent over luxurious carriages to show that his empire is still thriving. Instead, he made the princess look filthy as an insult to Ilugo. He wants them to know that they are only worthy of such trash. The warriors soon realize this meaning and they all become furious. Ari closes her eyes because she expected this outrage. But the girl is determined and takes a step forward. She refuses to shy away or become intimidated. Ari approaches the tall man who looks like the leader, wondering if this is her new husband. Ari heard the news that her husband would be waiting for her, so she assumes the tall redhead is Tarkan. She examines the man's handsome face and immediately feels pleased. She might not want this husband, but he can at least be her eye candy. The eye candy warrior bows to welcome Ari, and the girl almost falls in love with his sweet voice. She loves his polite behavior, but soon notices that the man seems a bit too formal. He is almost treating her like his master. Just as she guessed, the eye candy introduces himself as Durante, her new guide. Ari is a bit disappointed, so she asks where her husband is. Durante says the prince is out hunting and our heroine nearly faints. Her new husband would rather go hunting than welcome her. The girl can almost hear her marriage crumbling. Ari says Tarkan must be feeling shy, but her words almost give the warriors a heart attack. Durante can't allow his lord's reputation to be ruined, so he admits that the man is chasing monsters. The princess understands that something urgent must have happened, so he isn't chasing monsters for fun. She glares at Durante, asking why he tried to mislead her. The eye candy pretends to be ignorant and says he only answered her question. Ari doesn't have time to deal with this nonsense. She tells him that telling a half-truth is almost the same as telling a lie. Her harsh words make the man flinch, but she doesn't stop. The princess knows she should act friendly since this is their first meeting, but she is unwilling to live like a coward. She finally escaped from Sylvanas and plans to live a different life. The girl will ignore everyone who despises her and live for herself. She warns Durante never to trick her again, causing the man to look shocked. He notices that the girl might look filthy, but her eyes are very bright. The warrior feels ashamed and has to admit that the princess is different. Meanwhile, the people from Sylvanus are busy causing trouble. Durante suggests that Ari take a bath, and they accuse him of calling their princess filthy. The girl watches this embarrassing scene, feeling disdain for her people. They are making it so obvious that they are trying to cause a fight. The Aluga warriors are annoyed, but they can't fight in the absence of their prince. Durante mutters about his hatred for Sylvanus, but doesn't expect to see Ari behind him. The man immediately bows and panics while the girl waves with a confused smile. The warriors return to the castle, still upset by the behavior of the Sylvanus people. Durante knows the king is desperate to end the war, so he advises his men to endure. They can't cause any trouble because the blame will only fall on their prince. The soldiers change the topic and begin to mock their boss. The princess is the first person to scold their leader, so they all admire her. Durante advises them to still be cautious because he thinks Ari might be a spy. The men approach the palace and soon notice the different carriages of the other royal nobles. Clearly, the imperial siblings are here to spy around. Durante feels a little upset because his prince is fighting monsters while the other royals are lazing around. The imperial siblings notice the luxurious carriage and become more curious about the Sylvanus princess. Just then, Ari steps out in her old dirty clothes and the place is filled with silence. She can feel everyone staring at her with judging eyes. The girl doesn't feel welcome because she can sense their hatred. The siblings seem to dislike Tarkan as they call him a lowly man who deserves such a trashy bride. They mock Ari, calling her a beggar princess. The ladies from Sylvanus are pleased to see Aristine suffering. They mock her for expecting something different, advising her to remain obedient and know her place. Durante is surprised to see the princess's family mocking her instead of defending her honor. Our heroine stands there as everyone laughs at her pain. Just then, a man approaches and snatches the precious silk from the Sylvanus knights. The knight complains because that is their special gift for the king of Alugo. He watches in shock as the person wraps the silk around Ari. Our heroine can't move as she is suddenly buried in silk. The culprit carries her in his arms and says his wife deserves the best things in the world. The princess is stunned, and when she takes a look, she sees sparkling golden eyes. She stares at the handsome man, certain he must be Tarkan. Ari is carried by her new husband, and the girl is already impressed. Tarkan managed to suppress those nasty Sylvanus without even saying a word. He glares at his siblings and they cower, trying to make excuses. The prince only smirks as he walks away with his bride. But once they are inside, he throws Ari on the sofa like a piece of abandoned wood. The man warns her not to misunderstand his intentions because he doesn't like her. He only supported her so he could suppress his nasty siblings. Ari didn't expect the man to admire her because she is currently covered in dirt. She might even call him a pervert if he says he likes her sweaty body. Tarkan, the pervert, orders his maids to prepare a bath for Ari. But then a misunderstanding occurs. The girl notices his clothes are stained with monster's blood and thinks he also needs a bath. She makes the suggestion, but her words are a bit misleading. The prince and his maid immediately look terrified. The man thinks she wants to get intimate, so he glares at her. Meanwhile, the girl is just trying to guess who will bathe first. The prince finally scoffs and vows to never touch a filthy woman like her. Ari also misunderstands, and she immediately looks appalled. Tarkan is used to speaking roughly with his fellow soldiers and is worried that she might feel insulted. Instead, the girl earnestly declares that he must be a pervert. The poor prince is stunned before he jumps around in a panic. But no matter what he says, Ari thinks he should never lust after a filthy woman. The prince points out that she was the one who mentioned marriage when he only asked her to take a bath. The girl explains that she just wanted him to take a separate bath because they aren't formally married. The prince realizes that it is just a huge misunderstanding, but his head already aches. He says he will bathe elsewhere, and our heroine suddenly feels ashamed. She just remembered that a palace will have more than one bathroom. The girl has been locked up for so long that she has completely forgotten. Ari feels a bit embarrassed, so she runs over to the maids to take her away. Tarkan glances at his new bride, calling her a strange woman. He thought she was just a fragile Sylvanus princess who would cry at the slightest insult. Instead, the girl looked nonchalant as she listened to the royals' insults. The prince becomes startled as he realizes that he is thinking too much about his new bride. Meanwhile, our heroine is feeling ecstatic. She has never seen such a beautiful bathtub or bathed with warm water. The girl is about to die from happiness when three gorgeous servants appear to serve her. Ever since she was a child, Aristine has never enjoyed such treatment. She isn't used to the maid's respectful attitude because her former maids were all nasty. The girl believes Tarkan must be a competent man since his maids are all professional. She becomes eager to start their negotiations and make him her ally. Aristine is lost in thought when she notices the maids' dazed looks. They have all gone silent as they stare at her. The girl turns around, thinking there is a problem, but her sparkling purple eyes cause the maids to turn a deep red. They all seem flustered, which makes our heroine confused. She sends them away and decides to soak in the bathtub for a little while. Aristine is enjoying her bath time, and now thinks that coming to Ilugo was a good decision. Just then, the water begins to ripple, and she realizes that she is about to receive a vision. Every time the Emperor's eye activates, the water around her always begins to move. The princess hopes her new vision will be useful, but what appears next is her new husband, Tarkan. The girl notices his blood-stained clothes and knows this must be the present or a very close past or future. She hopes it is the past because seeing him wearing those dirty clothes gives her the ick. The princess really hopes he can take a bath. Just then, a pretty woman arrives in the vision and joins Tarkan. She is curious about his thoughts because the man seems absent-minded. The prince refuses to reveal anything, making the girl a bit worried. She places her hand on his arm as she asks if he likes the princess. Aristine feels a bit shocked as she realizes that they are talking about her. Aristine didn't expect to hear her husband's secret conversation with another woman. She wonders why Diona would ask such a question and thinks it is because the prince is a pervert. The man seems offended by the question and replies that it is impossible. He says Diona is supposed to know him because his feelings will never change. A few hours pass, but Ari is still thinking of the conversation. The princess knows this is just a political marriage, so she doesn't expect any love. Instead of being upset, she plans to use Tarkan's lover against him and gain more benefits in their negotiations. Another maid arrives to show her to her room, but Ari insists on meeting Tarkan. The princess also wants to rest, but this is the best time to strike a deal with her husband. Now that the Sylvanas troops are busy admiring the mansion, no one will spy on them. Over at Tarkan's office, Diona is feeling pleased. The prince looks normal, and she can tell he isn't affected by his new bride. He is still the proud and handsome beast with the dangerous charm. She had felt a bit afraid when she heard that he defended the princess, but now she feels relaxed. Suddenly, a maid arrives and announces that the princess is seeking an audience. Tarkan agrees to let her in, but they are both surprised when the girl appears. Aristine doesn't look like a dirty cotton ball anymore, but is now a sparkling snow princess. Tarkan calls her name in disbelief, and the princess nods. She wonders why everyone is staring at her and thinks they must be surprised by her new look. She notices that Diona is about to burn her fingers and kindly reminds the girl. The lady panics, afraid her rude behavior might cause a conflict. Diona doesn't want to cause any trouble in front of Tarkan, so she introduces herself. She was happy when Sylvanas sent over the foolish eldest daughter instead of the beautiful younger princess. But now, she realizes that the first princess is also a threat. Tarkan chases Diona away and the couple are left alone. He questions Aristine, asking why she came over. The girl says she wants to share a cup of tea with him, but the man shows a disgusted expression. The princess feels upset because she also didn't want this marriage. She takes a sip of the tea and immediately lights up like a huge bulb. Aristine has never tasted such a delicious drink and once again is glad that she came to Iligo. She pretends to be nonchalant as she finally admits that she has another purpose for visiting. The girl reveals her big plan and invites Tarkan to start a business with her. Our heroine doesn't care about power or love. She is just a little money grubber who wants to have a lot of wealth. The girl plans to buy her freedom with that money so she can travel around the world. She doesn't want to be confined again and wants to finally see the sights she once saw in her visions. The princess knows she needs a lot of money and can only fulfill her dreams if she cooperates with Tarkan. The man himself is shocked to hear about this business deal. The princess notices his look and is afraid the man might think she is trying to steal his money. She tries to explain, but the look of contempt in the man's eyes just keeps increasing. The girl feels defeated by his disdainful look and earnestly swears that she isn't a fraudster. The man doesn't believe her and is afraid this little thief might embezzle the palace allowance money to fund her own business. He even thinks about calling some security. Aristine stammers because it has been 10 years since she spoke to someone. The girl finds it hard to express herself, but she will do her best for her business. She tells Tarkin she is trying to turn their political marriage into a relationship that will benefit the both of them. She doesn't want a friendship and promises the business will bring profit. Tarkin is stunned by her arrogance because no one has ever made a deal with him. He leans closer, wondering what benefit the girl can provide. Aristine immediately looks serious and says the man has already gotten what he wants. Tarkin doesn't know, but because of her emperor's eye, the princess knows a lot about him. She waits for him to confess, but the man turns away with a disgusted expression. After taking a look at her arms that look like sticks, he believes the princess is too fragile. Aristine tries to defend herself, but finally realizes that the man will never trust her. She makes up her mind to show him her abilities and orders the prince to follow her. Inside the palace, the rumors about Aristine continue. They consider her shabby looks an insult to their country, and another princess says the girl might be mentally insane. She has heard the rumors from Sylvanas that Ari was confined for 10 years because of her mental health. The other princess feels sad that their amazing Tarkin will have to marry a mental patient. Their brother realizes that Aristine will be the crown princess if Tarkin becomes the crown prince. None of them seem to like the idea and call it an insult to Ilugo. Tarkin might be the king's favorite because of his war contributions, but the other siblings would rather support Prince Hamir. Their conversation dies down as they notice Tarkin approaching. The three forget their anger and begin to fangirl over his good looks, praising every inch of his body. They admire his sparkling hair until they suddenly remember that their prince doesn't have white hair. Soon they see the small, sparkling snow princess walking beside him. The three are stunned by Aristine's good looks, blaming each other for the fake news. They panic and rush outside to inform the queen of the new update. Meanwhile, the king of Ilugo is surprised when his servant announces Aristine's visit. The Sylvanas delegates are supposed to have an official meeting tomorrow, so he has no idea why the princess came to see him. The king is unwilling, but the second princess urges him to let Aristine in. Yenica acts like a cute child, saying she really wants to meet her brother's new wife. The king stares at his daughter with a helpless look, because he already knows that they all went to see the princess. He knows the girl is deceiving him, but he still finds her cute. Nefter agrees to see them, and Yenica cheers in happiness. Secretly, she smiles like a demon, eager to mock the ugly princess. She imagines Tarkan's distress at marrying such a filthy woman, and it makes her laugh. She was so worried when her father decreed the marriage, but she relaxed after seeing the filthy princess. Yenica is waiting to see a joke, but what she sees is a stunning princess with beautiful manners. The king is also surprised by Aristine's elegance, and he immediately looks impressed. Yenica's face turns blue when she notices her father's approval. Nefter urges Aristine to sit, urging his servants to bring some refreshments for her. Meanwhile, the girl they are all praising is actually feeling nervous. It turns out her impeccable manners were all learned through the emperor's eyes. The princess believes she performed well, which makes her relieved. The servant arrives with the Ilugo dessert, another thing Aristine only saw through the emperor's eye. The dessert was famous in Sylvanas, and our heroine is excited to finally taste it. She is about to take a bite when she suddenly remembers her purpose for coming. She is supposed to show off her abilities. Aristine faints in despair because she is just too weak against food. Tarkin watches in shock as his wife begins to fade from existence. But she soon revives again, determined to show Tarkin that she can run her mouth. No, sorry, run her business. Her confident look only frightens Tarkin as he imagines the girl selling her goods to the emperor. The two glare at each other, but all the king can see is two couples falling in love. He definitely needs glasses. The man moves on to important business and wants to know why Ari demanded a separate meeting. The girl is about to sell her goods when the door suddenly opens. The royal siblings have arrived to make fun of the new bride. They all saw her dirty appearance when she arrived, but now they praise her beauty. They are trying to humiliate Aristine, expecting to see an ugly princess. Instead, all they see is a beautiful goddess. The fourth princess, Stalina, and the first princess, Paella, can't hide their shock. Meanwhile, the third prince, who was just mocking Ari, immediately looks love-struck. Tarkin isn't pleased to see this bunch because they all side with the queen. He mocks their low intelligence and is excited to see how the princess will handle this challenge. Aristine glances at the three and asks for their identities. Aristine asks for an introduction, but the three are still stunned by her gorgeous look. Stalina can't hide her shock, but Paella warns her to remain calm. Inwardly, the first princess is also panicking. She never thought Aristine would change so much after just a simple bath. The girl scolds the queen for not telling them about this new update. She thinks the new princess must be a fool, so she decides to take the offense. Pela introduces herself as the first princess and scolds Aristine for not recognizing their identities. How would a new visitor know who the forge you are? The two princesses share a nod, thinking that they have disgraced the Sylvanas princess. Stelina mocks Aristine for not having manners, while Pela says they shouldn't expect much. Tarkan watches, amazed by his siblings. The two first praise the princess, then switch their attitudes to mock her. His royal family is known for their sharp, mean words, and even Tarkan is still not used to their fake lifestyles. The prince has a lot of enemies in the palace and believes Ari is going through these troubles because of him. The man regrets bringing the girl over to Ilugo. Unfortunately, Ari hears this and thinks the man is doubting her abilities. She is determined to show him her true power and make him beg to become her business partner. In the midst of this fierce battle, the third prince is still trying to show off to his new crush. The man is such a clown. Aristine ignores the bootlicker and tells the princess this is just a misunderstanding. Paella laughs, refusing to back down. She thinks Ari is about to make an excuse and mocks her for being an idiot. Instead, the princess glares at her and says she was talking to herself. Aristine is sure she has seen their faces before. Paella becomes nervous since they had visited the princess when she first arrived. She can't believe the girl could recognize her face among the chaos. Aristine turns her gaze to Martin, asking if they have met before. The man says he has been to Sylvanas, but Ari insists that they didn't meet there. Martin laughs and suggests that she saw him in her dreams. Paella glares at her foolish brother, who always falls for pretty women. She is now certain that the Sylvanas princess really recognized her face among the crowd. Paella curses those who claimed the princess was just a dumb, insane woman. Aristine is clearly a frightening and intelligent lady. The princess had struggled for her entire life and was forced to recall the outside world through the emperor's eyes. Aristine had memorized those visions endlessly, and her memory soon became excellent. The king watches her with a smile, causing Paella to realize that her father is interested in the girl. She panics as she imagines the princess telling their father about their first visit. She knows the king will be disappointed and now thinks that Aristine is a threat to them. The girl wants to play it safe until they create a strategy, but her sister ruins all her plans. Stelina jumps out and accuses Aristine of flirting with another man in front of her husband. She even calls the girl a low and vulgar woman. Ari recognizes this fiery princess as the one who called her a beggar. Stelina is still as proud as ever as she mockingly says she was talking to herself. Aristine can see the hatred in the girl's eyes and it makes her laugh. She thought the third princess was mature, but she is just too childish. Stelina is annoyed when her opponent begins to laugh. She is about to attack Ari again when her sister suddenly yells at her. Paella apologizes to Aristine and begs for her forgiveness. Our heroine is drinking tea like a queen and even comments that this princess is better. Paella is aware that the crown prince of Ilugo has yet to be determined. The battle is between two factions, the group who supports the first prince, Hamir, and the people who support the second prince, Tarkan. But while Hamir is also the queen's son, Tarkan has a political weakness because his mother is just a commoner. Still, the underlying cause of this battle is the struggle between the old and new powers. The Ilugoans are concerned about politics, so Aristine uses this to defeat the third princess. With just a few words, she accuses the Ilugo royal family of doubting her imperial bloodline, turning this into a battle between two countries. At another side of the palace, a servant reports to the queen that the royal siblings have visited the king. The maid wants the queen to also visit, but the woman believes her daughter, Yanika, is enough to handle such matters. The queen also likes Paella because she abandoned her concubine mother to become her supporter. But the girl the queen is praising is having a hard time. Paella panics as she apologizes for Stelina's mistake. Martin follows suit and also begs for Aristine's forgiveness. The third princess is confused because her siblings have suddenly turned against her. The three have always insulted Tarkan together. The prince is pleased by Aristine's move because she has trapped Stelina. If the Sylvanian delegates hear about this issue, they will use this as an opportunity to demand more benefits. When that happens, the queen's faction will suffer the most. That is why Paella and Martin are desperate in begging for Ari's forgiveness. Tarkan glances at his nonchalant father, wondering which side the king will support. Paella and Martin are still trying to apologize. They blame Stelina for her reckless behavior and beg Aristine to show her mercy. Our heroine is satisfied and hopes the siblings will stop bothering her for now. She has no plans to pursue the previous incident because she doesn't want any trouble. The girl feels a hot stare on her back, and when she turns around, the king is staring at her. Nepther has been watching her this whole time, and Aristine is excited. She didn't plan this quarrel, but it has attracted the king's attention to her. The two stare at each other until Ari realizes why the king is watching her. He is afraid one of them might cross the line and cause a conflict between the two nations. Our heroine wants to have a peaceful life while she is here, so she knows she shouldn't offend the king. The girl smiles at him, trying to reassure him that she wouldn't cause any trouble. The king seems to understand her secret message, so he also smiles back. Pela sees the two exchanging secret glances and immediately panics. She imagines a scene where Ari sits on her father's lap and complains about her mistreatment. The girl would tell her father about the siblings' insults, and the furious king would vow to investigate and punish everyone. Paella is frightened by her own thoughts, afraid the Sylvanus princess will really expose their actions. Aristine's reputation might suffer, but if it becomes an international conflict, Paella will face most of the consequences. The first princess glares at our heroine and almost frightens the innocent girl. She shakes her head in disgust as she recalls her wild imagination. Paella urges her sister to apologize, but Stalina is obviously unwilling. The princess regrets listening to the rumors and orders her younger sibling to apologize immediately. Stalina bows her head, but her eyes still hold a lot of anger. Aristine isn't satisfied with such a fake apology and doesn't hide her disdain. Paella almost loses her soul, and she urges her sister to apologize properly. The girl still refuses, so Aristine mentions the cruel words that she just said. The first princess becomes fierce and orders her sister to show more remorse. Stalina is unwilling and thinks it is unfair. She wonders why she has to apologize to a half-wit like Aristine when everyone hates the girl. But then she sees her sister's demonic red eyes and the girl flinches in fear. Paella is filled with dark, oppressive energy as she orders her sister to properly apologize. Stalina has no choice than to get on her knees and beg for Ari's forgiveness. Tarkan is stunned by his wife's combat ability. She has forced the proud and arrogant third princess to get on her knees and beg. The man glances at the culprit but almost faints when he sees the girl's face. Aristine looks like a proud cat, and if she had a tail, it would definitely be wagging. Tarkan feels like his worldview has been destroyed. He thought the Sylvanus princess would be a weak and gentle woman. Instead, she turned out to be a ferocious, proud cat. The prince finds her behavior amusing, and he can't stop laughing. Aristine innocently thinks he is happy because she taught his nasty siblings a lesson. Our heroine isn't done with her play because she has to act out the grand finale. She stands up and walks over to Stalina's side, pretending to be a kind and virtuous woman. Stalina is convinced by her act as she remembers that the princess never scolded or asked her to apologize. Aristine acts like the girl is just making a fuss, and she urges her to stop kneeling. She stretches out her hand to the third princess, offering to support the girl. But instead of being relaxed, Stalina is horrified. Aristine's behavior reminds her of her own father, the king. Nepther watches the two girls and is impressed with Aristine's tactics. She took advantage of her political position to teach the girls a lesson. Yet, she made sure that things never went too far. Yanika notices her father smiling at Aristine again, and she isn't happy. The king stops their play and scolds his children for interrupting their tea time. The three siblings look embarrassed and try to hide their faces. Yanika jumps in, desperate to regain her father's attention. She scolds the siblings for causing trouble and mocks Paella for rebuking her own sister. The girl acts sad because she is worried that Aristine might feel unwelcomed. Our heroine watches her display, admiring the girl's small body and white skin. Yanika's grandmother is a foreigner, so while she looks different from the other Ilugoans, she has her father's blue eyes. Aristine knows the girl is the queen's daughter and also Hamir's younger sister. She watches Yenika approach, and the girl offers to become her friend. Yanika's offer to become close friends reminds Aristine of her younger sister. Back then, her chubby little sister would chase after her, calling her Ari affectionately. Our heroine smiles as she recalls this memory and happily agrees to become Yenika's friend. She says the second princess resembles her younger sister because she is also pretty and adorable. Yanika feels proud and begins to daydream about her beauty. Meanwhile, Aristine remembers her cute little sister. The girl was always adorable, even as a baby. She maintained that adorable act even when she caused Aristine to be locked up for 10 years. Tarkin is feeling very unhappy. The annoying Yenica has squeezed between him and his new wife and is taking all her attention. The second princess is happy to see her brother's annoyed face. She believes making Aristine her friend will be a piece of cake. The Sylvanas princess is trapped in a loveless marriage and instead of a handsome husband, was welcomed by fierce warriors. The other women in Ilugo are also tall and stern, so Aristine will only feel uncomfortable. Yenica believes the princess will like her because her adorable face reminds her of her family. She doesn't want to be friends with Aristine, but agrees to act close with the girl, so she can impress her father. Yenica begins her plan and urges Aristine to confide all her worries with her. She promises to help the princess fulfill her every wish. Of course, she plans to give the girl evil advice. Our heroine watches Yenica act and decides to also start her performance. She acts sad as she asks Yenica if she can address her casually. The princess is screaming in her mind, but she pretends to be calm and says it is too soon. Aristine immediately looks heartbroken as she suggests that the girl was trying to deceive her by acting close. She looks like a fragile flower as she apologizes for being bad at social conversations. Yenica is annoyed because only Hamir has the right to call her his younger sister. Still, she is forced to accept Aristine's request. Our heroine smiles brightly while the princess is going through mental torture. She smiles at Aristine but secretly curses the princess for being a dumb lady who can't read the room. She also wants to speak casually, but Aristine immediately rejects her. She says her younger sister never broke the rules even when they were children. Yenica can feel her soul breaking, and even Martin can't hide his laughter. The princess vents her anger on him as she scolds the prince for laughing. Aristine ignores the two as she focuses her gaze on the king and the Prin-Pran jelly in front of him. Yenica is immediately alert, thinking that the girl is about to steal her father's attention again. She only calms down when she notices that Aristine's gaze is on the Prin-Pran jelly. The princess feels smug because her father always gives her his Prin-Pran jelly. She waits until Aristine is about to take the jelly, then sweetly tells her father to hand it over. But the girl is going to be disappointed. Our heroine has no plans to eat the jelly and instead is going to feed it to the Ilugo king. Everyone gathered around is shocked, but the girl doesn't seem bothered. She even urges the king to open his mouth. The man can't believe his eyes, but when he questions the princess, she even calls him father. Yenica is about to tear down the palace, and Martin has to hold her down. Tarkin teases the girl and says Aristine is now part of their family. He reminds Yenica of her promise to treat the girl like her sister and asks if she was faking it. The princess turns blue and can only stammer out a response. Aristine ignores them all and only promises to stop if the king feels uncomfortable. The man's only response is to eat the jelly right from her hands. Everyone is shocked again as they see their stern and fierce emperor acting like a baby. The man happily eats the dessert and allows Ari to call him father. The maids are relieved because they were afraid the king would yell at the girl. He has never eaten their jelly, so they think the princess must be special. Everyone is happy, but Yenica is about to die of anger. She trembles in fear, wondering if the Sylvanas princess knows her father's secret. Ari continues to feed the king, causing the royal siblings to nearly freeze from shock. The king has already had 3 jellies, but he is still eating like an obedient baby bird. Aristine pauses to confirm the taste, and the king happily praises the dessert. Tarkin watches in disgust because his proud father has completely lost all his dignity. Our heroine finds it hard to pick up the wiggly jelly and is happy that she had some practice. Back in the Sylvanas Empire, the girl could only watch through the emperor's eye as her sister fed her father. Aristine was just a young child, so she would practice on her own with dirty cotton balls. She wanted to learn so she could show her father that she was also useful. It is a sad memory, but our heroine can smile now because it is all in the past. She lost all her feelings when she realized that the emperor only wanted her ability. Aristine is happily feeding the king when she hears a loud noise. Yenica can't control her anger and suddenly smashes a cup. She doesn't take responsibility but blames the maids and calls them useless. Pela is surprised to see her sister's outburst. The second princess always loves to act innocent and never raises her voice at anyone. Aristine is also shocked by the girl's yell, so her little jelly ball falls off from her fork. Our heroine finds it difficult to pick it up again and finally understands why the king never tried. You see, the Emperor of Ilugo has a secret that nobody in the palace knows. Yenica doesn't really want to take her father's Prin-Pran jelly. The girl is just helping the king to cover up his secret. It turns out that Nepthar has injured his right wrist. Releasing this news will only ruin the king's authority. destroy the soldiers' morale, and cause the people to panic. Nefter wants to hide the secret, so he always avoids the slippery Prin-Pran jelly. Unfortunately, the jelly is the official food of Ilugo, and is always served at important events. Only the king's physician and Princess Yanika know about his condition. The princess used this to her advantage, and would ask the king to give her his jellies at important events. The council noticed the two sharing jellies and soon believed that the girl had warmed his cold heart. Tarkan might be the king's favorite son, but Yenica is definitely his best daughter. The princess used this incident to boost her own reputation and gain more political support for her brother. It might be a smart move, but our heroine despises the second princess. She always thought that Yenica could just feed her father instead of taking away his jelly. Aristine notices the siblings staring at her and knows her husband must also be confused. She stares at the pitiful king, imagining how sad he must have been to see his jellies taken away. She wonders if the man might get angry because she treated him like a child. Aristine has never been around people, so she has no idea how the king will react. Nepther doesn't get angry, but instead smiles at the Sylvanas princess. The man enjoys some tea and is grateful that he accepted this marriage. He says Aristine has made him happy, so he wants to give her a reward. Our heroine has lost her focus because the king just called her nickname. It reminds the girl of the scene she saw in the emperor's eyes. Nepther notices her daze and is afraid the girl doesn't feel comfortable. Ari knows she shouldn't get excited, but it finally feels like she has a real father. The girl admits to the king that she feels very happy. She has a huge smile on her face because all her practice has paid off. Ari doesn't pretend to be modest and reveals that she has a request. The attendants look horrified, but the king is eager to hear her desire. He thinks the girl might want some lands or precious jewels. Ari glances at Tarkan because it is finally time to reveal her true purpose. The Sylvanas princess says she wants to save Ilugo's reputation. Everyone in the room has wide eyes as they can't believe their ears. Aristine looks at Tarkan because she is going to make the man trust her and prove her abilities. She smiles as she imagines him signing her contract without even reading it. Tarkan stares at his new bride, who hasn't said a word after leaving the room. She had shocked everyone with her last words, but is suddenly acting like an immortal. The man smirks, knowing his bride is playing hard to get, but he is willing to play along. He follows after her, begging for a few minutes of her time. Aristine declares that she is busy and only agrees when the man keeps begging. The couple find a spot, and Tarkan finally admits that the girl might be useful. He really enjoyed watching his siblings make a fool of themselves. Aristine turns into a proud cat again, and the smug smile on her face is really annoying. Tarkan notices her lofty look. He knows the girl is waiting for more praise, so he changes his mind and suddenly stops talking. Aristine is shocked by the switch and reminds the man that she got the king's favor. Tarkan is nonchalant because he already has all his father's attention. Aristine glares at this sly man and turns away in anger. She wants to know why he is speaking to her if she isn't useful. The prince hesitates before confessing that he thought the girl would cry. He assumed that the fragile princess wouldn't be able to bear his siblings' insults. Meanwhile, the fragile princess is eating bread with a sparkling look on her face. She is totally unconcerned about those insults. Tarkan thinks the princess has never been mocked, but Aristine explains that she is used to insults. The girl is joyfully eating her bread when she hears her husband's harsh voice. He has a stern look on his face, which makes Aristine surprised. She is confused for a moment before she realizes that the man doesn't know about her confinement. Tarkan indeed has no idea, and he immediately looks embarrassed. Aristine wonders why he is ignorant when his siblings already knew her background. The man really has no interest in his bride. She recalls his conversation with Diona, and the man's ambiguous words seem to suggest that Diona is his lover. Our heroine feels like a wise sage after figuring this out and decides to soothe his worries. She wants to draw a boundary between their relationship, but first wants to know if the man desires a war. Tarkan protests, shocked by her words, but Aristine advises him to give it a proper thought. While the Ilugoans are relaxing and having conversations, the Sylvanas emperor is preparing for another war. He has even included a deadly poison among their wedding gifts that will kill Tarkan. The Ilugo servants are showing Aristine's noble ladies around. Rosaline is shocked because she never knew the barbarian land would have such beautiful palaces. Beside her, the blonde maid also has the same thought. She even imagined Tarkan as a monster, but now the girls fangirl over his handsome looks. They find it unfair that such a dangerous, charming man is stuck with their filthy princess. Brody believes the prince will soon abandon Aristine because of her so-called mental issues. The other girls have evil smiles on their faces as they plan to seduce their mistress's husband. They even think of their own storyline about a noble maid falling in love with a savage prince. Just then, a Sylvanus knight interrupts their daydreams and announces that Aristine just had a private meeting with the Alugo king. Rosaline is furious and scolds the knight for not stopping the princess. The blonde explains that the meeting was already over before he heard the news. Right now, Aristine is having another meeting with the barbaric prince. Rosaline grits her teeth in anger as she thinks about her annoying mistress. She vows to teach the girl a lesson and make her know her place. Aristine stares at the man, eager to know if he wants a war. Tarkan is sure others might be interested in a battle, but he only wants peace. Ari is pleased by his answer because the fastest way to start a war will be to kill her. The prince clenches his fist, stunned by her indifference. He says there are other ways to start a war that don't involve her death. The princess happily agrees and says killing him or acting like a spy is also a good way. But Ari has no plans to do something so dangerous just to help Sylvanus. The girl has no good feelings for her country, especially since the emperor also hates her. Tarkan finally realizes that the girl didn't show up on purpose, looking like a shabby rat. Aristine praises him and even admits that she was locked up for 10 years. She thinks it will be better to confess before the prince does his own research. Tarkan is amazed because others would try to avoid such a harsh topic. He thinks about the girl's pitiful background. She has lost her father's favor and was even locked up for 10 years. He is sure the Sylvanus king sent his daughter to Alugo just to die. The girl seems to have read his mind and reveals her desire to live. She knows the prince doesn't want a war, so she urges him to work with her. She promises to take care of the palace while he is away and support his struggle for the crown prince's position. Tarkan feels upset because her words remind him of their first meeting. He remembers her asking for a beneficial relationship and wants to know if this was her plan. Aristine says it is and urges the man to fight for international peace and secure her safety. Tarkan finally realizes that all her talk about business and benefits was just her way of trying to save her life. He believes the girl must have suffered for many years and feels sad because a princess shouldn't be fighting for her safety. Tarkan never cared about his bride and was only focused on the marriage alliance. But now his feelings have changed. He becomes annoyed when he remembers Aristine's indifferent face as she listens to the insults. Just thinking of the Sylvanians is enough to make the prince's mood become bad. Meanwhile, the pitiful princess is thinking of a way to steal the last cookie. She quickly eats it and drinks some tea, feeling tired from talking too much. Our heroine hasn't had a conversation in ages. She used a lot of effort to maintain a smiling face because she learned from the emperor's eye that it would make her negotiations easier. The girl worries that she might have messed up her first conversation. But when she looks at Tarkan, the man seems less hostile than before. Aristine's first impression was that the prince was a pervert, but now she thinks he is a reasonable person. The princess is anxious, wondering if this is the right time to seal the deal. She calls Tarkan her partner, offering to support and protect him. The prince is surprised that she called him her partner, but Aristine reminds him that this is an arranged marriage. The man happily agrees to her suggestion, and the two shake hands. Our heroine believes they will be happily married. They might not be in love, but they will be good business partners. Tarkan makes a very big mistake when he asks the princess if she needs anything else. Ari once again activates her money-grubbing skills, telling the man she has a good business idea. The prince is speechless and almost loses his soul. The girl notices his despising gaze and tries to convince him that she isn't a greedy, obsessed, and money-loving princess. Good luck with that, girl. A few hours later, the withered cabbage Aristine returns to her room. She has no idea why everyone keeps rejecting her good business ideas. The girl is thinking of how to build her husband's trust when she notices the blonde Sylvanus knight. The man roars like a lion, scolding her for returning late and warning her to behave properly. Since he has just been rebuked by the noble ladies, he wants to get his revenge by scolding Ari and teaching her a lesson. The wild boar is about to attack when he sees the handsome Tarkan appear behind Ari. The knight immediately calms down, looking terrified of the prince. Tarkan is stunned by the man's behavior, but the knight warns him to stop meddling in the affairs of the Sylvanians. He glances at Arya, urging her to control her barbaric prince. Our heroine acts confused, raising her hands in ignorance. The prince smiles like a devil as he reminds the knight that Aristine is now his bride. Tarkan has no need for a dog who disobeys his master, and so he kicks the knight away. The man flies through the air and rolls several times before he finally lands. Behind them, Aristine listens to his screams and raises a perfect scorecard for her husband. The Alugo prince presses the man under his feet, while the knight boasts about his position. He even promises to file a complaint against Tarkan. The barbarian is amused and takes a glance at his wife. Since the knight belongs to Ari, he gives the girl the power to punish him. Tarkan is eager to see what the princess will do. The Sylvanus knight regains his courage and orders Aristine to pull the prince away. He glares at the foolish princess, wondering why she hasn't saved him. Aristine is amazed by the man's confidence. Even though he is being beaten up, he still has the courage to insult her. But the girl is already used to his arrogance. On their journey to Alugo, the man would always insult her with nasty words. He even had the courage to lust after her pretty body. Aristine would hear his disgusting words from inside the carriage. The knight would say that sleeping with him was her honor and even planned to assault her before she married. Every time she tried to change, he would take a peek through the windows, trying to get a good view. Aristine can't understand why someone who gave her such horrible treatment could ask for her help. The princess has no choice but to teach him a lesson. She approaches Tarkan and after squeezing his arm, gives him a big smile. The naive knight thinks she is about to save him, and even the prince looks disappointed. No one would expect Aristine's next move. She says she is one with her husband, so they have to stomp on the disgusting knight together. The two men are both shocked by this fierce cat, but Tarkan soon begins to laugh, looking pleased with his wife's choice. The arrogant knight finally begins to feel afraid, but it is too late. Tarkan's shoe of justice descends upon his head. Outside the mansion, the maids hear a loud wail and wonder if a pig is being slaughtered. The pig is currently leaning against the wall with a footprint on his hair and some missing teeth. Tarkan takes care of the knight and orders his men to imprison him. Meanwhile, Aristine glances at her husband's strong body, feeling jealous of his incredible strength. The prince notices her hot gaze and turns away with a shy look. He has no idea that his new wife thinks he is a pervert. She vows to support his weird fantasies as long as he only beats bad guys. The poor prince can feel an evil air behind him, causing him to shiver in fear. Aristine is yet to marry Tarkan, so she is taken to a temporary room. The girl feels happy because the room is big and comfortable. She always thought she would die in Alugo, but instead, she met many nice people. Our heroine is thinking about her next meeting with Tarkan when someone suddenly calls her name. The girl turns around in shock to see her noble ladies. They are all annoyed because the princess has been ignoring them. The ladies chase away the Alugo maids and surround Ari, demanding an explanation. The ladies expect an explanation, but the princess only asks if they understand animal language. Rosaline is confused, but uses this chance to insult Ari. She says the princess might understand the language because her intelligence is as low as the dog's. They all laugh at the insult, but Aristine sighs in pity. She really thinks the ladies are dumber than dogs. The maids are all furious, but the princess points out that they have no loyalty or integrity. Even dogs are cuter than them. Aristine was going to treat their conversation as a dog's noise, but now she changes her mind. She finds it unfair to the dogs because they are smarter than these three fools. In Sylvanus, all the royal women have their ladies-in-waiting. The ladies are all from prestigious families and are different from maids or servants. They assist the royals with their work and keep them company. Therefore, only the educated daughters from noble families can become a lady-in-waiting. But our heroine's situation is a little different. Her three noble ladies are all from low-ranked families. The girls felt no respect for an abandoned princess and even stole her monthly budget. Rosaline is upset at the princess for mocking their intelligence. She threatens to report her to the king and waits for Aristine to apologize. Instead, our heroine hides her yawn as she thinks about her busy day. She agrees to everything the girl says, hoping to end the conversation quickly. Her calm attitude frustrates the maid because Aristine never reacts when they bully her. They would dirty her clothes or put sand in her food, yet the princess would still remain silent. The maid is sure her annoying behavior was the reason why she was locked up. Rosaline blames Aristine for her misfortune. She never wanted to serve an abandoned princess or move to a foreign country. She is full of pain, and so she decides to hurt the princess. She tells Aristine that her only purpose is to die in Alugo. The other maids look surprised, causing Rosaline to feel smug. She thinks she is the only one who understands the king's real plan. The girl doesn't know why the princess is suddenly rebelling, but she waits for her to become obedient again. Aristine smirks at the maid, reminding her that they are now in Ilugo and Rosaline can hear her dreams shatter. The girls are all speechless because they are shocked by the princess's sudden change. The other two recover and warn Aristine to stop feeling smug. They think nothing has changed even though they are in Ilugo. The princess interrupts them and compares their intelligence to dogs. She smirks as she tells them that dogs are supposed to be obedient. Once the dogs become wild, they are hunted down by their master and destroyed. The maids are frightened by her threat, promising to report her to the emperor. They believe the Ilugoans also hate Aristine and warn her not to feel proud. Our female lead is amazed by the girls' foolishness. Her gaze sharpens as she thinks about teaching them a few lessons. Rosaline notices the princess's scary look and immediately feels frightened. Her friend urges her to scold the princess, but the girl is in a trance. She recalls the rumors about the Sylvanus knight that was beaten. The man had been punished for not obeying his master. Rosaline is filled with fear as she realizes that the princess was hiding her strength. The girl had deceived everyone by acting like a fool. Aristine tells the maids that a good dog must be obedient and submissive. She sighs, wondering where she could find such a dog. Suddenly, Rosaline steps forward and glares at Aristine. Just when we think a catfight is about to happen, the girl drops to her knees and hugs the princess's legs. She even begins to bark like a dog. Rosaline believes the princess has been hiding her abilities. If Ari decides to get her revenge, she will be the first target because she bullied her the most. The maid doesn't want to be abandoned in Ilugo, so she barks to save her life. The other girls are so shocked, their mouths turn into an open bowl. Meanwhile, Aristine has a huge smile on her face. She never thought that Rosaline would switch sides so easily, but she knows the girl has been cornered. The princess rubs her face, acting like the maid is really a dog. The other maids watch in shock as Rosaline barks without any dignity. They can't stop screaming and the whole room turns into a mad doghouse. Ari plays fetch with her new pet while the other maids watch with wide eyes. Rosaline grabs the ball with her mouth, causing the princess to praise her skills. Inside, the maid is feeling upset. She had treated the princess like trash, so now she has to show complete obedience. The girl barks like a dog, willing to sacrifice her dignity just to save her life. Aristine can't stop laughing as she gives the girl another task. She wants Rosaline to become her hunting dog. The maid glances at her terrified friends and notices their frightened looks. She feels upset because the girls are treating her like a madwoman. Rosaline makes up her mind to become Aristine's weapon. She will be a hunting dog that follows its master's requests. The girl is willing to destroy any target that Aristine gives her, and when she is done, she will make sure she ruins the princess. Aristine interrupts her evil thoughts, eager to see the girl's hunting skill. But first, our heroine wants to continue her game of fetch. The maid continues to bark, but secretly vows never to forget this disgrace. She also says a silent curse for the person who put this toy in the princess room. Over at the training ground, we see Tarkan flexing his back muscles. He recalls the insults from his siblings who were mocking his background. The prince says he isn't ashamed of his origin, but still splits an innocent leaf into two. He knows his father arranged this marriage, so he can marry the Sylvanus royal family and boost his political position. Tarkan knows he can't avoid this fight because the battle for crown prince will become even harder. Just then, Durante arrives and announces that the warriors have all gathered. Tarkan leaves, but his sword energy destroys all the statues. Our male lead arrives at the conference room and the meeting begins. The prince listens to his men's report, and the documents in front of him soon become a small mountain. Zack wants them to battle the monsters because the Sylvanus War had delayed their progress. The men become silent at the mention of Sylvanus, but they are all eager to know more about the princess. They had asked Durante, but the man had refused to say a single word. Meanwhile, his subordinates couldn't stop praising the princess, but the men think it is impossible to like someone from Sylvanus. Durante warns them to stop mocking the future princess, but the men refuse. They think the people from Sylvanus are all evil. Tarkan interrupts their quarrel with a warning to keep quiet, causing the men to immediately act like obedient schoolboys. The prince glares at Zack, blaming him for not reporting about the princess's background. The warrior feels aggrieved because he had already prepared a report, but when he gave it to the prince, Tarkan had used it to light a fire. Our male lead goes quiet, feeling a bit guilty, but Zack isn't done complaining. The prince had also threatened to throw him into the fire if he spoke about the princess. The poor man remembers his suffering during that period and can't stop his tears from flowing. His friends try to console him and even offer up some candy. Tarkan looks serious as he orders his men to report everything about the princess from now on. The warriors are all stunned because the prince has never changed his command. Zack guesses with surprise that his boss might now like the princess. Tarkan says Aristine might help them bring peace, so he wants all her information. Zack stares at him with resentful eyes because the prince had ruined the report he prepared. Our male lead changes the topic and mentions Mukali, the great general. He is reluctant to bring the man back because he might not adapt to the palace lifestyle. The prince suddenly looks solemn as he says he has an important announcement. His warriors become alarmed because the prince has never looked so serious. Zack is afraid the sly Sylvanians have caused trouble again. Meanwhile, Durante is ready to walk through fire or jump into rivers to fulfill his master's request. Unfortunately for the men, our male lead just wants them to gather the best pastry chefs. He even says they can steal the people from other palaces. The men quickly agree, but when their brains finally begin to load, they all freeze in shock. They have no idea that this request is because of a certain princess. The next day, our heroine wakes up with a happy smile. She is surprised to see the bright afternoon sun because she has never slept for long. Ari can't recall the last time she had a bath, changed into new clothes, or even slept in a good bed. She rolls around on the soft mattress, refusing to get up. The girl stares at the bed with sparkling eyes as she admires its bouncy texture. She is busy slapping the mattress when she notices someone staring at her. Aristine turns around to see the calm face of the Ilugo prince. The man seems to be used to her weird behavior and even sips some tea. The princess isn't embarrassed as she questions the man's presence in her room. Tarkan says he is her husband, but Ari reminds him that they aren't married yet. The prince takes that as an invitation to visit her room after the wedding. Our heroine stares at the warrior, wondering if he doesn't have a life. The prince has never been asked this question, and the man looks stunned. Aristine points out that he could have woken her up, but he watched her sleep like a jobless person. Tarkan trembles in anger because he really wanted to wake this nuisance up. He had arrived outside her room and for the first time in his life, waited for someone to wake up. The maid said she was still asleep, so he wandered off to torture his warriors. The poor men were forced to undergo a sudden 9 a.m. training. The prince spent the rest of his morning doing his duties. But when he returned at midday, Aristine was still asleep. The man froze in shock, wondering how a human could sleep so much. Beside him, Ari's noble maid had sparkling eyes as she offered to share a drink with him. Tarkan stared at the women who were running around and trying to seduce him. He recalled the way they mocked Ari when she was faced with insults and the man was filled with fear. He was afraid the maids might have harmed his wife and were trying to stall him. Tarkan pushed them away as he barged into the princess's room. He expects to see a pitiful and crying Ari, but instead, the princess is sound asleep. The girl even has the audacity to smile in her dreams. The prince recalls this memory and smiles like a fool. Aristine is about to peer into his soul because she is curious about his thoughts. She notices the man's shy look and recalls the famous scene from romance novels. The male lead will always watch his beloved sleep because he is afraid of waking her up. The princess looks proud as she says the man couldn't wake her because she looked like a sleeping angel. Our male lead almost chokes on his tea, but it gets even worse. The girl thinks he is a pervert who enjoys watching women sleep. She warns him not to fulfill his weird desires with her. The prince denies this accusation, but nearly dies when the girl responds with a patronizing tone. He slams down a document and gulps his tea, trying to control his anger. Meanwhile, Aristine is fascinated with the new document. Tarkan explains that it is a list of all the nobles who will attend the Sylvanian welcome party. Aristine is touched by the prince's trust because this important information shouldn't be given to a princess from the enemy country. She vows to make him proud and advises him not to arrive early for the banquet. Tarkan thinks she is trying to avoid conflict with his royal siblings, but Aristine has another plan. The princess urges Tarkan to give her more time because she is preparing a big surprise for the emperor. Time passes and the Sylvanian welcome party finally begins. The head maid is preparing seats for everyone when the guard announces Tarkan and Aristine's arrival. The man looks dazed by the couple's beauty. The prince escorts his bride to the hall but says she will do the greetings alone. Aristine is full of confidence and urges her partner not to worry. The couple step into the banquet and the Ilugo nobles are dazed by their beauty. They admire the stunning Sylvanian princess and blame people for spreading fake rumors. Aristine lets go of Tarkan's hand and gives her greeting to the imperial couple. The girl is full of elegance and the Ilugo king welcomes her warmly. Our heroine is feeling pleased until she hears a mean voice asking about her journey. The queen pretends to be worried about her health because she used an old carriage instead of the travel portal. Aristine stares at the famous Ilugo queen as she recalls her conversation with Tarkin. When the man was 10, he was attacked by assassins who tried to kill him. The prince managed to survive, but the next day he was thrown into the battlefield to fight the monsters. The queen had done her best to get rid of him so she could promote her own son. While the king was dealing with foreign affairs, the woman gained control of the whole palace. She promoted the old nobles who supported her to the front seats. The emerging powers and warriors who supported Tarkan were all pushed to the back. Aristine couldn't believe this cruel story because sending a 10-year-old child into the battlefield to fight monsters will only result in his death. The girl finally realized that the queen wants Tarkan dead, and she will do anything to make her own son the crown prince. Aristine isn't deceived by the woman's friendly look. The queen seems to be asking about her journey, but is secretly mocking the princess for being unworthy to use the portal. Our heroine recalls that the royal siblings had also tried this trick on her first visit to the king. They knew she arrived with a filthy look, but they praised her beauty, hoping to disgrace her. Aristine is already used to their evil plans and will never be defeated by such small tricks. She replies with a smile, saying she isn't exhausted because she is fighting for the peace of the two nations. The girl claims that she traveled by carriage so she could understand the people's sufferings after the war. The queen smiles, but in her mind, she curses Aristine for lying. The woman knows that the Sylvanas king refused to allow the girl to use the portal. Nepthar praises Aristine for her selfless attitude, and the Ilugo nobles are all impressed. They all praise the princess for her kindness. Some people are unhappy to see this, and so they jump out to make a ruckus. A nobleman wipes his tears as he praises the princess's lovely attitude. He suddenly switches his tone and mocks her for wearing the Ilugo traditional outfit. The nobles are all shocked as they realize that the princess's dress is actually an Ilugoan outfit. They murmur, wondering why the girl didn't wear a dress from her empire. Aristine isn't bothered because she knew the nobleman would cause some trouble. Duke Sciella is the father of the queen and also Hamir's closest ally. The princess recalls her maid's complaints when she suggested wearing the Ilugoan outfit. They insisted that she wear a dress from Sylvanas to represent the empire. Aristine had refused because the only Sylvanas dress she had was a dirty outfit that hadn't been washed for a month. Duke Sciella looks smug as he implies that the princess is acting lowly in order to impress them. He calls her a tribute from a lower country and is pleased that she knows her place. Tarkin is furious when he hears the man insult his wife. All around her, Aristine can hear the Ilugo nobles mocking her for being lowly. The princess smirks because they have now crossed the line. The nobles who support the queen are having fun. They mock Sylvanas for losing the war and sending over their princess. They look down on the dumb Aristine, wishing that the king sent over the precious second princess. The men believe the girl must know her faults, which is why she is acting lowly. Aristine isn't upset because she knows they all support the queen. Just a little praise is enough to make them feel threatened. The nobles are still laughing when the princess suddenly moves closer. She reminds the men that the two countries are about to sign a peace treaty. The girl smiles and accuses the men of mocking her because they want to continue the war. Duke Sciella has a terrified look on his face as he explains that he doesn't want to ruin the treaty. Aristine smiles and accepts his apology, causing the man to finally relax. The duke stops talking because he is afraid the king might become angry. He blames Aristine because he expected the girl to behave like a dumb coward. The man looks up, only to see the dumb coward staring at him with sparkling eyes. He watches in confusion as her eyes become brighter, but he has no idea what she wants him to say. Aristine gives him a hint and reminds the man that she is wearing an Ilugoan dress. The duke thinks she wants some compliments, and so he praises her dress. The princess deflates like a balloon and voices her pity for the man's lack of intelligence. Sciella is furious because no one has ever dared to insult him. He is about to mock her dress again when Paella points out that the outfit is made of Sylvanian Cariel silk. Aristine praises the princess and explains that the Cariel silk was named after their country. The silk is so rare and expensive that only a few rolls are sent to the palace. The nobles are all amazed because the dress combines the cultures of both countries. Sciella is upset as he realizes that this dress perfectly represents the peace between the two nations. Aristine sees the duke's disappointed look and is happy because the man fell into his own trap. The princess only arrived with one dress, but because it was dirty, she begged Tarkan to help her. The two couldn't make a Sylvanian dress in such a short time, so they used the Cariel silk to make an Ilugoan outfit. Aristine is pleased because the Duke really fell into her trap. The girl apologizes to the king because the silk was supposed to be his gift. She smiles as she urges the man to treat it like her wedding gift. Nefter is stunned for a minute before he begins to laugh. He agrees to give the silk to the girl as a present, and scolds the men for failing to think about the peace treaty. The play soon ends and the king orders the couple to take a seat. Tarkan praises his fierce wife, causing the girl to smile like a proud cat. The couple wait for the handmaid to show them their seats, but soon notice the woman trembling. The maid apologizes, saying she forgot to prepare their table. Nefter glares at his wife, who pretends to be surprised, and scolds the maid for making a mistake. The queen says she was excited to meet the princess, so she forgot to check the arrangements. The couple know the woman is lying, but there is nothing they can do. The queen pretends to think, but soon points to an empty table at the back of the room. The other nobles are furious because that table is reserved for servants. The queen urges the couple to take a seat and stop standing around like punished children. She claims that their seating position doesn't matter and urges the couple to give in for the sake of peace. The queen expects to see their angry face, but instead Aristine is staring at the seat with joy. The queen watches the girl smile and feels a bit frightened. She thinks the princess heard about her scheme with the headmaid and prepared a counterattack. Tarkan also notices the look on his wife's face, causing the man to feel scared. Aristine always has that look when she is about to do something weird. The prince, after recalling his past experiences, grabs her hand to stop her from causing trouble. He suddenly looks up at the queen, accusing her of being drunk. Tarkan pulls his wife close and calls her the symbol of peace. He says such an important figure shouldn't be given an isolated seat. The prince suggests that the queen's judgment might be clouded, basically calling her an old and deluded woman. The other nobles are surprised to see the prince arguing because he just walks around, ignoring the royal members. They can't believe the cold prince is actually defending his wife. The queen replies that she is just offering the princess a seat, so the girl wouldn't be kept standing. Tarkan has another suggestion and orders his siblings to give up their seats. He glares at the group, urging them to protect the peace by giving up their chair. The royal siblings pretend to be dead because they are unwilling to move. The timid Martin, who has always been terrified of his brother, finally offers his chair to the Sylvanus princess. Tarkan tells his wife to take a seat, but the girl insists on finding another one for him. She knows the man is trying to defend her and is unwilling to see him chased to the servants' table. Aristine marches across the hall, causing the royal siblings to tremble in fear. Stelina knows she has the lowest rank and is afraid the princess might snatch her seat. The girl doesn't want to be disgraced, so she thinks of offering the seat to Ari. Instead, the princess runs past her table and heads over to Yenika. Aristine says she needs to sit with Tarkan to show the symbol of peace. Since Yenika is happy about her marriage, the girl should give up her seat for the couple. The second princess is stunned and can only stare at Aristine. Our heroine knows this battle of seats will also affect their politics. Instead of bullying a small fry like Stelina, she would rather take the seat of the most favored princess. Aristine pretends to be sad as she guesses that Yenika is reluctant to move. The Alugo princess is furious because she doesn't want to give her seat to such an idiot. Aristine glares at the girl, warning her to move because her mother started this battle. Yenika sees the princess's terrifying face and almost cries in fear. Just then, the king interrupts their fierce battle, telling Yenika not to move because of her leg injury. Aristine glares at the king, while the second princess almost cries from happiness. Our heroine feels a bit disappointed because she didn't expect the king to side with Yenika, but she soon remembers that the princess is his favorite daughter. The queen thinks it is over, but when she relaxes, the king suddenly says the couple must sit together. He orders the headmaid to bring more chairs and place them next to his throne. Duke Sciella immediately protests because that spot is reserved for the crown prince and his wife. The empress supports her father, urging the king to follow the rules. Nefter laughs and suddenly glares at the queen, reminding her of her own words. Since she said seating arrangements weren't important, he wants the couple to stay beside him. Tarkan climbs the stairs with his wife, and at that moment, the nobles who didn't support anyone begin to change their minds. They never thought the queen would lose or Tarkan would take the lead. The political world seems to be changing, and it is all because of the Sylvanus princess. Aristine is enjoying her new spot because she can see everything happening in the hall. The princess seems to be searching for someone, and Tarkan catches her. When the queen gave them the back seats, he noticed the girl staring at another man. The prince looks furious as he demands to know the man who caught his fiancée's eyes. Tarkan wants to know the identity of the man who seduced his wife. Aristine refuses to reveal his name, calling it a trade secret. The prince is nonchalant, promising not to interfere if the man doesn't cause trouble. Ari is pleased with his words and takes another secret glance at a certain blonde man. She is sure he is the same person she saw in her vision. A month ago, Aristine had received a vision on her journey to Ilugo. She was together with the blonde man who promised to belong to her and begged Aristine to accept him. The princess agreed to his proposal and even covered his lips, saying she knew his feelings. Just when we think they are about to declare their love, Aristine promises to make him the best smith in the whole world. The two even make a vow to work together. Our heroine recalls her shock when she saw the first half of the vision. She almost thought she was having an affair. She never expected to see the man here, and so she takes another look at him. But this time, Tarkan catches her. The prince notices the blonde man and he doesn't look pleased. Rest in peace, blonde stranger. Aristine is still daydreaming about her future business with the blonde man. She really wants to speak to him, but she knows she can't cause any more trouble. She can still feel the angry queen glaring at her. The food arrives, and just like Ari, the blonde man is also a foodie. The princess is watching him when she notices his uninjured hand. She is surprised because back in her vision, the man had injured his hand and lost his thumb. The girl has no idea how she met this man or even found out about his talent. But she vows to save him and prevent his injury from occurring. She makes up her mind to investigate his background and make him her loyal subordinate. Aristine is distracted from her grand thoughts by the delicious taste of the food. The girl falls into food ecstasy, and when she is done with her meal, the maid serves some prin-pran jelly. Our heroine is filled with happiness, and soon the plate of jellies disappears into her stomach. The greedy girl even plans to snatch some from the king. Tarkan sighs in despair as he gives the girl his jellies. Aristine watches him with a big smile, saying the man might be a pervert, but he is still a good partner. The prince is furious, but he can't win against this stubborn girl. Meanwhile, Diona is with some ladies as they watch the couple. The girls think the two are a perfect match and they all want to become friends with Aristine. Their words upset Diona and she runs out in anger. She doesn't notice someone approaching and soon bumps into a tall figure. The girl immediately looks pleased when she sees the man's face. The stranger is worried to see her crying and thinks something has happened to Tarkan. Diona remembers the happy couple and soon has a crazy idea. She pretends to be sad as she accuses Aristine of having an affair. The stranger with the scarred face doesn't look happy to hear this. After the Sylvanian welcome banquet, Aristine became famous. Tarkan's cold and gloomy palace finally becomes lively as the maids gossip about the new princess. They admire not only her beauty and elegance, but her skill in defeating the queen. While everyone is waiting for her wedding, the princess is busy drawing another business plan. Ilugo produces a lot of high-quality steel, and with the help of her new smith, Aristine vows to create a huge business. The princess wants to improve the reputation of the Ilugo Empire. Her grand plans are interrupted as the maids arrive with news about her wedding dress. The girls are excited as they show her different dress sketches, but the bride-to-be has no interest in the designs. Lady Brody watches them with a jealous look on her face. She mocks the Ilugoan maids for making a fuss over an abandoned princess. Aristine doesn't need to say a word as her loyal dog jumps to her defense. Rosaline glares at her friend and scolds her for mocking the princess. The two ladies begin to fight, and our female lead pretends to be invisible. The Ilugo maid watches with open mouths as the two ladies tear at each other. Aristine has a happy smile on her face as she thinks about her peaceful life. Because the maids are now fighting each other, they have stopped harassing her. Her guards have been replaced by Ilugo knights, and even the palace food tastes better than before. The Ilugo maid chases the fighting girls away and now wants Aristine's opinion on her wedding. The girls stare at her with sparkling eyes, eager to fulfill her request. The princess is terrified by their passionate looks and reveals her desire. She thinks about her soft and bouncy bed and says she wants another one. The maids are frightened, and even the approaching Tarkan stops in his tracks. The servants laugh like maniacs because they think the princess wants to use the bed on her wedding night. They giggle as they prepare to buy an even larger size of bed. The innocent Aristine just wants a soft bed and tells them not to make it large. The maids almost faints because they think the princess plans to snuggle in bed with her husband. Outside, Tarkan also has these dirty thoughts, and his handsome face is filled with shyness. The man can't even move and is frozen outside the door. The maids vow with all their soul to find the perfect bed. They are still teasing the princess when they open the door and see Tarkan. The maids feel guilty. while the innocent Aristine welcomes her fiancé. Outside, the court ladies are having a royal rumble when they are interrupted by a stranger. The girls glare at the man but immediately cower when they see his scarred face. The man says he wants to see Aristine and reveals his identity as the famous General Mukali. The Sylvanian court ladies have heard about the general because he is Tarkan's closest aide. They are frightened by the man's scarred face and his huge body. Mukali becomes impatient and orders the ladies to show him the way. He watches them tremble in fear, feeling disdain for the weak Sylvanians. He assumes that the princess will also be an annoying weakling. Mukali trusts Diona because the girl has always been truthful. Her brother, Chantra, was a loyal soldier who sacrificed his life for Tarkan. The boy knew he would die and had begged the general to take care of his sister. Mukali recalls his conversation with Diona. The girl claimed that the prince's fiancé was having an affair. She seemed really sad for Tarkan because she just wants his happiness. The general can't control his anger, causing him to slam the wall. He feels sad for Diona because everyone is praising the princess. He thinks the girl is more amazing than Aristine and vows to expose the princess's true colors. Now, will Diona's crazy plan work, or will Mukali be won over by our heroine? According to Pavlov's dog experiment, if you regularly ring a bell before feeding a dog, the dog would eventually associate the bell with food and would salivate just by hearing the bell ring. Right now, our heroine feels like that dog. She happily welcomes Tarkan because she knows his visit means more dessert. Of course, Aristine could just ask the maids to give her more snacks, but she still hasn't realized that this is also her palace. She refuses to make any demands, worried that others might scold her. The girl vows to make Tarkan king and defeat her evil father. Then, she will gain her freedom and buy everything she likes. Tarkan has no idea that he is just a source of food to his wife. His mind is filled with her talk about the soft bed, and he wonders why his business partner is having such dirty thoughts. He mentions her conversation with the maids, but the girl shows no shame. She even declares again that the bed must be extra soft. The prince is terrified and has no idea how to react. Aristine leans closer, asking about his opinion on the soft bed. Tarkan feels his heart flutter when he sees her pretty smile. Feeling ashamed, he slams the table and tells Aristine her dirty thoughts will never be fulfilled. He storms away in anger, but midway breaks into a quick run. Even the maid is shocked by his weird behavior. Our heroine is also confused because she has no idea what dirty thoughts she is supposed to have. The maid is about to take the snacks away, but Aristine, the little foodie, grabs everything. Staring at the table of food, she is delighted to have the 2 portions. She is about to enter into food heaven when her ladies-in-waiting suddenly rush in with terrified looks on their faces. The girls announce that a great danger is approaching as General Mukali is here to see her. They urge her to send the scary man away, but our heroine hasn't even heard about the famous general. Her maids are frustrated and explain that he is one of Tarkan's 3 closest allies. He is a hideous monster who defeated the Sylvanian knights all by himself. They think their words would make the princess reject him, but instead Aristine orders them to let him in. Mukali storms in, looking like the god of death. He has a terrifying glare on his face as he introduces himself to Aristine. He notices how tiny she looks and believes that, just like the other ladies, she will be terrified by his scarred face. The general is tired of such frightened looks, but is happy that his scar would teach the cheating woman a big lesson. Unfortunately, the cheating Aristine has a very low EQ. She welcomes the general with a huge smile, happy to finally meet one of Tarkan's men. Mukali is confused by her warm welcome because he spoke harshly and came here fully armed, just to frighten the princess. Yet, she doesn't even flinch at the scar on his face. He feels touched, until he remembers that this woman is cheating on his master. He mentions her search for another man, thinking that the girl would be frightened. Instead, Aristine happily agrees and even asks him to sit so they can talk about the man. The general turns into a block of wood and begins to doubt his life. The princess urges her maids to serve more snacks, and they rush off faster than Usain Bolt. Aristine smiles because she thinks that Tarkan sent the general here to help her search for the handsome blacksmith. She laughs because she thinks the prince is just a shy man who hides his true feelings. Meanwhile, the huge general is forced to sit at the table, looking like a child at a doll tea party. This is totally not what he expected. Mukali came here to catch the cheater, but is now having tea with a tiny princess from another country. Just then, the tiny princess announces that he's going to find that man for her, and the general nearly falls over from shock. Mukali looks flustered because he thinks he has been caught in the princess's trap. He can't resist her cute face as she begs him to help her find the mystery man. The general looks horrified as he remembers how the maids and the other soldiers all praise the princess. He believes that Aristine plans to seduce everyone with her charm and make them her puppets. Then she can control the whole Ilugo. Mukali slams the table, determined to defeat this evil seductress. He points at the tiny princess, yelling that he came here for one reason. But just as Mukali is about to reveal his true purpose, he suddenly goes mute. Aristine is waiting for the big reveal, but the general can't say a single word. He hesitates because his battle instincts, which have always saved him, are telling him not to offend the princess. Mukali suddenly grins as he gets another idea. Instead of exposing the princess, he can pretend to be her ally, find the man, and gather more evidence. He imagines himself catching the princess right in the act and feels very pleased. He will make sure the sly girl won't escape her punishment. The warrior immediately changes his attitude and sits down again. He says he came here to help Aristine get more information about the man. Our heroine is pleased and thanks him with a cute laugh. The general pretends to be happy, but secretly scolds her for not being suspicious. He believes she must be a pampered princess. Aristine whispers to the general, complaining that she couldn't sneak outside to meet the handsome man because of her ladies-in-waiting. Mukali almost curses the princess but controls his temper and urges her to keep talking. Our heroine reveals that she has gathered the man's basic details from the servants, but she needs to know more. She wants to know everything about the mystery man, including his likes and interests. The general screams like a dying pig, questioning her decision. The next moment, he covers his mouth when he remembers that he is supposed to help Aristine so he can catch her in the act. The princess, meanwhile, happily declares that she is trying to attract the mystery man, and this time, the general really falls off his chair. He lays on the ground in shock as he confirms his suspicions. Diona was right about the princess. Mukali should be jumping in joy that he has caught the cheater, but right now, he feels upset. The man cries for his lovely master, wondering why the princess isn't satisfied with Tarkan. Aristine points out that the man has different skills than the prince and Mukali nearly dies. Somehow, he thinks the princess is mocking his master's bed skills. Aristine finally notices the general's half-dead look and assumes that he wants his master to be the best in the world. She decides to satisfy his desire and says Tarkan is the perfect partner because of his physical body. The general misunderstands again and screams in fright. He imagines that the two have already done the deed even before their wedding night. He thinks about the tiny, delicate princess and suddenly imagines Tarkan as a beast. How could he think of getting intimate with her? The man is scolding his lord when the princess suddenly says the mystery man is a smith. She explains that Tarkan is a warrior, so he can't help her. She needs the assistance of the talented weapon makers in Ilugo. Aristine wasn't planning to spill her secret about the smith, but thinking that the general is here to help her, she can reveal a bit of her plans. She mentions that the Ilugoans have constantly developed swords that could fight against the evolving monsters. She praises their weapon-making skills, calling them the best in the continent. Mukali didn't expect the princess to know about their weapon skills, but Ari even knows that their swords could kill the monsters with a single strike. The general becomes excited and boasts that their swords could cut through even the monster's bones. The two instantly become besties as they both praise the Ilugo skills and reveal their disdain for the Sylvanians. Aristine says her country is just full of pride and arrogance without any glorious achievements. Mukali is happily agreeing, when he suddenly realizes that he is having fun with the princess. The man tries to convince himself that this is just an act, so he could catch the cheater red-handed. He notices the princess staring at his sword, and he immediately becomes excited. Mukali tries to act nonchalant, but still turns around with a princess twirl and shows off his majestic sword. Right, he is totally not excited. Aristine is amazed at the sight of his sword and is sure it must be one of the best swords in Ilugo. The excited general grins and rushes to pull out his sword so he can show it off, but he seems to have forgotten something. His sword is the longest weapon in Ilugo and is almost as tall as Aristine. When he pulls it out from its sheath, it stirs up a great wind that messes up the princess's outfit. The general stammers in fear as he tries to explain himself, but looking at the disheveled princess, he knows he is doomed. The nervous general believes his life has come to an end. Right now, he looks like an evil villain bullying the weak and tiny princess with a large sword. He really should have listened to Zack when he told him not to draw his sword because he looks threatening. Mukali waits for the princess to start screaming in panic, but Aristine covers her face like she is about to cry. The general feels bad, because even though he came here to teach the princess a lesson, he really wasn't trying to frighten her just now. The big baby feels sad because he just wanted to show off his sword. Now he wouldn't even have a chance to speak to the princess again. Mukali is drowning in despair when he suddenly hears someone approaching. Aristine has a huge smile on her face as she leans down to admire the large sword. When she glances at him, her whole body seems to be sparkling with happiness. The general is confused by the princess's reaction because even though she is staring at his face, she doesn't look upset. He covers his scarred face as he recalls his past. During the war, he had been mocked by the Sylvanus Knights and called a horrible monster. He wasn't bothered at first because he thought those scars were proof of his strength. But when he tried to interact with others, he realized that his scarred face would make children afraid. Even Diona had always avoided him until she got used to the sight. The general had accepted that he would never get along with weak and tiny people. That was why he thought the little Sylvanus princess would also be frightened. But from the first moment he saw Aristine, she had never shown a hint of fear or disgust. In fact, right now, she is treating him just like a normal person. She stares right into his eyes and all he can see is curiosity. It is almost as if his scar doesn't matter. The general shakes his head, trying to convince himself he is just overreacting. There is no way a Sylvanus princess would be interested in him or his sword. Still, he kneels before her and describes his sword's maintenance process. Aristine asks to touch his sword and the general warns her to be careful. Soon, an entire afternoon passes, but the general is still talking about his sword. Aristine is amused as she stares at him, finally realizing that Mukali is just a sword freak and is totally obsessed with swords. Still, she feels happy to have such a great experience. Aristine is listening to the general happily when she suddenly feels like she has forgotten something important. The princess screams and startles the poor general, who thinks that there is danger around. He grabs his sword, ready to defend the princess from the assassins. Instead, he sees the girl crying as she complains that her table full of desserts have all gone cold. Aristine doesn't notice the surprised general because she is crying over her delicious food. Mukali thinks that she can just ask her maids to bring more, until he remembers that he scared them away. It is all his fault! Meanwhile, the Sylvanas princess says that she can just get more desserts when the prince visits. She thanks Mukali because she really enjoyed their talk. The general is stunned by her cuteness and suddenly tells Ari to come over to his palace to enjoy these snacks. Our heroine immediately agrees because she has never been invited to a friend's place. Meanwhile, the warrior tries to convince himself that he just wants to spy on the princess. He becomes shocked when Aristine suggests that she brings over some scones as a greeting gift. He remembers Tarkan's order to find the best dessert chefs and finally realizes that the prince was just trying to please his little wife. A few days pass until the wedding day of Tarkan and Aristine finally arrives. Over at the princess palace, the place is in chaos. The Ilugo maids run around, trying to make sure everything is arranged and perfect before the carriage arrives. The head maid sees two girls standing around, but just as she is about to scold them, she notices their teary faces. The girls, who are applying the princess's makeup, tremble in excitement as they admire their masterpiece. Aristine steps out, calling the maids dramatic for crying. After all, they have already seen her dress before. The princess has no idea that she is sparkling, and even the head maid is stunned. The three immediately declare that they can never be tired of her beauty. They fuss over Ari while behind them. The Sylvanas ladies-in-waiting watch with jealous faces. Brody mocks Aristine while Rosaline stares at the princess in awe. Her mistress is covered in rare and precious diamonds, which are more expensive than an entire palace. She almost pulls off Aristine's clothes in greed as she begs the princess to make her the bridesmaid. She says she is the princess's loyal dog. Sorry, lady-in-waiting. Rosaline is stopped by the three Ilugo maids. They block the girl, mockingly calling her a noble lady and asking her not to bother herself with such trivial matters. They lure the ladies away, promising them sweet tea and a carriage fit for their beauty. Aristine watches as the arrogant ladies leave and thanks the Ilugo maids for chasing them away. The Ilugo servants had noticed that the ladies-in-waiting always treated Aristine with great disrespect. They couldn't stop them before because they were just servants, while the Sylvanas girls were noble ladies. But after the incident with Mukali, where the girls ran off and didn't come back, the Ilugo maids slowly took over their duties and chased the nobles away. The head maid urges Aristine to focus on her wedding and stop worrying about them. She suddenly becomes teary as she reveals that the Ilugoans had always lived in fear. As the Sylvanas war dragged on, their greatest warrior, Tarkan, was away for a long time. As a result, the front lines of the monster plains were abandoned and left defenseless. The citizens pretended to be brave, but they were all afraid that the monsters would suddenly attack their country. Because of that, they all regard Aristine as their symbol of hope and peace. Aristine suddenly feels ashamed of her country. They clearly know the Ilugoans are desperate for peace, yet they still mock them by sending over a dirty princess. She thinks her father is shameful, but an even more disgusting person appears before her. A Sylvanas knight blocks the princess's path, saying that he can finally see her beauty now that she isn't dirty. Aristine glares at the moron who has no shame and even compares her to her fake sister. He looks proud as he bows and offers to escort the princess. Aristine has no time for the babbling fool, so she ignores him and heads straight into her carriage. The knight yells at her, calling her rude but soon becomes ashamed when he hears the others laughing at him. He secretly calls the princess a peacock for ignoring an outstanding knight like him. Meanwhile, Aristine sits in the carriage wondering how the knight could be so arrogant even after his subordinate was beaten up. She knows the Sylvanas delegates will soon return home and inform her father about their trip. The king would no doubt be annoyed that she isn't being mocked the way he expected. Our heroine decides to find a way to get rid of those knights as soon as possible. Over at the wedding venue, the Ilugo reporters have already arrived at the palace, even though the wedding hasn't started. Tarkan's three wings appear, stunning all the ladies. They are all dressed in matching suits, but Mukali feels awkward without his sword. Beside him, Zack warns him not to cause any trouble, while Durante imagines how his boss would look in a wedding suit. The girls are all amazed until they remember that Lady Diona is missing. The people of Ilugo have always admired the four friends. Just then, Diona arrives and greets the girls, causing them to nearly faint because their idol is speaking to them. The girls praise her beauty and even suggest that Day will outshine the princess. Diona is happy to hear this, but still pretends to defend Aristine. The girls secretly blame her for being too kind, but wonder why she isn't at the groom's waiting room. Diona pretends to be scared as she reveals a truth that makes the girls stunned. Diona claims that she is going to see the princess. She acts sad as she says Aristine must be feeling sad and lonely in a foreign country. Since she is the princess's only age mate, she must take care of her. The Ilugo ladies immediately look terrified and suspicious. They both assume that the Sylvanas princess must have summoned Diona. She must have found out that Tarkan has a special relationship with the girl. Everyone in Ilugo thinks that the prince has a special relationship with Diona. After he returned from the war with his allies, many ladies had tried to seduce him, but Tarkan refused them all. Only the perfect Diona could stay by his side every time. The girl belonged to the house of Palaman, and her late brother, Chantra, was one of the most famous warriors in the kingdom. The people all believe that Diona is the only one who can melt the prince's stony heart, but they can't be together because of the evil king. The Iligo ladies immediately become angry as they assume that Aristine is bullying the timid Diona. They had pitied the princess, thinking she was also forced into the marriage. But now they can't hide their disdain. The ladies cheer for Diona, declaring that they will always be by her side. The girl pretends to be ignorant and thanks them for supporting her. The ladies are touched by her cute and soft behavior and are truly terrified that the princess might harass her. They decide to spread rumors about the nasty Aristine, while the sly Diona runs away with an evil smile. The girl heads over to the bride's waiting room and stares at the door with teary eyes. She had always imagined herself sitting in this very room ever since she was young. But the Ilugo king had ruined her plans by arranging a royal marriage for the prince. Diona feels unwilling, so she steps inside to challenge the princess. Unfortunately, she is immediately stunned by Aristine's gorgeous look. The girl introduces herself to her, but Aristine only remembers her as the girl who served her tea. Diona has to bow to hide the hideous look on her face. She is jealous of Aristine's beauty, which seems to be increasing day by day. She clenches her fists, feeling frustrated, until she remembers that Tarkan's feelings will never change. Her face is suddenly filled with an evil smile as she stands up, claiming that she came to congratulate the princess on her wedding. Her eyes fill with tears as she says the couple would look good together. Diona pretends to be sad, hoping that Aristine will question her. Instead, the princess accepts her thanks with a calm face. The lady refuses to believe that Aristine is really calm and thinks that she is just pretending. She decides to provoke the girl and reveals that she grew up together with Tarkan. She says their mothers were best friends and her brother was also Tarkan's ally. Diona has been obsessed with the prince from the moment she saw him. She always believed that they were meant to be together and even get married. She shows off to Aristine, claiming that Tarkan's mother has always adored her and treated her like her daughter-in-law. The prince had also cared for her since she was young, and even though he avoided other girls, he was never heartless to her. Diona pretends to be worried about Aristine, telling the princess not to be offended by Tarkan's cold behavior. She thinks that Aristine will be offended, but our heroine is just bored by the senseless conversation. She isn't bothered by Diona's existence and doesn't care that she is Tarkan's secret lover. Aristine just wants to use the girl as a bargaining chip against Tarkan in the future. She even imagines the scene and feels a bit pleased. Aristine is lost in thoughts while Diona continues to ramble. She glares at our heroine, thinking she would feel bad about being the third wheel. Instead, she sees Aristine leaning against the couch with a bored face. Our heroine is this close to yawning. She immediately pretends to be listening, hoping the little lover won't be offended. Diona becomes spiteful, saying she never thought that Tarkan would marry Aristine. She claims that marriage should be because of love instead of peace. The girl suddenly switches tone and pretends to bless Aristine's marriage. Our heroine can hear the hidden meaning behind her words. Diona is basically saying that she is Tarkan's true love and he only married the princess because of peace. Her spiteful tone reminds Aristine of her cruel father who had given her a bottle of poison to drink or give to Tarkan to spark a war. The princess suddenly smiles and thanks Diona for blessing her marriage. She says that she will have a successful marriage with Tarkan because it is a greater union for world peace. Diona is stunned and glares at Aristine, secretly cursing the princess. Aristine is really driving her crazy. Durante is heading to the groom's room when he hears a group of ladies gossiping about Diona. He immediately becomes alert, but the ladies disappear into another room. The warrior is certain that he heard them mention Diona's name and decides to do some investigation. Mukali tries to stop him, but the man disappears like a flash. The warrior is surprised because Durante never leaves Tarkan's side. He even brought a camera along just to capture this great moment. He has a bad feeling that the man is going to cause trouble, and he is totally right. No one knows that Durante is actually a crazy fellow. Meanwhile, Diona is about to go crazy from anger. She glares at the calm Aristine, convinced that the girl is bragging about her special marriage. Diona really thinks that she is Tarkan's true love. They were always destined to be together, and even his 3 allies treat her like a little sister. She decides that since she can't marry the prince, she will make sure Aristine can never steal his heart. Meanwhile, our heroine is confused as she stares at the fuming girl. She thinks Diona is upset because she didn't listen to her bragging. Aristine complains that socializing is really hard. Just then, Diona hears a knock and thinks the princess's ladies-in-waiting are back. She feels unsatisfied because she hasn't properly insulted Aristine. But her hopes are ruined when Durante steps in. The warrior kneels and gives Aristine a proper greeting. The Ilugo beauty is upset because the knight is treating Aristine like a proper princess of the Ilugo family. Our heroine also feels awkward, so she asks the knight to rise. The two immediately start talking while the nervous Diona watches in fear. Durante suddenly glances at her and questions her presence. The girl panics because she knows Durante isn't as naive as Mukali. If she makes a single mistake, her life might be over. The two are having a showdown when Aristine suddenly interrupts and says the girl came to congratulate her. The princess is tired of listening to Diona's love story, but thinking that the girl still wants to brag, decides to help her snatch a second audience. She even winks at the girl, looking like a helpful friend. Diona almost loses her soul and immediately claims that she only wants to congratulate Aristine. Unfortunately, she has a pig teammate, and Aristine openly declares that Diona was bragging about her relationship with Tarkan. Durante is filled with a dark aura, while the nervous Diona tries to defend herself. She calls it a misunderstanding, but the warrior gives her a harsh look. Aristine has no idea what is going on and even wonders why Diona looks frightened. She thought the girl knew about her fake relationship with the prince and came to brag about her lover. But feeling the strange tension in the air, she finally realizes that she was wrong. Aristine stops the two from murdering themselves and declares that she is okay with Tarkan having a little lover. She thinks she has to support Diona so the girl might help her negotiate with Tarkan in the future. But looking at Durante's murderous face, she realizes that she might have said something wrong. Durante reminds Aristine that marriage is a once-in-a-lifetime event, so she shouldn't give in to the scheming wench. Diona protests, but he stares at her with a harsh look and warns her to stay away. Aristine isn't upset because she thinks her marriage with Tarkan is just a political event. She assures the warrior that she really doesn't care about Tarkan having a lover. Durante clenches his fist, feeling unhappy, but he is forced to accept Aristine's choice. He bows to her as he leaves, but walks past Diona with an angry face. Just before he steps out, he gives the princess a sincere blessing for her marriage. Aristine calls it her second blessing, but Durante knows that Diona's greeting was fake. He is really the princess's first supporter. The warrior leaves, but Diona is unable to stay calm. She knows the warrior is really angry, so she tries to chase after him and explain herself. Aristine stops her, wondering why the girl isn't bragging about her lover anymore. Diona pretends to smile, but secretly calls the princess a scheming person. She claims she is going for a bathroom break and immediately rushes outside. Our naive heroine really believes her and even wishes the girl a peaceful bathroom session. Sigh. Diona chases Durante into the banquet. She grabs his arms, begging him to give her a chance to explain. The warrior tells her to go ahead, but she notices everyone staring at them. Unwilling to expose her true colors, she drags him outside the palace. Diona claims she was just giving Aristine some advice on how to handle her marriage. She only told Aristine about her past with Tarkan, so the princess won't misunderstand. But Aristine had twisted her words to make her look bad. Durante isn't a gullible man and tells Diona not to explain herself. Her strange gaze towards the prince has already exposed her true feelings. The Alugo beauty is stunned, realizing that Durante already knows about her feelings for Tarkan. But instead of being ashamed, she blames the man for not taking her side or cherishing her. She stares at him with teary eyes, and this is the scene that Mukali witnesses when he steps outside. Diona is happy to see her best supporter, while the general panics at the sight of her teary gaze. The girl jumps into his arms and he pets her. Of course, he doesn't forget to scold Durante. He doesn't even ask about the details, and just declares that his friend must be wrong. Durante shakes his head, amazed by the general's naive behavior. He tells Diona that he doesn't care about her business with the princess. His eyes suddenly glow with killing intent as he threatens to destroy her if she ever bothers Tarkan. Diona is frightened because Durante has another nickname. He is Tarkan's sword of protection and will destroy anything that bothers his master. The man walks away and even slams the door behind him. Mukali watches with a stunned face while Diona continues to cry and complain about the warrior's fierce behavior. She doesn't give up on ruining Aristine's name and even suggests that the princess might have said bad things about her to the warrior. Mukali is stunned when she mentions the princess's name, but remembering that small and cute girl, he doesn't really believe Diona's story. He decides to ask his friend about the details later. Meanwhile, the palace is filled with fireworks as it is finally time for the bride's entrance. The Alugo maids lecture Aristine's noble ladies, telling them how to hold the prince's dress and behave in front of the cameras. They really look like the real ladies in waiting. Aristine ignores the arguing girls, unable to believe that she's finally getting married. Just then, the huge doors open and a luxurious banquet hall is revealed. The photographers cover them with flashing lights as they struggle to take the best pictures. The ladies in waiting are finally frightened, and by the way they hold Aristine's dress, you would think it was an egg. Our heroine heads towards the man waiting for her at the altar. For a moment, she feels confused, because she seems to have seen a gentle and loving look in the prince's eyes. Aristine can't believe it and guesses that it must be the camera flashes playing tricks on her eyes. The wedding begins, and the priest praises their union as a symbol of peace. Behind them, the Alugo ladies stare at the two with awe. They always thought that even though Aristine was beautiful, her small body couldn't compare to the tall and attractive Alugo ladies. But right now, the couple seem to be the perfect match, and Aristine looks even better than Diona. The girls gossip about the Alugo beauty and her relationship with Tarkan. Some believe that the two were involved, but others think the prince just treated Diona better than other ladies. The priest's sermon is over, and he declares with a smile that the couple can finally kiss. Tarkan is startled and immediately flinches in shock. Aristine is confused because sharing a kiss is a normal wedding process. She studies his frowning face and concludes that the shy man must be feeling nervous. The princess decides to give him some support and grabs his hand. She tells the prince that sharing a kiss is just a temporary contact between two people. She even pats his hands as she cheers him up. Tarkan is upset because it seems like his wife has kissed a lot. He questions her, but the next moment, feels ashamed for asking such a question. Aristine, meanwhile, thinks kissing isn't a big deal and even moves her lips closer to Tarkan's. The man suddenly pulls her close, causing the people to almost faint from excitement. The couple share their first kiss and their marriage is finally sealed. Outside the palace, the people are about to die from happiness. The photographers are also moved to tears, and one even claims that the prince just confessed his undying, eternal love to the princess. Of course, our male lead never said that, but the photographer swears with his life, causing everyone to believe this fake rumor. Everyone looks happy about the marriage, except for a few unhappy fellows. The queen and Duke Skila glare at the couple with dark eyes. The woman suddenly smirks at Aristine, and it looks like she has an evil plan. The couple step out of the hall, but their wedding still isn't over. Next, they have to perform the wedding parade, follow the main royal road to Tarkan's place, and announce their marriage to the citizens. Aristine is stunned when she sees the large crowd waiting outside for them. The people yell blessings for her marriage, praising her beauty and kindness. She falls into a daze because she has never attended an official event. Her heart is touched, and seeing their smiling faces makes her very happy. Aristine smiles back at the citizens, causing them to freeze in awe. The next moment, they begin to cheer even louder. The princess turns to her husband, urging him to also greet the people. But the prince keeps frowning, looking like we owe him $1 billion. He has been sulking for hours, and his face looks even more terrifying than usual. Aristine calls his name, but he scowls like she is his greatest enemy. The girl isn't bothered and orders him to smile, but Tarkan refuses. Aristine points at the crowd, reminding the prince that they came to support him. The least he could do is give them a smile. Tarkan still refuses, so she says they have to pretend to be a loving couple so they can stop the evil queen from finding a flaw and ruining their marriage. The prince is upset because it seems his wife really has no personal feelings about this marriage. He has been worried about the kiss while she looks so carefree. He is unwilling to be defeated, so he finally smiles at Aristine. Our heroine is stunned by his good looks and stares at him in a daze. She only recovers when the man reminds her to also smile at the people. Feeling ashamed, Aristine turns away to wave at the citizens. She can't believe she just drooled over his beauty. The people cheer as the couple continue the parade, which symbolizes the citizens' blessings. Aristine is determined to maintain this marriage of peace so the Ilagoans can always be happy. Everything seems to be going well, until the coachman discovers that the carriage screw has suddenly gone loose. The couple are about to have an accident. The horses go into a frenzy while the terrified coachman tries to stop them. Unfortunately, the carriage connector is broken, and the loud sound has frightened the horses. The animals increase their speed, and the coachman cries that they are about to crash. Aristine closes her eyes and doesn't struggle. After all, she is already used to enduring the pain. The citizens also widen their eyes in fright as we hear a loud crash. Our heroine is waiting for her bones to crack, but she doesn't feel a single thing. Instead, she is floating in someone's embrace, and it feels very familiar. Of course, it is Tarkan who has come to his wife's rescue. He hugs her to his chest as he slashes the reins and frees the horses. The man jumps out and grabs the carriage with one hand as he pulls it to a stop. The citizens stare with wide eyes, and even Aristine feels shocked. She always knew her husband was strong, but never knew he could stop a full carriage with just one hand. This man must be a monster. Tarkan is worried about her, but Aristine says she is fine. The soldiers rush to help the royal couple, ignoring the helpless coachman waving his hand around. Aristine isn't relieved because, even though they escaped without injuries, they are still in big trouble. The royal carriage is ruined, and even the horses have run away. Right now, they have no choice but to cancel the wedding parade. Aristine is unwilling and thinks that since she is Tarkan's wife, it is her duty to strengthen his political standing by making sure this wedding is successful. She urges him to find another carriage, but the man refuses. He says she almost lost her life, so the wedding parade shouldn't matter. Our heroine points to the murmuring crowd, reminding him that their marriage isn't an ordinary wedding. The parade symbolizes the life of the married couple, and if it is ruined, the people will take it as a bad omen. They will claim that the peace treaty between the two countries wouldn't last. The queen and her team will also use this chance to attack the prince and spread fake rumors about him. Aristine doesn't want him to be hurt, so she begs Tarkan to find a new carriage. The prince refuses and tells her there won't be a new one. He has already guessed the queen's evil plan and knows that even though they request another carriage, she is going to refuse. The queen will claim that the other carriages are all old and shabby. She will delay their time until the emperor finally steps in. But even then, the royal couple will only receive an old and ugly carriage. The queen wants them to be disgraced in front of all the citizens and will delay their parade until the people lose interest. And right now, her plan seems to be working. The people guess that the parade will be cancelled and feel disappointed. Some even call their accident a bad omen. Aristine can hear them, and she almost cries as she begs the duke to find another carriage. She is willing to wait for hours until the carriage arrives, just so the people can be happy. Our heroine knows they have been waiting for this moment and wants their dreams to be fulfilled. She looks like a sad bunny as she begs the prince, but Tarkan still refuses her request. Aristine is furious and slaps his chest, but the man suddenly whistles. A giant beast appears, scaring the men who have been mocking the prince. They call it a monster, but Aristine can tell it is just a large horse. The animal is bigger than other horses and is even wearing a scary horn mask. The princess immediately guesses that it is Tarkan's warhorse and feels excited. The Ilagoans treasure their horses just like their swords, so this horse will be perfect for the parade. Her excitement vanishes as she remembers that she can't ride a horse. The prince suddenly laughs and grabs her as he jumps onto his horse. The girl scolds him for teasing her, while he watches with a bright smile. The people immediately regain their excitement and offer to clear the way for the couple. A child sitting on her father's head even calls them the Prince Charming and his fairy princess. The next day arrives, and the newspapers are filled with headlines about the couple's marriage. An article praises Tarkan's parade with his warhorse, while another fawns over their love story and writes about the couple's kiss. The journalist even promises to frame the picture. The queen almost dies from anger when she reads this news. She rips the papers apart, cursing the annoying Tarkan. She had thought of ways to prevent their wedding parade and even created the perfect excuse. But her plans were all in vain, and she only ended up upsetting the king. The man scolded her for making mistakes and even threatened to take away her royal power. The queen angrily smashes everything in her room, causing her personal maid to panic. Tarkan is popular with the public, and the king has lost his confidence in her. Duke Scala says the nobles are also switching sides and now believe that the first prince was only popular because Tarkan wasn't interested in the throne. The queen curses the nobles, saying that they used to follow her around like dogs. Now they even dare to compare her son to Tarkan. She realizes that the prince has changed and blames it all on the Sylvanas princess. She thinks that everything is Aristine's fault. Just then, Yanika rushes in with a panicked look, clutching a newspaper. She urges her mother to take a look, but the duke refuses, thinking it is about the prince's marriage. Yanika, with a teary face, announces that it is a new article. It turns out our royal couple might have just broken their bed on their wedding night. The queen and her father have stunned looks on their faces as they wonder what the heck is going on. To understand the full story, we will go back to the night of the wedding parade. The maids are helping Aristine to bathe, preparing her for her wedding night. Meanwhile, our heroine is dozing off in the tub and is just desperate for her soft bed. The maids urge her not to fall asleep, reminding the princess that it is her wedding night. They approach Aristine with their evil claws, scrubbing and rubbing her all over in preparation for the ultimate event. In the end, the girl comes out sparkling and glowing and looks just like a boiled egg. The naughty maids aren't done and present the secret weapon they have prepared for their mistress. It turns out to be a black lacy nightdress. Aristine stares at it in awe, while the giggling maids reveal that it was Tarkan's choice. Unable to pick an outfit, they had shown the prince and his gaze had lingered on this dress for an extra 0.3 seconds. They laugh like maniacs, certain that the princess will steal Tarkan's heart within minutes. Aristine is touched by the maids' efforts because they really are professional perverts. She tosses the dress away and orders them to find a comfortable nightgown. They scream in pain, but she warns them not to focus on their perverted desires. Meanwhile, Tarkan is taking a stroll while thinking about his wedding night. The prince is filled with complicated emotions. He still can't forget the 3 bandits' maids who barged into his office with those ridiculous lingeries. They might have distracted his mind, but he vows not to become intimate with a woman he doesn't love. Tarkan knows his mind has been affected by his strange new bride, and all he can think about is her gorgeous face in that wedding dress. He thought he had already given his heart to someone else, but whenever he is with Aristine, he can't control his emotions. He thinks about his little lover who looks really similar to our heroine's scheming sister. Coincidence? I don't think so. Tarkan is lost in thoughts when he suddenly hears Aristine's voice behind him. The princess wants them to head over to the couple's bedroom together. His heart immediately races as he imagines her wearing that lacy, steamy nightdress. He finally turns around, but the girl only has on a normal outfit. Tarkan stares at her gorgeous face, feeling relieved that she isn't wearing that lingerie. Aristine notices his stunned look and calls him a pervert. She isn't wrong because even the normal outfit that she is wearing and her cute little face is enough to tempt the Alugo prince. He covers his face, thinking that this is more dangerous than that lingerie. The two finally arrive at the door of the couple's bedroom, but it is covered in elaborate decorations. They scold the servants for going too far and finally step into the room. Aristine and Tarkan are almost blinded by the dazzling room. Everywhere seems to be glowing and sparkling, and the room is covered in luxurious decorations. Aristine is amazed, while the prince is a bit worried. He glances at the elaborate bed covered in decorations and can almost feel his servant's excitement. He panics when he notices the tiny bed, which barely takes up any space. Tarkan is still worried when he suddenly sees his wife charging at the bed like a demon. Aristine flings her slippers off in midair and sinks into the soft heaven. She moans in satisfaction as she feels the comfy mattress beneath her. The princess says a prayer of thanks to her maids and even vows to hire them for her next business. But her happiness vanishes when she realizes how small the bed is. There is no way it can contain another person. Our heroine glares at the frightened Tarkan with an evil gaze. She declares that the bed is hers and orders the prince to sleep on the floor. Aristine explains that she had chosen this extra soft bed before the marriage, and since Tarkan didn't choose a bed, he has to sleep on the floor. The prince is frustrated as he recalls her misleading words. He thought the girl had dirty thoughts, but she really just wanted to sleep on a soft bed. He asks the princess, but she insists that he has to sleep on the floor. Tarkan soon realizes that Aristine really doesn't care about him. He feels disappointed because he seems to be expecting something else. He is really the only one who is worried about the wedding night. Aristine also feels ashamed because she just asked the master of the house to sleep on the floor. Still, she refuses to get up, causing Tarkan to ask if she really likes the bed. Aristine says she does because this was her only desire when she was locked up in the tower. Our heroine had always wanted to have a warm shower, wear comfy clothes, and sleep in a soft bed. The prince, realizing that his wife wouldn't give up, decides to use the pity card. He sits on the bed with a sad face and complains that wives shouldn't send their husbands away on their wedding night. Aristine sees his sad and lonely back and feels a bit guilty. She finally gives in and offers her hand to the prince, inviting him to share a bed with her. She promises not to do anything else than hold his hands. Tarkan stares at the girl's smiling face, but right now she looks like a cunning fox. She urges him to join her on the bed and promises not to touch him inappropriately. The prince is frustrated and wonders who is teaching his wife those dirty words. But our heroine can get even nastier. She directly asks the man if he wants to sleep with her. Tarkan panics and immediately denies. Aristine says she also doesn't like him and urges the prince not to worry. She knows he might need an heir, but she isn't ready for that. The girl thinks she can make Tarkan the king even without an heir. Of course, she is also going to use her secret weapon, the Emperor's Eye. Our heroine feels proud of herself for helping the prince protect his innocence. She even teases him by mentioning his feelings for his little lover. Aristine can tell that the prince has another woman in his heart. Tarkan is surprised and thinks about his mystery crush. He wonders how Aristine found out about his hidden feelings. The girl assumes he is talking about Diona and says it was too obvious. After all, the Ilugo beauty had bragged about their relationship. Our male lead tries to explain himself, until he remembers that Aristine has no interest in their marriage. From the beginning, she has always been in control, which upsets the prince. He admits that the girl is his lover, hoping that Aristine might show some reaction. Unfortunately, our heroine is very happy and can't hide the huge smile on her face. She has found another blackmail material on the prince. She tells Tarkan that she has no interest in being his queen and even says the man can pay her off if he wants his lover to take the role. Aristine can hear the sound of money and almost opens a mistress-to-wife business. She even offers to give the role up for a lower price. The prince is filled with anger as he glares at this greedy woman. He promises to remember her words, then turns his back on her with a frown. Our poor girl feels bad, wondering if she said something wrong. The two lay in silence until Aristine says they have to prove that they slept together. She suggests that they leave some bloodstains on the sheet. Tarkan replies that the Ilagoans don't think virginity is important. He points out that a lot of brides don't bleed during their first time. Aristine is impressed by the Ilagoan mindset and compares them to her trashy Sylvanians. Still, she is concerned about Tarkan's public image and knows that showing a display of love will boost his political standing. The princess thinks of another crazy idea and asks Tarkan if he has broken a bed while making love. The prince jumps up and glares at Aristine, wondering what weird things she is always thinking about. The girl misunderstands and thinks he is upset because he has never broken a bed. Meanwhile, our innocent prince has never touched a woman. He is about to say that, but Aristine interrupts him. She feels disappointed because she thought that with his strong muscles he would have broken a lot of beds. She pats his shoulder, urging him not to feel hurt by his weakness. Our male lead is about to go crazy as he glares at this annoying woman. Aristine thinks his ego has been crushed, so she tries to comfort him again. The prince is filled with anger and looks like a demon king that is about to end her life. Aristine, convinced that she has hurt his pride, tries to think of a way to make him happy. She recalls some terrible advice from the Emperor's Eye and decides to drown the prince in fake compliments. She says he can always build his strength and even offers to buy him some stamina-boosting food when she is rich. Tarkan is frustrated by this little princess and orders her to stop talking. The two lie in bed in silence, but the prince still feels unwilling. He resumes the conversation, saying he can break a bed if he wants to, but Aristine only smiles. She clearly doesn't believe him. The princess continues her fake praise, but anyone can tell that she is just patronizing the prince. The man glares at her in frustration and decides to show off his strength. He flips on top of Aristine, but instead of frightening the girl, his heart starts racing. Our heroine notices his strange behavior and tries to push him away. Unfortunately, her lucky fingers end up touching his strong chest. The girl is enjoying the view when Tarkan suddenly slams his fist on the bed frame. Immediately, there is a loud crack, and we can almost feel the maid's pain. The room is filled with chaos, and when Aristine finally recovers, she realizes that her husband has just broken the bed. Aristine didn't expect Tarkan to really destroy the poor bed. She panics as she realizes that she has nowhere to sleep now. The prince says with a lot of confidence that she asked him to break the bed burr. Aristine points out that he could have done it later. He was also supposed to break the bed while getting intimate. Tarkan's pride is hurt and he threatens to show off his bed skills. Aristine isn't afraid and even dares the man to reveal his true strength. Unfortunately, nothing happens, and Aristine complains about her precious soft bed. The prince feels a bit guilty, so he grabs the mattress and drags it over. Since it isn't broken, he urges the girl to sleep on it. The princess asks where he is going to sleep, and the man says he can stay on the floor. Aristine stares at his pitiful back and feels a bit guilty. She promises not to touch him and offers her hand to him, suggesting that they share the bed. Tarkan holds his little wife's hand and finally asks the question he has been thinking about. Where did Aristine learn those ridiculous lines? The innocent girl says that couples would say something like this during their wedding night. Our male lead is amused and laughs at the strange woman. The two hold hands as they lie on the bed, and Aristine even leans her head against Tarkan's warm chest. Our heroine has never shared a bed with anyone and feels excited. She leans against Tarkan's warm chest and soon falls into a deep sleep. Aristine is having a pleasant dream. She is taking a stroll through a garden when she suddenly notices a tree full of white bread. The breads beg the princess to taste them, and she is immediately excited. Just then, she sees a pitiful abandoned bread lying on the floor and thinks it looks like something from a fairy tale. She grabs the abandoned bread and begins to knead its soft body. The poor bread protests, but Aristine is addicted to the feeling. She refuses to withdraw her devilish claws and even begins to drool over its smell. Little bread tries to run away, but the princess chases after it. She ignores its screams of terror and takes a big bite. The next moment, we hear a loud noise as Aristine is tossed to the edge of the bed. She is a bit confused, but thinks that everything must be a dream. The princess stretches in happiness and finally notices Tarkan. She greets the man with a smile, but the prince only flinches and moves away. Aristine is confused until she sees the warrior's face. Tarkan looks like a little rabbit hiding from a big bad wolf. He glares at Aristine with resentment, and we see some suspicious teeth marks on his smooth chest. Tarkan covers his chest, staring at Aristine with accusing eyes. The princess tries to touch him, but he quickly runs away and glares at her. He accuses her of forgetting her promise, but Aristine thinks he is upset because she didn't hold his hands. Tarkan yells at her, but she truly has forgotten everything. He feels ashamed, but finally reveals that she has been touching his chest all night. Aristine laughs at first and doesn't believe him, until she sees the marks on his chest. The princess is shocked and screams at the sight. Tarkan, full of disappointment, says he can't trust anyone who promises not to make a move. Aristine tries to explain herself, even telling him about her dream. The prince refuses to believe her, so she has to apologize 1,000 times. The royal palace is filled with rumors about the new couple. Tarkan didn't show up for the morning assembly, and everyone thinks it was because of their passionate night. The newspapers are all filled with reports about their broken bed. The people think that Aristine took her bath alone to hide the evidence of their wild night. Meanwhile, our heroine is just receiving another vision. She steps out wearing a pretty black dress and is welcomed with a table of food. Her maids force her into the seat, encouraging her to eat more so she can match the prince's wild stamina. The princess pretends to be deaf as they complain about Tarkan, wondering how he could go wild on such a delicate princess. He even broke their new bed. The girls pretend to be unhappy, but they can't hide the smug smiles on their faces. Aristine decides not to explain so everyone could believe that they are a loving couple. She worries about Diona, afraid the girl might think she stole the prince's innocence. But when she tastes the delicious food, her worries fade away. Aristine decides that she is just a third wheel and the couple can solve their issues themselves. She is enjoying her breakfast when she suddenly has a strange feeling. The maids are watching her with wide eyes, expecting a review of her wedding night. Aristine recalls the feeling of that soft bread and becomes obsessed again. She says the prince was hot and firm and even stares at her hand with a dazed look. The naughty maids imagine 10 pages of wild passion and nearly lose their souls. Just as everyone is having fun, Brody suddenly barges in with an angry look. She curses Aristine for fooling around in bed while their Sylvanian knights are facing chaos. Before she can even explain the details, the Alugo maids order her to shut up. The girl scolds Brody for barging in, while another maid sneaks behind her to lock the doors. Brody calls herself a noble and yells at the girls for daring to scold her. The maids remind her that Aristine is no longer a guest but the mistress of this palace. Since she is now their lady, they can finally teach her disobedient ladies-in-waiting a lesson. They all surround Brody, ready to teach her how to serve her master. The girl trembles in fear until the princess orders the maids to stop. The Alugo servants suddenly regain their cheerful faces, frightening the noble lady. Aristine watches her with a smile, urging the girl to explain what happened to the Sylvanian knights. Brody clenches her fist as she realizes that the maids have changed and the princess has won their favor. Still, she complains that the Alugo knights are savage monsters and accuses them of harming the Sylvanian guards. Aristine wonders how the girl could be so arrogant and shows no interest for the Sylvanians. Brody insists that she has to help them scold the Alugoans. Aristine isn't interested, but still listens to Brody's story. According to custom, during the couple's wedding night, the Alugo and Sylvanus knights are supposed to guard their wedding chamber. But the Alugoans had suddenly attacked their rivals. The loyal Sylvanians, who treasured the marriage alliance, refused to fight back and ended up being assaulted. Of course, Aristine doesn't believe this fake story. She is upset because her efforts to act as a loving couple with Tarkan might be ruined by the knights' quarrel. If the Sylvanians claim that the fight was one-sided, it could even cause a political issue. Tarkin also receives a report about the assault. He already knew that a fight would occur between the two knights, but never thought that his loyal general, who always preached peace, would also be involved. He glances at Durante, asking for an explanation. Durante, the holy sword of protection, has never cared about what other people said or did. He is only focused on his master and interested in things that could bring benefit to Tarkin. And yet, this cold, emotionless man had joined in a childish fight. The warrior apologizes for troubling his boss and ruining his political standing. Tarkin knows his guard has never been interested in other people and isn't worried about his politics. He wants to know why Durante joined the fight. The warrior shows no remorse and claims that it was the right thing to do. The three wings stand like disobedient children as they explain that happened. Back at the couple's wedding night, the Sylvanas and Ilugo knights were supposed to guard the couple's chambers. Instead, the Sylvanians kept complaining and even ran to the knights' waiting room to play some cards. The ugly knight who tried to seduce Aristine is thinking about the princess's rejection. He feels upset and nearly breaks the glass he is holding. Just then, he hears some men praising the princess's beauty. The other knights even say they should have assaulted the princess during their journey. The men laugh as the disgusting captain also joins their conversation. He claims that Aristine has no dignity, so she is fit to be the barbarian's bride. He has a disgusting grin on his face as he imagines the wild fun the couple must be having. He even suggests that the prince might let them join the fun. Unfortunately, those words are heard by the Ilugo knights. The Sylvanians have no idea that they have been caught, and the arrogant captain continues to insult the princess. He even says she would have a better time if he was the one spending the night with her. Durante is furious and calls the guard crazy. He noticed that the Sylvanians weren't on guard and came to figure out what was going on. Instead, he caught the captain insulting a royal family member, an act that could put him in prison. The warrior is sure the captain's subordinates would scold him, but instead, he hears the men laughing and supporting the scumbag. They even believe that Aristine must be full of regret after rejecting his offer. The arrogant captain boldly declares that such a vulgar woman isn't worthy of him. Durante is furious, but before he can make a move, Mukali rushes in and gives the man a huge blow. The Sylvanians are frightened as they finally realize that the Ilugo knights have heard their words. The scumbag spits out a few teeth, but Mukali isn't satisfied. He glares at the other Sylvanian knights and proceeds to give them a good beating. The other knights stare at the giant bear beating up their teammates and realize that they are doomed. They overhear Zack scolding the general for making a ruckus and think that they have found their savior. The Sylvanian threatens to file a complaint and orders the Ilugo guard to stop his friend. Instead, Zack responds by smacking the man's head with his heavy book. He looks like a handsome scholar as he warns the Sylvanians to be quiet. Such a refined fighter. The other knights nearly cry as they scream about attempted murder. Mukali scolds Zack, who claims that his hand moved without thinking. He always has the urge to beat up idiots. Durante has a helpless look on his face as even the peaceful Zack joins the fight. He has no choice but to stop them and clean up their mess. The guard is done explaining the story, but the prince still looks upset. He can't believe his men didn't teach the disgusting captain a lesson. Durante suddenly smiles and reminds Tarkin he is his holy sword. The warrior made sure he fixed everything perfectly. As for how he did that, let's just say a few eggs were broken. Aristine is also listening to this gory story while eating an egg. The sound of the breaking egg gives Brody some serious trauma. Our heroine has no idea why the girl looks so frightened, but the maid calls her heartless for still daring to eat. And it just had to be eggs. Aristine wants to know more about the knight's injuries, but Brody can't explain that the injuries aren't simple. She can't describe such a brutal and savage event. Aristine finally breaks her boiled egg, and the sound reminds Brody of the Sylvanian knights. Right now, the men are unable to have children. The Sylvanian knights are confused when they wake up, so the doctor explains that they are in the ICU. The men have bigger problems because they can't feel anything around their crotch. The doctor looks a little ashamed, but finally reveals that the men can't have children. They won't be able to even sleep around. The Sylvanas knights begin to cry as they realize that they are now impotent. Somehow, they have all become eunuchs. What a pleasant surprise. Just then, a maid slips inside and announces the princess's arrival. Aristine steps in with a gorgeous smile, ready to sympathize with her loyal knights. The men look at Aristine with sparkly eyes and complain about the barbaric Ilugoans. Our heroine is stunned to see them welcoming her visit. She thought they would lie around in bed, pretending to be too injured to get up. But right now, they look really touched to see her. She smiles and mocks them, saying she came to see her injured knights. But instead of being offended, the men actually begin to cry in happiness. Aristine is convinced that the men are dumb because how can she comfort them after all the evil things they did to her? She really can't understand their low intelligence. The captain cries as he complains that the brutal and savage Ilugoans had attacked them. Aristine pretends to be shocked, reminding the men that they had boasted about defeating the Ilugoans if they had the chance. She says they are great knights, so it should be impossible for the barbaric Ilugoans to beat them up like helpless children. The captain turns red in shame and glares at the princess. Aristine points out that the Ilugo knights wouldn't attack the Sylvians except they were insulting a princess who married into the Ilugo royal family. She glares at the captain, asking him to explain what happened. The guard trembles in fear because insulting the royal family is a serious crime. They had treated the princess like trash because her father had given them full authority to ruin her. Plus, the men thought it was fun and bonded over those nasty jokes. Now, the captain realizes that they might have a traitor in their midst. He is afraid that one of his men might already have confessed to the princess. If the truth is exposed, his life as a knight will be ruined even if he returns to Sylvanas. The captain hurriedly says they never insulted the princess and the Ilagoans didn't attack them. He even claims that the injuries were from hunting monsters. Aristine's maid is impressed by her mistress's skills. With just one question, she forced the captain to deny the incident and also take the blame. Our heroine also finds the man pathetic and never knew he would give up so easily. She had seen everything through the Emperor's eye and was ready to repeat all the nasty things they said word for word. She finds it a pity and announces that the men will be hospitalized for 2 months. The princess brings out a document and offers to write a letter explaining their injury. That way, they can receive an honorable reception when they return. The men are stunned but have no idea the princess is just trying to get rid of them. They pretend to be upset but quickly sign the papers. Aristine sees that the Sylvanian knights have agreed to return without mentioning the Ilugoan's assault. She laughs like a baby because she has removed another threat for Tarkan. Our heroine is about to leave, when she suddenly remembers the gifts she prepared for the men. The princess urges her maids to bring it over. The captain is pleased at first, until he realizes that the gift is a plate of boiled egg. Our heroine breaks the egg and almost causes the man to faint. She grins and says eggs are good for recovery. The captain panics because the egg reminds him of his new condition. He can't control his tears and even screams in agony. Aristine is about to leave with a happy smile when the man suddenly accuses her of mocking them. He vows to teach her a lesson and suddenly attacks the princess. The warrior runs towards Aristine, determined to teach this scheming woman a lesson. But before he can attack, he notices a figure hiding behind the door. The guard looks closer and it turns out to be a furious Tarkan. The captain trembles in fear and immediately changes direction. Instead of attacking the princess, he suddenly kneels and begins to eat the boiled egg. He even cries as he shouts about his love for eggs. Aristine is confused because she could tell the man was about to hit her. But right now, he looks like a crazy warrior who is glad to receive the imperial egg of favor. The princess glares at him, until he finally confesses that someone is hiding behind the door. She rushes outside, but she doesn't see anyone. Our female lead has no idea that the mighty warlord is now hiding behind a bush like a sneaky thief. Tarkan isn't the only one hiding. The 3 wings are also forced to hang from a tree so the princess wouldn't see them. Poor Zack, who is being carried like a little sack, praises Aristine's swift mind. Our heroine glances around until she finally spots Tarkan approaching. The man claims he just arrived and his guards call him a liar. The princess thinks he came to check on the assault case and says she has solved everything. She grabs his hand and drags him away, promising to explain all the details. Behind them, the 3 wings and the Ilugo maids are all shocked. Zack praises the lovebirds while Durante pulls out a binocular from nowhere. They all agree that the couple are a perfect match. Zack was afraid that the delicate princess would be upset at their violent methods. But after seeing the way she handled those knights, he finds her even more amazing. Mukali is still annoyed at the Sylvanians for insulting the little princess and wishes he could beat them up even more. The scholar guard is surprised because Mukali always said he hates the princess. The general is nervous and declares that he still dislikes her. He is only upset at the guards for going too far. Durante points out that the men must believe she is their puppet. Mukali is confused, so Zack explains that the Sylvanas emperor never treated Aristine like his daughter. He even locked her up under the claim that she had health issues. The Sylvanas nobles also said the princess was insane, but after seeing her, the Ilagoans realized that it was just a lie. He guesses that the emperor's harsh behavior is because of the special power of the Sylvanian royal blood. The Sylvanian royal family are born with the golden blood and special powers that are stronger than magic. The powers always manifest before they turn 5, and if it doesn't, the royal child is declared to have no magic. Even Prince Raunel, Aristine's older brother, has one of those special powers. Zack reveals that there is a superior power that only appears to emperors, or those born with silver hair and purple eyes. According to legend, the first emperor of Sylvanas also had this power. Mukali is curious about this magic, but Zack has no idea what it is. He heard that the emperor confined Aristine when she was 5, and believes it was because she had no powers. The general explodes, scolding the scumbag emperor, while the scholar watches the princess with a smile. He thinks Aristine is special because others might have drowned in self-pity, but Aristine came out and blossomed like a flower. Even Tarkan is stunned by her gorgeous ability. The princess happily explains the details and shows off the document she prepared. She feels proud because she saved Tarkan from a political conflict and asks for some praise. The prince finally compliments her ability and Aristine grins like a cat. Just then, Tarkan notices another paper hidden behind the agreement and decides takes a look. Aristine tries to stop him, but it is too late. She had added a secret document which states that the Sylvanas warriors would pay 10,000 gold coins for this letter. With every good word she adds, they will pay another 1,000 gold coins. Tarkan's eyes go wide at his greedy wife who will take every chance to squeeze out some money. Our heroine puts on an innocent look as she says she needs money for her business. The prince wonders why she is obsessed with starting a business and declares that he is rich. Aristine glares at the show-off, and even though she says she is happy for him, we can see the flames of anger behind her. Tarkan explains that the money belongs to both of them, so he can't understand why she needs to start a business. Aristine says she needs her own money and once again tries to trick Durante into becoming her partner. The prince is about to reply when he suddenly hears a strange sound from behind the bush. Lady Diona is here to look for Tarkan, and she is also holding a document. Aristine can already guess why Diona is here. Seeing the paper in the girl's hands, she knows the Alugo beauty must have read the rumors. Every newspaper is talking about their marriage and praising the prince for saving her after the accident. Their excitement increased when they discovered that the couple broke their wedding bed. Aristine guesses that Tarkan's little lover must be upset. She feels guilty for bringing up the bed-breaking idea and decides to give the two some space to talk. Aristine is about to excuse herself, but before she can speak, Diona interrupts and says she needs to steal Tarkan away. She is clearly asking the princess to leave. The Sylvanus princess notices that the girl cut her off on purpose. She had wanted to give the couple some space, but now she feels upset. Just then, the warlord grabs his wife's hand and tells Diona that they are having a conversation. The Alugo beauty is stunned and grits her teeth in anger. She apologizes to Aristine, who is totally confused by the cold atmosphere. She wonders why the girl is apologizing to her instead of Tarkan. Just then, the prince calls Diona's name. The girl grins, thinking she has gotten his attention. Instead, our male lead warns her to address his wife properly. The Alugo beauty trembles in shock and calls Aristine by her title. Our heroine glances at the two, certain they must have had a fight. She doesn't want to be a third wheel, so she slaps the prince's hand, urging him to let her go. Aristine says Diona can stay with the prince, but Tarkan suddenly squeezes her hand. She finally gives up on leaving and tells the girl to join them. The princess decides to ignore the two lovers and focuses on devouring her dessert. She is amazed by the delicious taste and urges Diona to take a bite. Aristine calls their dessert chef the best in the palace, causing the Alugo beauty to smirk. She watches Aristine in disdain, thinking that a country bumpkin like her can't understand true luxury. The dessert in Tarkan's palace can't compare with the famous pastry shops. But when Diona takes a bite and her confidence immediately vanishes, the girl is shocked by the taste and realizes that Tarkan's desserts have improved. She knows the warlord doesn't like sweet food, so he must have hired a new pastry chef just for the princess. Aristine has no idea that the Alugo beauty is cursing her. She urges the girl to try another dessert until she notices the weird look on her face. Diona is trembling in anger, but Aristine misunderstands the look. She finds it familiar and finally remembers that Diona had this same look on her face when she ran out of her bridal room. Our heroine feels bad and, after apologizing, tells the girl not to force herself to eat. Diona is confused by the princess's sudden apology and thinks Aristine is trying to frame her. The princess will act heartbroken when she rejects the dessert and make her look like a bad person in front of Tarkan. Diona decides to ruin Aristine's plan. She grabs the dessert and pretends to be touched by the princess's kindness. She is secretly laughing at Aristine but pretends to cry as she begs for the princess's forgiveness. Unfortunately, our heroine has a low EQ and doesn't even notice the girl's tricks. She looks embarrassed as she glances at Tarkan and finally moves closer to whisper in Diona's ears. She boldly says she knows about the girl's bowel problems. The Alugo beauty is shocked while our male lead, who can hear everything, almost chokes on his tea. Still, our heroine boldly repeats her statement. She even starts lecturing Diona, warning her not to eat these kinds of food. The mistress is shocked and watches as Aristine moves all the pastries away. Our female lead feels bad for taking all the delicious food away since she was the one who asked the girl to taste them. She shows her concern for the beauty, asking if she was okay after running out of her bridal room during their wedding. Diona recalls that she lied about using the bathroom and finally realizes that the princess is saying she has a constipation problem. Diona is stunned when the princess suggests that she might have a constipation problem. She glares at Aristine, wondering how the girl could embarrass her in front of her crush. Tarkan glances at her and she turns red in shame. Diona is supposed to be the perfect girl and the idol of all the women in Ilugo. Yet, the princess has just ruined her image. She rushes to grab the food, desperate to prove that she has no bowel issues. Instead, our heroine snatches the food away and insists on helping the beauty. She tells the girl not to be embarrassed and urges her to love herself. The confused Diona tries to explain, but instead makes things worse. She says she poops often, and now our heroine is convinced that she has an irritable bowel. The Ilugo beauty slams the table and yells at Aristine. She questions how she can lead as the princess when she keeps misunderstanding every word. She sees Tarkan staring at her, and she can't believe that she just yelled in front of her crush. Diona thinks about how her image will be ruined, and she might even be called the poop lady. The beauty can't control her emotions and runs away crying. The couple are both shocked by her weird behavior, and Aristine is convinced that Diona's constipation is back. She tells Tarkan to be more understanding and warns him not to expose today's incident. Aristine expects the prince to chase after the girl, but Tarkan remains seated. She is confused and wonders why he isn't rushing to comfort his girlfriend. She says Diona might be offended, causing the prince to become silent. Our heroine is convinced that the couples had a fight and expects the prince to now go after the beauty. Instead, the man drops his cup and says he might send the girl some digestive medicine since his wife is so worried. Aristine realizes that the prince heard their secret conversation and says a silent apology to Diona. Meanwhile, Mukali is thinking about the little princess. He can't believe that such a cute girl was forced to face so much suffering. He is busy cursing the Sylvanian knights when he notices Diona running away. The general calls the girl's name and she immediately rushes into his arms. She complains about the princess, claiming that Aristine embarrassed her in front of Tarkan. She recalls our heroine's words and vows never to forgive the girl. Diona expects Mukali to support her, but the general says she might have misunderstood the princess. He points out that Aristine is from a different culture, so she might not have planned to offend Diona. The Iligo beauty can't believe that her loyal supporter is turning against her. She glares at him and the man rushes to explain that he doesn't like the princess. He says Tarkan cares for Diona, so since he didn't defend her, then Aristine didn't say anything bad to hurt her feelings. He urges Diona to forget about the issues since she has a big heart. He says the prince will always support her because she is Chantra's sister. The Iligo beauty smiles at Mukali and thanks him, but her inner thoughts are very different. She curses the man for being dumb and says she would still be special even if she wasn't Chantra's sister. She tells the general that she was too emotional but secretly wants him to rush to Aristine's side and stab her to death. Diona thinks Mukali is useless but still smiles and pretends to like him. The girl is unwilling to let Aristine go and reminds the general about the cheating incident. She pretends to have misunderstood the princess and urges Mukali to stop his investigation. The general, stirred up by her words, declares that Aristine still isn't a good person. He tells Diona not to worry and vows to expose the cheating princess. If she is really having a secret affair, he promises to end her life with his own sword. Diona feels smug and grins, telling the general to make her proud. Aristine has no idea that she is now a cheater. She listens to the maids who insist that the second wedding night is also important. They have obtained secret information from their spies who confirm that the prince is having a perfumed bath. They are eager to prepare Aristine for the special night ahead and plan to give her an 18-course washing. Our heroine refuses their suggestion and tries to run away from the crazy maids. They refuse to let her go, crying that the prince is also having a special bath. Aristine knows the maids' plans, but she and Tarkan aren't a real couple. She explains that she doesn't need any perfume and heads into the bathroom. Unfortunately, the girls misunderstand and think that she only needs her lover's perfume. They all laugh like crazy demons, praising their mistress's seductive skills. Aristine hears their words and is amazed by their ability to misunderstand. Well, let's just say they learnt from their master. The princess heads over to the sink, hoping that she will have another useful vision just like the one about the Sylvanian knights. Lately, our heroine has been seeing weird things like birds flying in the sky or animals living under the ground. She almost thought she was in a documentary. She even saw Yanika crying after her pastry chef was stolen. Aristine gives up when the water remains still. Instead, she thinks about Tarkan taking a perfumed bath. The girl always thought he was a basic man, but after seeing his carefree behavior with Diona, concludes that he is a player. Still, she finds him interesting. The prince might be a pervert, but he still has a dignified side. She remembers him clinging to her hands and laughs at his cute behavior. Just then, the water ripples as a vision begins. A group of smiths surround another man and accuse him of ruining the reputation of the Catalaman smithy. Aristine eagerly watches and is surprised to see the man she has been searching for. Litrin begs the men to forgive him and says they are all friends. The rebel leader is pleased because, even though the man is a giant, he is too weak and refuses to fight back. He orders the other smiths to hold Litrin down and vows to teach him a lesson. The smith is forced to his knees and the leader finally reveals why he is upset. He is just jealous that their leader took the dumb Litrin to the royal palace. He is afraid the boy will become the master's favorite pupil. The evil leader, determined to force him out of the smithy, raises his dagger and cuts off his thumb. Aristine watches the boy cry out in pain and feels upset. She always thought he lost his thumb in an accident, but finally realizes that it was a deliberate attack. Our heroine is receiving a massage from her maids, but is still thinking about Litrin. She recalls the trees she saw during her vision and asks the maids when the flowers will wither. The maid says it might take 2 weeks, and the princess realizes that time is running out. She has to save the smith and start her business before the week ends. She thinks about the poor Litrin and hopes her first employee can survive. The overprotective princess decides to find Mukali tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, Tarkan stares at his sparkling blue room and wonders when his servants will stop decorating their bedroom. The next day, Rosaline is taking a walk when she hears the Sylvanas knights talking to the ladies-in-waiting. Brody can't accept the men's departure and even tries to threaten them with the king's reaction. The knights feel smug because they have a letter. They tell the noble ladies to carry out the king's request alone. Rosaline ignores the arguing Sylvanians and heads back to the princess's room. She thinks things are finally getting interesting. The girl rushes to see Aristine, telling her about the maid's reaction. She mocks Brody for crying and trying to return home, and even reveals that the girl was shunned by society. Our heroine, who is about to go out, has no interest in Rosaline's story. She interrupts the girl, asking why she came over. Rosaline doesn't know why the princess suddenly looks upset and explains that she was trying to have a pleasant chat with Aristine. She secretly thinks to herself that this is the best way to become friends. Unfortunately, our heroine doesn't need a friend. She sighs and reminds the girl that she only wants a hunting dog. She grabs the maid's chin, reminding her what happens when a hunting dog stops working. Rosaline shivers in fear and apologizes to Aristine. The princess suddenly changes tone and happily declares that she also likes puppies. The Ilugo maid approaches with a basket, announcing that the princess's carriage is ready. Aristine is about to leave when she feels someone glaring at her. Rosaline quickly looks away, whispering to herself that she just wanted to be close with Aristine, just like the Ilugo maids. Our heroine sighs before she leaves because she can clearly hear everything. Aristine is heading to her playdate with Mukali. They arrive at his mansion, and the maid explains that his family has produced great generals for decades. Our heroine stares at the huge building and declares that Mukali is the ultimate young master. Meanwhile, the general's mansion is in chaos. Mukali is being harassed by his two maids who have completely different requests. One keeps worrying about his outfit while the other screams at him to get Aristine's autographs. The general can tell that they are excited, but he is about to die of worry from thinking about the princess's affair. The man is distracted and gives a chance to the little birds to attack him. The first maid produces a comb from nowhere and tries to style his hair, while the other nearly slaps his face with her autograph book. The maids are eager to see Aristine and hope she is as pretty and lovely as the rumors. Mukali sighs and suddenly becomes stern. He announces that he is a ruthless and merciless warrior, so he is different from the maids who adore small and delicate things. The poor ladies are heartbroken, while Mukali thinks that his investigation has to be swift and merciless. The man has just boasted that he doesn't like delicate things, but when he sees the princess approaching with her small baby face, he suddenly screams her nickname and rushes to her side. The maids are all shocked by his behavior, and even Aristine looks confused. The general freezes in shock as he realizes his mistake. Even in his thoughts, he calls the princess small and pretty. Just when we think Aristine will be upset, she gives the man a thumbs up, thanking him for breaking the Sylvanian knight's eggs. Poor Mukali nearly faints from the shock. Even the birds outside the general's mansion are stunned by those outrageous words. Mukali almost chokes and quickly explains that he wasn't the culprit. Aristine is surprised by man's sudden polite behavior, but when she asks, he says he has always been a gentleman. Behind him, his maids stare at the big liar with disdain. Mukali ignores their glares as he bows to Aristine, inviting the princess inside for some tea. The innocent Aristine believes his words and also offers a curtsy. She has a gorgeous smile on her face, which makes the general's heart race. Mukali tells her about his fight with the Sylvanians and boasts that he was the one who broke all their teeth. He has a proud look on his face, while the princess gives him another thumbs up. They head over to the parlor room, and she is immediately amazed by the delicious food. Aristine eagerly presents the scones she brought and boasts that their chef is the best in the palace. Mukali stares at the little desserts as he recalls the past. When he arrived from the battlefield, Zach had informed him about the prince's search for a pastry chef. The men assumed that Tarkan was going to change their battle rations, and when they heard that the best pastry chef belonged to Yanika, they immediately stole him away. They didn't know the prince's plan, but as his strongest supporters, they believed it was for a great cause. Mukali stares at the delicate girl, finally realizing that those chefs were hired for her. He is enjoying his pastries when the princess suddenly says she needs to find her mystery man. Mukali nearly ends his own life when he chokes on his food. The culprit is unaware and even suggests that they go searching for the man today, since she is outside the palace. She invites Mukali to join her, but urges him to keep it a secret. The general, thinking he would finally catch the cheater, agrees with a smile. Ilugo is known as the land of fire and iron. Therefore, the blacksmiths who could wield both fire and iron were treated like gods. They even received the same benefits as the royal families. But unlike the nobles, the blacksmiths all adored Tarkan, who was the strongest warrior. They gave the second prince the support that his mother's family could never provide. The Sylvanas princess finally arrives at Katalaman with Mukali. The smiths are all amazed to see them while the general watches with suspicious eyes, trying to find the secret lover. A man rushes out and welcomes the nobles in a panic. Aristine says she just wants to tour the most famous smithy in Ilugo, and the proud assistant happily invites her inside to take a look. The princess immediately notices a large display filled with amazing weapons. She is surprised to see some dates and names carved into the swords. The eldest smith arrives and explains that these are the most famous works done by their master blacksmiths. To have a weapon displayed on this wall, the smiths must create a weapon fit for a warrior like Tarkan. Aristine eagerly asks to see Litrin's weapon, but the old smith says the boy doesn't have a single amazing work. Bolatan, the owner, adored the boy, but Litrin turned out to be a failure. Aristine is confused because in the vision she had called the boy the best blacksmith in Ilugo. Yet, his colleagues announce him as a failure. She becomes alarmed as she wonders if his accident is supposed to awaken his potential. Just then, Mukali points to an empty spot and says Litrin's name is on the wall. He is really determined to find this cheater. The old smith finally recalls that Litrin had made an amazing dagger when he first arrived, which stunned the old masters. He is a bit surprised to find the weapon missing, and swears that he saw it yesterday. Aristine asks the master if the dagger is covered in jewels. The old man confirms her guess, and our heroine panics. That was the dagger used to cut off Litrin's thumb. Somewhere inside the smithy, a brutal scene is happening. Just like Aristine saw through her emperor's eye, the other smiths are about to cut off Litrin's thumb. The evil leader raises the dagger and the poor boy closes his eyes in defeat. Just then, Aristine arrives like an angel and commands the men to stop. She rushes in front of Litrin and shields him behind her back. She glares at the men, ordering them to release the dagger. The smith recognizes her as the royal princess and begins to panic. He hurriedly kneels and presents the weapon to Aristine. Our heroine grabs the dagger and with a cute smile offers it back to Litrin. The situation is under control as the old smith scolds the evil boys. Mukali drags the princess to a corner and scolds her reckless behavior. His heart nearly stopped when she ran out of the room, screaming about saving her employee. The stubborn girl had even rushed in front of a man holding a danger. The general says she could have hurt herself, but the princess declares that she isn't afraid because he is by her side. Mukali's heart races and he begins to feel proud again. Just then, the furious Botalin arrives and scolds the evil leader who turns out to be his own son. The boys apologize, but he orders them to remain in the detention room. The master apologizes to Aristine, ashamed that she witnessed such a disgraceful scene. Our heroine isn't interested in his apology and asks about Litrin. Botalin sighs as he reveals the boy's past. To be a successful blacksmith, the apprentice must have a great physical body and amazing strength. He must also have a sharp eye and a good head. Well, Litrin had all these abilities. The little boy was able to notice a mistake in his sword, causing the excited Botalin to choose him as his successor. The man adopted Litrin, but, afraid that the other masters might corrupt the boy, taught him personally. His biased attitude made even his own son upset, but they all recognized Litrin's amazing talent. The boy was truly extraordinary. Aristine can't understand how such a genius became a failure, and Botalin says that the boy became obsessed with making weird toys. He would spend hours at his desk and even stopped making real swords. The master had dragged him to the royal palace, hoping he could ignite his former spark. Instead, it just made the other smiths even more jealous. Botalin announces that he is giving up on Litrin, and our heroine looks at him in disdain. As an overprotective boss, she thinks the master was trying to control Litrin. He forced the boy to follow his will, destroyed his toys, and even accused him of wasting his talent. Botalin, the evil master, says Litrin has the basic skills so he should be able to make his own living. The smart princess guesses that he is abandoning Litrin because his presence will only make the other smiths more upset. She is determined to slap the old man's face and vows to reignite the boy's talents. But first, our heroine has to put on a show. She suddenly staggers, which causes the master to panic. The princess says she was frightened by today's incident and has never witnessed such a brutal scene. Botalin almost runs to find a towel, but the princess stops him and says she is more worried about Litrin. She asks to see him and even shivers like a delicate flower. Meanwhile, Mukali's eyes are about to pop out of his head. He stares at the fragile flower in front of him and compares her to the violent girl who praised him for ruining the knight's balls. The poor general almost loses all his brain cells. Litrin is alone in his room and playing with his little toys. They remind him of the delicate princess who protected him with her small frame. Litrin might be a giant, but he has always been weak and runs away from trouble. Even the sound of someone knocking on his door is enough to make him flinch. He rushes to the door but is stunned to see Aristine. Litrin immediately kneels and expresses his gratitude to the princess. He is filled with fear because he can't tell why the princess is here. Our heroine says he shouldn't be scared, but she totally doesn't notice the general pulling out his sword. She urges the smith to stand and even offers him her hand. The boy tries to refuse, but she says she will be embarrassed. The giant is touched by her kindness and almost cries. He grabs the princess's hand, causing Aristine to feel his strength. She can't imagine how damaged he would be if he had lost his thumb. She smiles at the boy and expresses her happiness at seeing him safe. Litrin, stunned by her smile, can feel his heart racing. He looks like a little boy in love, which frustrates Mukali. He yells at the boy to let Aristine go and scolds him for blushing. The smith apologizes, but the general shields Aristine. He is convinced that the boy is her secret lover. He watches the two converse with a dark aura, causing the poor blacksmith to tremble with fear. The ignorant princess doesn't notice the harsh atmosphere and focuses on the little toy Litrin is holding. The boy, feeling ashamed, quickly hides it behind his back. Unfortunately, he can't resist the princess's sparkling eyes and finally presents a cute little hamster. He thinks he is childish, but the lovers of cute things are totally amazed. They ask to see more, but when they open his drawer, Aristine and the general are shocked by the large amount of toys hidden inside. They are all the exact same size and seem to be made of metal. Litrin explains that he melted different kinds of materials together and formed a new kind of metal. He proudly shows off his work with a smile which makes Aristine impressed. She thinks about his master who abandoned this genius and feels smug. Botalin claimed the boy was wasting his talents, but Litrin was experimenting with different materials. The princess was afraid her intervention would change Litrin's destiny and ruin his future. But now she realizes that the boy is still a genius and his talent is exactly what she needs. She glances at the blacksmith but sees him talking to Mukali and explaining his process. The two rivals seem to have bonded over these little toys. Litrin almost cries as he says the general might seem scary, but he is actually a kind man. Mukali also thought the boy was just a pretty face, but he is actually a nice guy. He almost faints when he realizes that he is praising his enemy. He is supposed to be wary of this cheat. Just then, he notices the princess watching him with a proud gaze and immediately looks embarrassed. Aristine thanks the smith for showing them his work and praises his talent. Litrin says Catalaman is the best smithy, so if they call him a failure, he must really be useless. The princess interrupts his self-pity and points out that the smithy isn't good enough for his talent. She says he is a genius who has been making creative toys. Litrin is touched and really wants to know if the princess admires his talent. Aristine declares that he is the only talent she needs, so she urges the boy to follow her. She promises to make him the best blacksmith in the whole world. Our heroine returns home and jumps into bed like a dead fish. She thinks it might be because this is her first outing, but even though they only drank tea and chatted, she still feels exhausted. Just then, Tarkin approaches, joining her on the bed. He questions her about her outing, and she reveals that she went to snatch a blacksmith away. Tarkin doesn't believe any smith will be willing to leave the famous Catalaman, but Aristine says that one did. He even promised to be hers. The jealous warlord is about to lose his soul. He wants to shake Aristine and force her to explain that strange sentence, but he is afraid the princess might call him weird. He glares at the girl who is sleeping peacefully and tries to convince himself that he isn't interested in her or her little lover. But when Aristine mentions her future business, he immediately seizes this chance and calls Litrin a weird fellow. Our heroine looks confused as the prince complains about the blacksmith calling himself her property. She defends her new employee, warning Tarkin not to insult him. She also reveals that she was the one who wanted the boy to be hers. The prince is offended, but Aristine doesn't notice. She happily thinks about her new employee and vows to treat him well. She dismisses the annoying prince, pushing him away as she orders him to sleep. Our male lead pulls away, looking like a heartbroken and abandoned wife. The next second, he is determined to get his revenge, so he drags the blanket away from the peaceful Aristine. The poor girl is confused, but when she tries to scold Tarkin, she finds the man sulking like a big baby. She is frustrated by this precious lord who needs a lot of care. Aristine calls his name, and the man's ears immediately widen like an antenna. She smiles like a big bad wolf as she asks him to join her. She calls herself his older sister and promises not to touch his chest this time. Tarkin becomes furious as he recalls how he struggled to cover the marks. His bride apologizes, and after coaxing him for a long time, the jealous lord finally gets into bed. Aristine holds his hand and suggests singing him a lullaby. Tarkin complains that she is treating him like a child, but in the next second, grabs her hand and pouts like a sad baby. He says he is Aristine's first partner, so she should also take care of him. Our heroine laughs, amused by his cute behavior. The prince demands a response, but the girl is already half asleep. She urges him to work harder and immediately collapses into bed. Tarkin calls her sweet names, but the princess has turned into a sleeping beauty. The poor man is frustrated and for the rest of the night, thinks about her words. As a result, the next day, he goes on a rampage during his training. The prince stares at Mukali, who is training a soldier, and immediately notices the man's massive chest. Tarkin glances at his smaller chest and instantly becomes upset. He calls Mukali over with a dark face, asking for a private meeting. Tarkin asks about his trip to Catalaman with the princess, but the cunning general refuses to say a word. He insists that nothing special happened, which makes Tarkin suspicious. His general has always been chatty and normally would have said 1,000 words about the Sylvanian princess. Our male lead glares at him, forcing Mukali to confess. But even then, all he talks about is the huge, strange sword the palace blacksmith had gifted him. He keeps rambling about the weapon, and Tarkin curses this sword-loving giant. He feels frustrated because he only wants to know why his wife visited the smithy. Mukali glances at his lord, who is trembling with anger, and reveals that Botalin had gifted him a special mask. The smith had put a lot of effort into the face mask, and even made it the same color as Mukali's golden hair. The general is sure the kind Botalin didn't mean any harm because he has always been good to him. But the mask had reminded him that his terrifying scar would only scare others if it wasn't covered. Tarkin secretly scolds Botalin for doing something useless. The smith claimed he made the mask to praise Mukali's strength, but he actually made it because of the nasty gossip from the general's enemies. He must have made the mask with pity, hoping the Alugo hero wouldn't face any more insults. Mukali was from a famous family of generals and years ago was the most popular soldier in the capital. After he got his face wound, he was still confident, thinking the scar wasn't something to be ashamed of. But the people's attitudes had changed, and they avoided looking at his face. They even insisted that a mask would be better. Tarkin is afraid the general will be upset, but before he speaks, Mukali announces that they rejected the mask. The Sylvanas princess had complained and made a full list of all the mask's weaknesses. She had no intention of forcing her general to cover his scar. Mukali recalls how the princess always treated him like a normal person and smiles like a big cat. He had planned to scold Botalin for giving him the mask, but the princess had jumped to his defense. The general, who has never experienced such care, is filled with happiness. Tarkin smiles as he watches Mukali, who is laughing like a maniac. The man really looks brighter. The excited general tells the prince that he requested some pig iron instead. He plans to give it to the new blacksmith when he arrives at the palace. Mukali freezes in shock as he realizes that he has just spilled the secret. Our male lead immediately turns into the Grim Reaper, demanding to know everything about the sly man who stole his wife. As they say, if you can't defeat your enemy, just run away. That is what Mukali does as he speeds off even faster than a rocket. He yells an apology to the upset prince, claiming that he needs to use the bathroom. Poor Tarkan is left behind, shivering like an abandoned weed. He curses the blacksmith, his general, and even the annoying bathroom. But thinking of his cute little wife, he once again turns into Mr. Sunshine. Meanwhile, Mukali finally stops running and swallows some much-needed air. He gives a silent apology to his abandoned lord, but he has to keep the little princess's secret. That day, Aristine had begged him to keep this a secret from Tarkan because she wanted to surprise the prince. She wants to show the arrogant Tarkan that she can also succeed. She plans to make a trial weapon, and after Mukali tests it out, they can surprise the prince together. Mukali recalls the princess's sparkling eyes, which were filled with ambition. After following her to the smithy, he finally understood that she really just wants a weapon. The general, who has gotten rid of his suspicions, is filled with happiness. He even twirls and jumps around because he can finally acknowledge Aristine and admit that she matches well with his master. The general is excited to swear his loyalty to the Sylvanian princess and rushes off to find Diona. He is eager to tell her the good news, but when he arrives outside the beauty's palace, he is immediately filled with suspicions. Aristine's court ladies would never have agreed to let him travel alone with the princess if she was really interested in other men. The ladies never showed any suspicious behavior, so why would Diona suddenly assume that the princess is cheating? Mukali decides to do a proper investigation. Time passes by, but the Alugo Empire is still filled with news about the couple's marriage. Some bold reporters even camp outside Tarkan's mansion, begging for a new picture of the royal princess. Instead, Durante tosses them out of the gates, which finally puts an end to the chaos. Litrin also arrives at the palace, and as time passes, the Sylvanian knights return to their homeland. At least this time, they use a proper portal. Everything seems to be going well until Aristine suddenly receives a strange visitor. Sophia, the queen's court lady, arrives to invite Aristine to the Empress Palace. Our heroine smirks as she glances at the newspaper in her hands. It seems the queen was alarmed by this new article. Over at the Empress's palace, the queen is accompanied by Paella and Yenika. They study the recent newspaper as they praise Yenika's new photo shoot. Aristine arrives and hears Paella almost licking the girl's foot. Our heroine pays no attention to them and is just relieved to find her seat. It seems the queen isn't going to play those childish tricks this time. Instead, the ladies speak to themselves and totally ignore our heroine, treating her like an abandoned weed. Paella keeps praising Yenika's photogenic face but secretly mocks the girl for covering herself in jewels. She glances at Aristine, feeling smug because everyone is only talking about her wedding pictures. No one is interested in Yenika's photo shoot. The queen sets down her cup and three women act like they just noticed Aristine's presence. They stare at her with cold eyes, but a second later, greet her with polite smiles. Our heroine returns their greeting, but she can tell that they don't accept her as a member of the royal family. The queen even suggests that she might be uncomfortable living here, but Aristine calls this her home. The empress is furious and, determined to humiliate the girl, asks to speak to her informally. Paella flinches at the insult because even though they are in-laws, the queen has to speak politely to Aristine because she is a princess. Our heroine isn't bothered and accepts the queen's request. Yenika and her mother laugh, thinking the Sylvanian princess has finally become submissive. They mention the first prince and reveal that he will soon return. The queen claims that Hamir is rushing over even without a portal just because she misses him. The two princesses praise the first prince while Aristine watches them with disdain. Prince Hamir didn't attend their wedding, causing the political world to descend into chaos. During the historic marriage that formed the peace treaty, the first prince, who is supposed to be the first successor, didn't attend. His supporters claimed he was carrying out some official duties, but the recent political article suggested that he is jealous of Tarkan's growing political strength. Aristine is sure the queen called the first prince back because of this news. She realizes that her marriage is making the queen nervous and decides not to hold back. Just when we think she is about to challenge the empress, she stares at an innocent maid and points at the table of desserts. The poor girl keeps picking everything Aristine points at until the plate becomes full. And then, our heroine settles down and begins to eat like a starving child. She isn't bothered by Hamir's return and would rather eat than worry about something that hasn't happened. Aristine enjoys her dessert and even compares it to her palace's snacks. Of course, her chef is still the best. The three ladies watch Aristine with wide eyes as she keeps eating without any shame. Yenika even wonders what type of human she is. The empress is upset because her plan to humiliate Aristine by ignoring her has failed. She suddenly has a feeling that she can't defeat this wild girl. The queen reminds herself that she is the mother of the nation. She blames the peaceful Aristine for building Tarkan's political position, but still wants to turn her enemy into her friend. She decides to show off her power and asks Aristine if she is curious about her son. She wants the princess to realize that marrying Tarkan was a horrible decision and mentions that her son will be the next king of Alugo. In her dreams, madam? The queen, eager to prove that Hamir is the next king, reveals his secret duties. Aristine is stunned when she hears that he is managing a magic stone mine. The queen says the mine is filled with A-grade quality stone and boasts about her son's important duties. Our heroine doesn't argue and even thinks that the prince's reason for not attending their wedding is really a good excuse. Magic stones are important in this world because the nation's defense barriers, portals, and even cameras rely on their power. The existence of such a huge mine could even change Ilugo's status in this world. Our heroine is filled with jealousy when she hears that Hamir is running such a huge business. The little business owner, finds it unfair that others have such a huge golden spoon. Aristine is blazing with jealousy, but the queen misunderstands that the girl is finally afraid of their power. She boasts that her son has been favored since birth and has received a lot of support from the noble houses. She compares him to a certain someone who is vulgar and eats mana stones from demonic beasts' corpses. Her Hamir seems to be born to take the throne. Aristine realizes that the queen is trying to compare her son to Tarkan. The woman even boasts about his handsome appearance and says he has been chased by different women. Our heroine is upset by such ridiculous praise but knows that even a porcupine would think its own child was soft and glossy. She chooses not to argue with the delusional queen because she knows the woman would only twist her words. The empress gets even worse, talking about her son's Iligoan manliness and his delicate side from his grandmother. She even says his hair sparkles like gold and his eyes glow like jewels. Aristine is disgusted by such exaggerated praise, wondering what kind of mother would praise her son's beauty this way. She is trying to figure out the queen's purpose, when the woman suddenly offers to introduce her to her son. The empress says it might be difficult to meet Hamir and offers Aristine an opportunity to see him. She just wants the princess to realize that her son is the king, but Aristine suddenly declares that she is a married woman. The queen is shocked while our heroine watches her with a frightened gaze. She misunderstands the queen's intentions and thinks the woman is trying to send her on a blind date with her own son. Aristine imagines the empress in an open relationship and shivers like a fragile flower. She declares again that she is a married woman. The three ladies are frozen in shock before Yenica jumps up in anger. She can't believe the Sylvanian princess really thought she had a chance with her brother. Aristine is confused by the girl's reaction because Yenica should be happy that she rejected their marriage proposal. She urges the girl to calm down, reminding her that she is now her sister-in-law. The second princess screams in anger and almost pulls out all her hair. Pela also holds her head, wondering why she joined this meeting. She should have declined the queen's invitation. She tries to calm Yenica down, but Aristine makes everything worse. She says Hamir is her brother-in-law, so they can't be together. The queen stops Yenica from losing her mind, explaining that Aristine misunderstood as she was just talking about her son. Paella defends the queen and also praises Hamir for managing the stone mine. The second princess stares at Aristine with an arrogant look, believing that her brother is better than Tarkan. Just then, the queen interrupts, expressing her regrets for Aristine's marriage. She looks smug as she warns the girl not to regret her choice in the future. She secretly thinks to herself that if Aristine wants to have a peaceful life when Hamir becomes king, she must accept their proposal. She tells the Sylvanus princess that she wants to become her real mother-in-law. Meanwhile, a few minutes ago, Zack rushes into Tarkan's palace with urgent news. He announces that the queen has called Aristine over for a private chat with Paella and Yenica. He wants to know the prince's plans, but Tarkan orders him to ignore the women. He thinks that Aristine has to fulfill her role as the royal princess. Even if she becomes upset because of the queen, it is not his concern. Tarkan tells Zack to focus on capturing the demons and declares that he has no time for such petty female quarrels. The prince says he is going to kill monsters, but Zack points out that he is heading towards the queen's palace. Tarkan keeps walking faster, while his subordinate screams that the conference room is in the other direction. He feels no shame and even says they are going for a stroll. He drags the poor Zack as he runs, blaming the boy for being too weak. The innocent guard cries, wondering why they are strolling to the queen's palace. The men arrive just in time to hear the queen saying she wants to treat Aristine as her real daughter. The Sylvanus princess is amused by the queen's request and replies that a mother-in-law can never be a real mother. She tells the queen she doesn't regret her marriage because her husband pleases her very well. Just then, Aristine's teacup ripples as a vision arrives. Meanwhile, the queen is frustrated. She calls Aristine heartless because she never thought the girl would reject her proposal. She secretly mocks the princess for not having any political wisdom. The empress decides to be frank and says she doesn't dislike Aristine. She even finds the girl adorable, but she chose to destroy her life because of love. Our heroine is confused because the women all think she has fallen in love with Tarkan, when in fact, she just sees him as a business partner. The queen tries to tempt Aristine, offering to give her the seat next to Paella. The first princess agrees, while Yenica secretly laughs at Aristine's face. The empress says she can treat the Sylvanus princess like royalty, but first, the girl has to become her puppet. She calls Aristine a disappointment because she is defending a lowborn like Tarkan. The women all laugh, mocking the second prince for being vulgar. Zack stops his boss, who is about to teach the women a lesson. It seems our male lead is used to barging into the queen's palace, and his subordinate begs him not to ruin the ladies' tea party again. Tarkan stares at his wife, who has remained silent. Aristine thinks she has no love because her heart already died when she was 6 years old. But still, she feels upset when she hears them insulting Tarkan. Her business partner might be high maintenance and a little dishonest, but he is still a good man. Pela notices the princess's upset face and misunderstands that the girl really likes Tarkan. She even wants to know why Aristine fell for the warrior. Our heroine is surprised, and even the angry Tarkan freezes. The girl thinks for a while before she says the man is good at breaking beds. Everyone is shocked by Aristine's words, and their faces all turn red. The two princesses immediately begin to imagine some rated scenes. They try to distract themselves by talking about the first prince, but they are still filled with a strange heat. Paella secretly scolds Aristine for saying such nonsense. She thinks the queen will be upset, but when she glances at her, the older woman is busy sulking. She has been married for years and knows a couple must be compatible in bed with their partner. She even tells Aristine that she totally understands. Zach has to cover his boss's mouth to stop him from screaming, but someone else can't control her temper. Yenica slams the table and warns her mother to stop saying nonsense. She insists that her brother is better than Tarkan, who is born from a lowly concubine. Aristine glances at the girl, asking if she is insulting her husband's birth. Yenica is shocked as she realizes that she has exposed her true feelings. The next second, she pretends to be upset as she blames Aristine for misunderstanding her words. Our heroine isn't fooled and warns the little schemer never to insult her husband. She glares at Yenica, saying the girl has just called the Alugo king's biological son a lowly person. Yenica is startled and stammers as she tries to defend herself. Her mother comes to her rescue, pointing out that Tarkan's mother was indeed a lowly commoner. She even laughs and says the princess can't deny that fact. Pela trembles in fear because the Sylvanas princess has really annoyed the empress. She thinks it is over for Aristine, but our heroine delivers her comeback. She doesn't argue and says Tarkan's mother was really born as a commoner, but she reminds the queen that she had personally given the woman a royal concubine title after she gave birth to Tarkan. The queen still remembers how she had to give her greatest enemy a title. Aristine has forced her to recall that disgusting scene, so she is determined to teach the girl a lesson. Years ago, the kingdom of Ilugo was in chaos. The monsters terrorized the south while the Sylvanas warriors controlled the borders. The powerful clans in Ilugo were also trying to gain their independence. In order to stabilize the country, Nefter was forced to marry the daughter of the most powerful family in Ilugo. He also married different concubines who would support his political empire. The queen thought she only had to manage those women, but everything changed when that bug appeared. Nefter fell in love with a lowly commoner who had no use or value, and even gave her a noble title just because she bore a royal heir. Even worse, the queen was forced to personally confer that woman her title. The empress is still traumatized by that memory and keeps wiping her hands. She calls Tarkan a filthy halfling who can't be compared to her pureblood son. Yenica tries to stop her mother, but the queen yells that Tarkan should just be a dirty halfling who goes around killing and shouldn't try to interfere with the palace matters. Aristine is shocked speechless by the queen's behavior. She wonders how the woman could be so bold when she has done worse things to Tarkan. Immediately the boy's mother died. She kicked him to the borders to fight monsters with just a single sword. Durante revealed that back then, the little Tarkan didn't receive any support or supplies and was thrown into the portal before he could even make a plan. Really, our male lead was just sent out to die. Aristine is furious when she recalls this info, thinking that the queen's pure blood is just useless. A woman without compassion who sent out a young child to die shouldn't boast about being noble. Our heroine feels great pity for the child who lost his mother and was immediately abandoned on the battlefield. The young boy had survived again and again, refusing to die, only to be insulted as a lowly commoner. The girl finds it unfair and immediately defends her husband. Aristine reminds the queen that Tarkan is the savior who defended Irigo from the demonic beasts and defeated the Sylvanians during the war. The man is a great hero, and even people from enemy nations have heard about his bravery. Yet, the queen is trying to demean his bloodline. Tarkan is surprised to hear his wife's defense, while the empress also looks shocked. Aristine understands that the woman feels unhappy, but advises her to direct that rage at her husband. Her words make the queen furious, and she storms out of her seat. Her sidekicks tremble in fear as the woman stands before Aristine with a dark aura. She warns the girl not to say a single word, and Pamela uses her frightened eyes to beg Aristine to stop. Unfortunately, our heroine isn't a pushover and says the empress should at least show some belief in her precious son's ability. The furious queen raises her hand to slap Aristine, and everyone cowers in fear. But just at the last moment, Tarkan jumps out and grabs the queen's hand. Aristine is stunned as she watches the man question the empress, asking if she just raised her hand against his wife. The woman yells at Tarkan for showing up at her palace and acting rude towards her. She orders the man to let go of her, but Tarkan repeats his question. The empress is about to yell at him again when she notices the man's terrifying face. The warlord releases his bloodthirsty aura, which frightens even the other princesses. Pamela knows she should stop the two, but her body is completely frozen. The women who have been raised like delicate flowers are experiencing this bloodthirsty aura for the first time in their lives. Therefore, they all think Tarkan is a monster. Well, except for our heroine. Aristine calls the man's name, and his evil aura immediately disappears. Tarkan glances back at his pretty wife and quickly rushes to her side. The terrified queen collapses in fear, and her sidekicks rush to her side to help. The culprits share an understanding look before announcing that their stroll is over. They plan to leave, but Yenica stops them with a threat. She vows to make her brother expel Tarkan when he returns, and says the warlord will spend the rest of his life in the borderlands. Unfortunately, our male lead isn't bothered and even smirks, daring the evil women to try their best. The couple leave the queen's palace holding hands and even walk step by step. It should be a romantic moment, but Aristine is more worried that Tarkan hasn't said a word. She thought the man had something important to tell her because he rushed in and whisked her away from the Empress. The naive girl calls his name and the warlord instantly freezes. He grips her hand and turns around to face her with a gentle gaze. Tarkan stares at his wife's innocent face, but her beauty is just too much. He immediately collapses to his knees and even covers his eyes. Aristine is worried that her husband might be sick, but the man assures her that he is okay. He recalls how the girl defended him, saying she was proud of her husband. Tarkan is also happy to have Aristine as his wife, but he is too shy to say those words. Instead, he settles for calling her name 1,000,000,000 times. At first, the girl sits with him, wondering why he keeps calling her, but soon she starts frowning. Tarkan knows that look because it means his little wife is very mad. She asks why he keeps calling her name and even threatens to announce him as a pervert if he calls her one more time. Our male lead is alarmed and begs his wife not to ruin his reputation. The girl wants to know why he keeps calling her, and the amused prince calls her short-tempered. Our heroine becomes even more upset because no one has ever called her fussy. The two continue their argument and don't notice a dark shadow watching them behind the wall. The man is filled with resentment because Tarkan had thrown him away. It turns out to be poor Zach, who had been abandoned by his master after being forced to take a stroll. The poor boy had to hide under the bushes, using some branches to cover himself. He listened to the angry queen yelling about her hatred for Tarkan and knew he would be dead if he was caught. The man cries in pain because his boss had left him alone in the queen's death palace just to go on a date. Just then, Durante appears by his side and rubs his head, saying he shouldn't cry since he has already saved him. Zach isn't relieved because he is also terrified of the warrior. The man had shown up behind the bushes, appearing out of nowhere like a creepy stalker. Durante isn't bothered and hands the boy a handkerchief. Meanwhile, he pulls out his omnipotent binoculars and begins to spy on his boss again. Zach points out that Tarkan has changed. The man who used to show no interest in women is now ordering desserts and reports about his wife. The warlord had always hated the palace and seemed more comfortable living on the battlefield, but everything had changed because of the princess. Zach begins to cry again because he feels very touched. He is glad that Tarkan broke the bed with normal methods because he was afraid his boss would destroy things to teach his wife some weird martial arts. The two warriors are relieved because, within this palace filled with enemies, the prince has finally found someone who would genuinely stay by his side. The men even begin to feel a little lonely. Meanwhile, somewhere in the desert, a group of men are having a meeting. The blonde man refuses to return to the palace because his business hasn't been completed. His assistant begs him to return because the situation at home is quite serious. He reveals that even the neutral Marquess Isara is showing signs of siding with Tarkan. He urges his master to do something, but the blonde man only laughs. He announces that Tarkan and Isara aren't the main problems. His mother has always handled every issue, yet everything changed when the Sylvanus princess appeared. The man, who turns out to be Prince Hamir, stares at a portrait of Aristine. He is curious to know more about this woman who made his mother anxious. The next day, Aristine prepares to head out dressed in a gorgeous gown that startles even her maid. The Alugo servant says the princess has no appointments and wonders where she is going, looking all dressed up. Aristine reveals that she is heading to the smithy to settle some personal matters. The servant immediately protests, saying she can go on her behalf, but our heroine refuses. The girl is excited because it is finally time to start her business. She heads out singing a happy tune and has no idea that a jealous lady is watching her from the window. Brody recalls that the smithy is full of men and criticizes Aristine for heading out alone in such a short dress. The girl is secretly happy because she hopes the princess will soon be hated by her husband. She notices the smile on Aristine's face, which also makes her upset. She believes that her life is tough, so her mistress also has to suffer. Over at Tarkan's smithy, Litrin's heart is about to burst out of his chest. He will finally be meeting the princess today, and the giant is nervous. He believes that Aristine plans to make some kind of jewelry, which is why she is treating him like a treasure. The man begins to imagine all kinds of complicated designs and even plans to make a head accessory that matches the princess's eyes. But that really isn't what Litrin wants. Every time he thinks about Aristine, he imagines a glowing white sword that looks just like her. The man slaps his head in despair, trying to get rid of the disrespectful thoughts. He had escaped from Catalaman because he refused to make swords, only to become obsessed with making a sword for the princess. The man is busy panicking and doesn't notice the princess's arrival until she calls his name. Aristine smiles like a flower, curious to know what the man is thinking about. Litrin immediately drops to his knees and greets the princess. Our heroine is startled by his elaborate greeting, asking him to drop the polite behavior because they will be seeing each other frequently. Still, the blacksmith refuses and grabs her hand with a kiss, saying he couldn't bear to stop. He asks for Aristine's permission to keep doing this, and the girl finally agrees. Litrin is excited to make jewelry for the princess and keeps making different suggestions. He even says he can make a jeweled egg, which would be a nice gift for the Sylvanus Knights. Aristine quickly stops the imaginative smith because she doesn't plan to make an accessory. She shows Litrin her scroll, saying she wants to make a sword that saves people. The man is confused until he takes a look at the designs. He immediately recognizes them as medical scalpels, but these look very different from the existing scalpels. Litrin can't understand why they are longer until he realizes that this will increase the degree of precision. Aristine feels proud of her employee because he realized the importance just by looking at the blueprint. She plans to make a new type of scalpel that can increase the degree of precision, which will save lives during a surgery. Litrin is a bit hesitant to enter this field because if the surgery fails, the doctors would blame the new scalpel so they can evade the responsibility. Because of these risks, the Alugo Smiths mainly focus on sword making and would only make scalpels as a side job. Aristine is aware of these risks, but because of these problems, the scalpel business is a blue ocean. This means our heroine will have no competition or barriers if she begins this business. The girl smirks because this is the perfect condition to start her project. Besides, she has seen various videos which prove that the new scalpel will be effective. There is no way her business will fail. Aristine feels a little guilty because she is stealing others' ideas, but she has to be shameless to make a fortune. Just then, Litrin says he understands, and the girl thinks he is about to talk about the business possibility. Instead, the man suddenly becomes teary-eyed as he calls her an angel of hope. He points out that if the scalpel's quality improves, the failed surgeries will decrease, causing people to once again become healthy. Aristine can't understand his speech until the man says she is doing this to help people who have fallen into despair because of their illness. Our heroine immediately looks upset, wondering how she became this kind-hearted angel. Litrin even blames himself for thinking about the risks when the princess is willing to take the blame just to save people's lives. Our girl is speechless because she has no intentions of becoming a scapegoat. She stops Litrin, explaining that she is only doing this to make money. But instead of looking disappointed, the man cries as he praises her for being humble. At this point, our heroine truly gives up. Aristine finds Litrin's adoring gaze a burden, but trying to explain would also be useless. The girl feels embarrassed, so she changes the topic, asking when a sample would be ready. Litrin slaps his chest, revealing that he has already memorized the blueprint. He tells the princess to have a cup of tea while she waits, and promises to be done before the tea cools down. Aristine is filled with awe as she stares at Litrin, who suddenly seems to be sparkling. Ever since a young age, our heroine has always been judged. Because she had the legendary silver hair and purple eyes, her father believed she had the Emperor's eye and was obsessed with her awakening. The crazy man had put her through various hardships, claiming that she would thank him later. He drove her to a corner using all sorts of tricks and methods, but his efforts turned out to be useless. The king had no idea, but Aristine had already awakened her sight a long time ago. The little girl hid this secret from her father, causing the madman to lock her up. Back then, Aristine was just 6 years old, an age where she couldn't survive alone. The poor child fell sick, but the crazy king didn't care and said these sufferings would bring out her hidden abilities. She even fell out of bed while trying to get some water, causing the cup to spill over. Our heroine had begged anyone to bring her some medicine or even a cup of water, but her prison door had always remained locked. She could feel her soul already fading away, but the girl was determined not to die. The next moment, she opened her eyes, only to find herself sparkling and floating in the galaxy void. She was standing right above what seemed to be Earth. Aristine stops thinking about her past and decides to enjoy the sound of Litrin's tempering, which sounds like music in her ears. Time passes by and the smith finally presents the sample. He says he still has to forge a more detailed blade, but he has created an outline according to the blueprint. Aristine is stunned because the man really made the blade before the tea could cool down. She praises the scalpel because it looks as pretty as glass art. Litrin feels shy and says the spirits of the blacksmiths must have given him some help. Our heroine had no idea a fairy like that existed and finally understands the power of the people in this world. The two test the blade on a piece of paper by cutting out different shapes and symbols. Aristine is pleased because she doesn't even have to use much strength since the blade is so precise. She immediately praises the shy Litrin with sparkling eyes, causing the boy's tail to start wagging. The smith insists that Aristine is the actual genius who deserves to be praised. The girl points out that she just made a new design based on a carving knife, but Litrin says her simple design could save people's lives. He keeps praising her for coming up with such a brilliant idea, but our girl isn't pleased with his compliments. Aristine feels guilty because she wasn't the one who developed those ideas, so Litrin's praise is just stabbing her poor conscience. The girl reveals that she only copied everything that caught her eye and rewatched the parts she wanted. The smith is confused, but Aristine can't explain this secret to him. There have been only a few people who possess the Emperor's eye during the years, so Aristine has no idea if their powers are similar to hers. Our heroine's ability might be different from the others because she can control the Emperor's eye to see her past life. Back then, the little girl thought she had died when it first happened. She had appeared in another world but couldn't speak to anyone or touch anything. Aristine could only watch and even thought she might have turned into a ghost. That was also the first day she saw her past self, and even though the girl was older with a different personality, she could still tell that it was her. Our heroine had returned back to her prison but could now watch her past life through the water. Just like her father said, those trials had improved her Emperor's eye. The girl spent her days watching her past self but could never understand why the other Aristine made some decisions. She had even donated her own liver to help her sick father have a transplant. Still, because of her time in the hospital, the current Aristine also gained a lot of benefits. She had seen different medical equipment and even watched various surgery videos or medical dramas. The girl would rewatch and replay those videos until she was finally able to copy the designs and create her own blueprint. Litrin has no idea his favorite princess is just a copycat and says he will need more time to create the other scalpels. He is still shocked to see so many different varieties and wonders if the princess is also a secret medical expert. Aristine quickly denies that ridiculous idea, explaining that the scalpels are just for different surgeries. The two are still whispering about their ideas when the girl hears a familiar voice calling her wife. Aristine turns around only to see the handsome Tarkan. The man glances at his wife, who is almost glued to the blacksmith, and immediately feels unhappy. Aristine doesn't notice her husband's bad mood as she asks why he visited. Our male lead says she shouldn't be skipping dinner even if the business is that good. Aristine is confused at first until she looks outside and notices the dark sky. The girl turns to Litrin in surprise, and the two wonder how time went by so quickly. Tarkan is unhappy because the two were enjoying their time together and didn't even notice how much time had passed. He suddenly suspects that Aristine was making so much fuss about her first employee only because the man is her type. Tarkan feels jealous, but when he tries to move closer, Aristine immediately yells at him to stop. The man freezes in shock and trembles like an abandoned puppy. He questions Aristine, but the girl says she is discussing an important business. She insists that the documents are confidential and even asks Litrin to get her a box so she can hide the papers. Tarkan glares at Aristine, looking like a wronged wolf, but the girl refuses to let him get closer. Our heroine is actually feeling shy, and even though the product already looks great, she wants to show Tarkan a perfect sample. The prince is unable to scold his wife, so he glares at the innocent Litrin. The blacksmith trembles as he places the scalpel in a box before handing it over to Aristine. The girl hugs the box with a happy smile, promising to treat the scalpel like a treasure. This is one of the items she has always wanted to make ever since her confinement. Our heroine grew up without any education or skills, but looking at the world through the Emperor's eyes gave her hope and a plan for her future. She had always imagined her life outside the prison managing her future business. Without that hope, Aristine would never have endured those harsh days of confinement. The girl finds it ironic that she was locked up because of the Emperor's eye, yet only survived because of it. However, the maids who brought her items noticed her strange behavior and spread rumors about her craziness. Aristine found it a bit unfair, but those rumors made the king believe that she was completely useless. The girl glances at Tarkan, feeling grateful that those rumors have also given her a good partner. She has no idea that the so-called good partner is currently threatening Litrin to fix himself. Our female lead finally turns around to speak to the blacksmith, only to see a strange scene. Litrin's hot, steamy chest has been covered up by some weird clip, making our heroine wonder if this is a new Ilugoan fashion trend. She says her goodbyes to Litrin, while an unhappy Tarkan drags his wife away. The couple head back to their mansion with Aristine asking why Tarkan came to pick her up. She says he could have sent the court ladies instead, but the man claims he had some business around this area. Besides, he is just fulfilling the contract he made with Aristine to protect her from all danger. The girl is confused because the smithy is right in the middle of Tarkan's palace, so it is definitely a safe place. She is convinced that something must have happened and asks Tarkan what went wrong. The prince immediately thinks about the crying girl who had asked him to follow her and listen to her sad story. He quickly says nothing happened, urging Aristine not to worry. Our heroine decides to drop the topic and instead thanks Tarkan for helping her. The prince had given Litrin a place in the smithy and even protected her against the empress. The girl decides to be honest, revealing that her business is personal and has nothing to do with Tarkan's politics. Still, because of his kindness, she promises to repay this debt. Aristine begins to talk about interest rates while the prince watches her in confusion. She is annoyed by his idiotic look and explains that she is renting the smithy. Our heroine might have scammed some money from the Sylvanian knights, but it isn't enough to pay for the expensive land in the capital. The girl believes she is renting the smithy until she can relocate, and promises to pay Tarkan a high interest. She doesn't expect the man to say that she can use it freely. The princess freezes in shock before yelling at Tarkan for wasting his money. Instead, the prince calls her his wife and says this is now her home. Everything in this palace also belongs to her, so Aristine can use it as she likes without paying anything. Aristine isn't pleased with his offer, and even says it makes her uncomfortable. She insists that he has to collect the payment regardless of their personal relationship. The girl finds it awkward to receive a favor and would even wonder why the person is being so nice. Also, she doesn't want to get attached to this mansion because she will divorce Tarkan, and this place will no longer be her home. Our heroine also wants to give the prince a gift, and suddenly grabs his hand. She places it against her cheek and wants to know if the man needs anything from her. Tarkan is surprised by his wife's question and replies that he needs nothing from Aristine. The man only has one request and begs the girl never to leave his side. A few days later, our heroine is trying to work, but her mind keeps replaying Tarkan's request. The naive girl is confused about the meaning and just assumes the man must be worried about his political enemies. After all, he just had a fight with the queen. Still, her mind keeps wandering off, so she decides to take a break for today. Zack appears by her side, saying she has already done enough. The warrior is impressed because Aristine is a fast learner and has even finished the task scheduled for later. The girl praises Zach for being a good teacher while thinking about her busy days. Her business expenses have all been paid, and the scalpel production has already begun. Every morning, Aristine has to play her role as the princess consort by taking over the jobs that Zach had previously handled. During the afternoon, she would rush to the smithy to assist Litrin with the work. Our heroine is responsible for gathering information about the market and handling the small details. She would get too absorbed in work and wouldn't notice when it gets dark. But every time the princess steps outside, her handsome husband will always be waiting for her. Tarkan would always claim that his meeting ended early, so he decided to stop over on his way back. Clearly, Aristine doesn't believe him because what sort of meetings would end every time she leaves the smithy? The girl even asks Tarkan to let someone else escort her, but the man would always refuse. The shameless Tarkan would insist that it really was a coincidence because they are both going in the same direction. Our heroine wonders why he is so carefree even with a girlfriend and says it must be inconvenient for him. The blushing Tarkan declares that it isn't stressful and Aristine can feel his sincerity. She decides to stop worrying about it, even though her inner self reminds her that this could just be a game. Back to the present. Aristine is tired of thinking about Tarkan's strange behavior and prepares to leave. Zach assumes that she is heading to the smithy again, but this time our heroine has another mission. The girl smiles, revealing that the scalpel has made some progress, so she is going to find an expert. Aristine heads over to Tarkan's medical center where she meets the person in charge. The stunning woman introduces herself as Umir, the director in charge of handling these these great warriors. The woman, who is also the military physician for Tarkan's palace, looks like a total badass. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem interested in Aristine because she thinks the princess is only here for a tour. Umir says they are always busy and are only having a break because it is the demon breeding season. She doesn't want to speak to Aristine and claims that she is too tired as she asks her assistant to attend to the princess. Aristine's personal maid feels offended, but our heroine isn't bothered. She explains to Umir that she is here to ask for a request and not to have a tour. The doctor is confused as the princess praises her abilities and brings out a box of scalpels. The cunning girl wants the best medical expert to try out her new products. Unfortunately, Aristine is going to regret this choice, because the sight of those shining blades drives the doctor crazy. The next second, we see Umir testing the product on a patient. The woman is covered in blood while admiring the perfect grip of the scalpel. She laughs like a demon, causing Aristine and her maid to cower in fear. The doctor announces with a crazy smile that the scalpel will make it easier to cut open patients. Speaking of patients, our heroine is worried about the poor lab rat who seems to be bleeding to death. However, Anna isn't bothered and explains that Umir prefers to have a rough surgery. She calls these little scratches, making us wonder what a fatal injury would look like. Umir is done kill-saving her patient and admires the scalpel covered in blood. She thinks they can just throw out their old scalpels and hasn't been this excited for a long while. The woman glances at Aristine with a demonic gaze before switching to a shy look. She asks the princess to guess why she became Tarkan's military doctor. Our heroine is confused at first, before she suddenly becomes serious. She thinks it is because the woman is really good at cutting people up. Umir says she isn't a mad doctor, but the next second, she regains her crazy look and declares that it is because of Tarkan's beauty. She praises every feature in the man's body, claiming that his eye candy is the repayment for her rough job. A normal woman would be jealous to see someone else admiring her husband, but Aristine is also a weirdo. She is actually more curious to know what a handsome semicircular canal means. Her maid tries to stop her, afraid her pure mistress will be corrupted by this pervert. Unfortunately, our heroine is already used to dealing with such creeps. Umir feels sad because the prince hasn't been getting hurt, so she can only work with these ugly little boys. The woman thought she had no joy left, but everything changed after meeting Aristine. She glances at the princess, who looks like a soft, round dumpling, and suddenly grabs her hand. Umir kneels before Aristine, but instead of asking for a kiss, she requests to lick our heroine's hand. The other girls are about to faint while Aristine immediately says no. Umir begs Aristine to reconsider her offer, and even promises not to ask for anything else if the princess agrees. Our heroine keeps refusing while her maid tries to pull her away from the clingy doctor. Just then, the mummy patient lying on the bed finally opens his eyes and yells at the doctor for ruining his body. Umir glares at him, saying he must be feeling better if he can curse in front of the princess. She scolds the man for smoking behind her back, and the two begin another argument. Meanwhile, our heroine is just wondering why there are no normal people in the prince's mansion. The doctor might have a weird personality, but Aristine knows she is the best medical expert in all of Alugo. She is someone who advanced on the battlefield and even became Tarkan's close ally. The prince is willing to place his life in her hands, so Umir must be a very trustworthy person. However, that isn't enough for the princess, so she hands the woman a document. Aristine asks Umir to check it out, and the woman is stunned when she reads through the papers. She even doubts that the princess could write such a document, but our heroine insists that it is her creation. Umir is amazed because Aristine has written a paper on all the possible questions about the scalpel. She is shocked when she discovers that the girl plans to improve the product, even though it is already revolutionary. Our heroine has no plans to be a scapegoat, and with this evaluation, The doctors can't question the quality of the scalpel during a dispute. The doctor finds Aristine interesting and agrees to fill the form with all her heart. She even promises to gather the other doctors to her side and make them cooperate. Our heroine is happy to hear this news because her business is finally blooming. Umir is really shameless. Just minutes ago, she claimed she was too tired to attend to the princess, but now she is taking Aristine on a tour. The woman wants to know if the princess is taking pre-orders, while our heroine is surprised that she wants to make a deal. She reminds the girl that this is just a sample, but Umir insists on buying the product. She shows the princess the amount she wants, and our heroine's eyes almost fall off. She is even worried for the doctor, but Umir announces that she is the director of the hospital. She sees no reason to save money when she has to save people's lives. The doctor asks for a contract, and our greedy heroine immediately agrees. Umir can't resist the princess's cute behavior and quickly attacks the girl's face with kisses. This time, Aristine stays still and even smiles because she will always refuse the perverts but can never say no to her clients. The princess is receiving Umir's kisses when she suddenly has a strange feeling. She seems to have forgotten something very important. Meanwhile, back at the princess's palace, Aristine's ladies-in-waiting are having a secret meeting. Melody's hair is about to fall out from worry when she suddenly hears a voice calling her name. The girl freaks out, but when she looks back, it turns out to be Rosaline. Melody yells at the girl, calling her a traitor, but Rosaline isn't bothered. Instead, she mentions the fight between Melody and Brody and shows sympathy for the poor girl. She calls her a kind-hearted person who always tries to mediate between the other ladies. Rosaline also acts sad, saying she feels guilty every time she sees Melody's worried face. The redhead even apologizes, promising to help the girl if she shares her troubles with her. Melody is touched by her friend's words and even begins to cry. She instantly reveals that she is worried about Brody because the girl seems to be going mad. Brody has locked herself inside her room and keeps mumbling about her scarred face. She even blames the princess for not bringing a priest and taking responsibility. The girls can hear her crazy words, and Melody reveals that Brody hasn't eaten or bathed for several days. She is really worried about her friend, but Rosaline is busy trying to hold back her laughter. She secretly thinks to herself that things will be easier than she thought, making us wonder what evil ideas she is planning again. Brody finally hears the footsteps outside her door and immediately rushes outside. She is upset to see Rosaline and scolds Melody for letting the girl in. She keeps calling the blonde nasty names, causing the poor girl to feel frightened. Finally, Rosaline stops her from shouting and points out that Brody is trembling. She pretends to be worried about the girl's health and even convinces Melody that Brody is acting this way only because she is sick. Rosaline approaches the girl, saying she must be ashamed to show her scarred face to the wild barbarians. She reveals that she knows a secret doctor from her country who can sneak in to treat the girl's injury. Of course, Brody doesn't believe the redhead and says she is now the princess's dog. She expects Rosaline to get upset, but the girl smiles and even grabs her face. She insists that she can never be a loyal dog to a crazy woman who has no real authority. Well, it seems the girl needs to bark again a few more times so she can remember her position. At Tarkin's place, there is a special place called the Armory. It is a magnificent building that always seems to smell like hot iron. The Armory is located right on the center of the palace, and because of its importance, only a few people could access certain places. However, right at this moment, a special carriage is heading to this secret palace. The guards are surprised to see the unknown carriage, but after staring at its pattern, they realize that it belongs to the princess consort. The Sylvanas princess must be here to visit Tarkan, but the second prince has to attend another meeting right after lunch. The men share a terrified look because this might be a huge problem. The guard rushes into the armory to report to the prince about his wife's visit. He reveals that the princess has just passed through the main gates and will soon arrive at the palace. Zack looks thoughtful as he declares that this is a huge matter. He says the prince has many papers to deal with this afternoon, which causes the guard to feel touched. The soldier thinks to himself that the prince is someone who separates his private life from his public affairs. Tarkin doesn't make exceptions for anyone, and he blames the princess for not understanding her husband. The guard is still feeling smug until Zack announces that they will have to work overtime. The soldier is sure his hearing is bad and even asks Zack to repeat his words. Unfortunately, Durante is already picking up the prince's coat, causing the guard to become anxious. He suddenly blurts out that the princess's matter shouldn't be serious. His words upset Tarkan, causing the prince to glare at the man and asking him to explain. The soldier looks frightened because he doesn't want to meddle in his boss's relationship. He points out that the couple only separated a few hours ago, yet the princess is already here to see Tarkan. He quickly explains that Aristine might not have evil intentions, but just like all newlyweds, she is making up excuses to stick by her husband's side even while working. The man probably thinks the prince will be upset, but instead Tarkan begins to laugh. The guard is shocked and watches as Durante helps the lord into his coat. The men immediately head outside, leaving the stunned guard behind. The man thought the prince would ignore Aristine after hearing his words and secretly wonders if his speech had changed the prince's mind. Just then, we see Tarkan opening up a few more buttons and revealing his delicious abs. The guard slaps his own head to stop himself from going crazy and wonders what exactly happened to his boss. Things become worse when Mukali appears and looks excited to visit the princess. The soldier is convinced that the general has gone mad because he still remembers the man trying to sabotage the prince's relationship with his wife. Zack calmly tells the guard to get used to these changes and even says the prince won't be coming back soon. He wants to continue the meeting but suddenly notices several teary faces staring at him. A bunch of grown-up men are crying and asking to see the princess, which frightens Zack. The man feels annoyed and cancels the meeting, so everyone can visit the princess. The men scream in happiness and Aristine can hear their shouts all the way from the gates. The girl secretly thinks that Tarkan's warriors are surely filled with a strong spirit. Just then, she sees the man himself and happily calls his name. Our male lead is stunned when he sees his wife, and Durante has to remind him that the princess just called his name. Tarkan has to stop for a second because Aristine's glowing beauty looks very cheerful today. The man is surprised when he notices that the girl has changed into a silk dress and stares at his wife's maids. As always, they have a naughty look on their faces, so they must be the culprits. Tarkan notices the wooden box in their hands and believes the princess must have brought him some lunch. The prince tries to hide his smug smile as he asks Aristine about her visit. The girl apologizes for bothering him, explaining that she came because it was lunchtime. The prince doesn't even glance at his men as he says the princess isn't bothering him because he is done with his work. The soldiers, who are spying on the couple, are all amazed and wonder when their boss learned to lie in such a daring way. They can't believe the best warrior of the century, who never blinked at women, would change after he got married. This must be the romance of the century. The soldiers are still gossiping when Aristine suddenly says she is here to borrow one of Tarkan's men. Our heroine calls out to Mukali, causing the man to freeze in shock. The general keeps pointing at himself, hoping the girl would change her mind. Unfortunately, Aristine happily says she hasn't seen him in a long time. Our poor Mukali is about to faint and quickly asks the princess if she came to greet Tarkan. He secretly begs the girl to say yes, but our naive heroine says she came here only to meet Mukali. The poor man is about to cry, and when Aristine says she came to fulfill her promise, he immediately denies their vow without a second thought. The next moment, his eyes widen as he remembers their promise about the product. He had agreed to test the scalpel first, so they could surprise Tarkan with the final product. The poor general imagines his funeral photo and regrets that promise. He is already crying because it is going to be the cause of his death. Our heroine seals the man's terrible fate when she reveals that she brought the desserts just for him. Finally, Tarkan turns around, asking her if the 2 boxes she brought over all belong to Mukali. The man releases his murderous aura and our general begs Aristine to save him. Meanwhile, the naive girl has no clue what is going on. The sky is filled with dark, stormy clouds, but they are no match for the murderous expression on Tarkan's face. Our poor heroine has to do her best to stop the man from ending Mukali. The prince is unhappy because his wife has been working so hard at the smithy, yet she is about to show the first fruit of her labor to his general. The jealous man wonders why it isn't him. Aristine explains that the general had helped her a lot and they had made a promise to view the first product together. Meanwhile, poor Mukali is about to fade away as he begs the girl to stop talking. Tarkan feels more upset because Litrin also receives a special treatment, while he is being treated like trash. The prince complains, asking why she is treating her business partner this way. Aristine is stunned by his sorrowful look and feels a bit guilty. She tries to hide the shy look on her face as she admits that she wanted to show Tarkan the best product ever. Our heroine is ashamed because she just revealed her feelings in public, while our male lead instantly feels happy. Finally, the weather turns blue again. A few minutes later, we see Aristine watching the men as they admire her new scalpel, while wondering how her private meeting with Mukali turned into a group project. It is all because the other soldiers kept begging for a chance to accompany her. Of course, our heroine doesn't notice that they were just trying to save their comrade. The girl thinks it will be okay to show the men her designs since they are all Tarkan's closest allies. The prince is also examining her document, and just like Umir, he is surprised when Aristine says she made the list herself. The man praises her strategy, and our heroine reveals that she is searching for new test subjects. Aristine has barely finished her sentence, but the soldiers are already volunteering. One points at his small wart, saying he has to pull it off, while another says his body feels stiff. Even the serious Durante pushes everyone away while raising his hands. Aristine watches in shock as the men fight for a chance to join the project. They might all be warriors, but she can't understand why they are so eager to harm themselves. The men say they have faced a lot of danger, so such a small injury means nothing to them. They even smile as they ask Aristine to give them a chance to help her. Our heroine is touched by the warriors' kindness and instantly smiles as she thanks them all. The soldiers are admiring their lady's beauty when they suddenly notice the stormy weather appearing again. Hurricane Tarkan is clearly unhappy to see his men staring at his wife. Aristine doesn't notice their struggles and is just thinking that the men are all good people. She is happy to finally receive help from others. The girl faces Tarkan, who immediately puts on his fake smile, causing his subordinates to wonder how he could change faces so fast. She nervously grabs her husband's hands, reminding him of the night he asked her to use his resources. The princess explains that she could feel his trust, which made her think that she was asking too much. She has always been alone and is already used to solving her problems herself. But now, Aristine decides to let go of those thoughts since she isn't alone anymore. The girl is finally willing to receive others' help and tells Tarkan that she will use his business resources. Our heroine is about to pass out from panic, but her cute behavior makes the prince very happy. The man immediately teases her, calling Aristine his little wife. He says his resources are also hers, so she can use them as much as she likes. The two have forgotten about the soldiers, who are also watching them with happy smiles. Just then, Aristine's maid interrupts the meeting, asking the men to eat some desserts while talking about their matters. A certain soldier is surprised to see the famous scones and points out that this is their new combat food. The men are all shocked as they realize that the scones were developed just for Aristine. They stare at the culprit, causing the guilty Tarkan to turn away in shame. The prince stares at the chocolate poison, and just a look causes his teeth to start aching. He is sure his teeth will melt from all this sugar and wonders how Aristine could enjoy this kind of food. But after seeing his wife's happy face, Tarkan decides to just indulge the girl, even though it feels embarrassing. The man is minding his business when a piece of chocolate suddenly appears before his face. Aristine has just cut her dessert and happily offers him the first taste. The other men are all frightened while Durante just calmly sips his tea. Back at Tarkan's palace, the ladies-in-waiting head to the back garden. Melody still looks frightened by their encounter with Brody, and thanks Rosaline for helping her. She can't imagine herself handling the crazy girl alone. The redhead comforts Melody as she begins to cry, promising to get a doctor for Brody. She secretly smirks to herself because her plan isn't that simple. During the meeting with Brody, Rosaline had smashed a vase as she tried her best to instigate the girl. She kept saying Brody shouldn't be treated like trash by the Emperor of Irago. She suggested that this all Aristine's fault because the injury should have belonged to her in the first place. Rosaline kept talking about the past, which confused even the simple Melody. She couldn't tell if the woman was just acting or if she was really not on the princess's side. The blonde looked at Brody for some help, only to see the girl holding back her tears. The maid had been brainwashed by Rosaline and truly believed that it was all Aristine's fault. After all, this injury should have been on the princess's body in the first place. She is also convinced that the Sylvanus princess was mocking her instead of taking responsibility and treating her face. The delusional clown kept insisting that they have to fix everything, causing Melody to look frightened. The blonde recalls her friend's scary face and concludes that Brody has gone mad. The girl finally recovers and rushes to Rosaline's side. She acts cute with the redhead, blaming her for going to the princess's side without informing them. She apologizes because they had misunderstood Rosaline's noble intentions and even hated her for a while. The hunting dog smiles, saying she had to deceive her own allies just to get the princess's trust. The naive blonde is deceived by her lies and even chooses to forgive her. The girls are having their lunch break in the garden when Rosaline begins her evil plan. She suddenly mentions Tarkan's influence and says all the servants and warriors in this palace are loyal to the prince. Rosaline pretends to be disappointed, saying she always thought Aristine was really receiving some support from the Alugo king. She reveals that the princess hasn't made any great achievements, and her influence is just thanks to the warriors and servants who treat her like a princess. The cunning maid insists that Aristine was just lucky to get married, yet she is already acting proud and superior. She purposely mentions that the princess isn't fulfilling her knightly duties, and even says the prince would hate Aristine when he finds out she is making her own money and secretly stealing from him. Melody is excited to hear the princess's nasty secrets because, just like the other maids, she thinks she has a chance with Tarkan. Rosaline feeds into her delusions, saying the girl looks much better than the princess. Melody might look soft and cute, but she is actually a very strong person. The blonde pretends to be shy and scolds Rosaline for teasing her. In the next second, she touches her red face, asking the girl if she really meant those words. The redhead is pleased that her plan is working and happily says the prince has to see Melody's cute face. Somehow, she has found out that Aristine has never served the prince, and when she tells Melody, the girl looks completely shocked. The blonde thinks to herself that the princess really has no training or manners. Rosaline keeps trying to brainwash the maid, revealing that she also knows what Tarkan likes. Melody immediately looks excited, asking her friend to reveal everything she knows. The blonde suddenly notices a problem and wonders how Rosaline knows the prince's dislikes or even found a doctor in Ilugo. The girl guesses that they have a connection in Ilugo and she turns out to be right. We see a familiar shade of blue hair and can already guess who it is. Melody is also surprised to see this woman while Rosaline calls her their ally. It seems Diona has decided to work with these women and says she can even tell them everything the prince likes. Of course, she pretends to have no idea that the maids are scheming and says she is just helping them because they are worried about the newlyweds. Melody is eager to know everything about the prince, but also wonders to herself why Diona would help them against the princess. Take a wild guess, girl. Diona thinks for a while before revealing that the prince's greatest enemy is sweet food. He really hates desserts with too much sugar, and just a taste is enough to change his expression. Yet, right now, the same prince is eating the dessert his wife is feeding him. Of course, his expression immediately changes and he even faints, but at least that is still some progress. The soldiers scream in panic as they search for some water or coffee to revive their boss, but Aristine isn't done terrorizing her husband. Our heroine points to the caramel drink, asking Tarkan to also taste it. The soldiers immediately come to their boss's rescue, explaining that he hates anything sweet. Unfortunately, Tarkan doesn't want to be saved and even glares at the man for exposing his secret. Aristine is stunned and yells at Tarkan for accepting when he doesn't like sweet things. She tells the prince to return the drink, but the stubborn man would never let go of anything given by his wife. Our dear Tarkan drinks the caramel latte in one gulp and barely a second later, the poor man dies. Rest in peace, Tarkan. Aristine can't believe her husband is gone and the soldiers all look devastated. Well, except for Zach. The man has the urge to eat something sweet and even orders a drink. Our heroine keeps slapping the dead man's head, wondering why he was so foolish. She blames herself because she failed to ask about her husband's dislikes. Mukali finally speaks up, and even though the other men try to stop him, he explains that Tarkan has always hated sweet things. Just a single look is enough to make the prince's mouth feel weird in 7 different ways. Aristine covers her face in shame because she would never have made this mistake under normal circumstances. The girl has just been so excited these days, which is why she offered Tarkan her dessert without a second thought. Aristine can't explain why she feels so happy and thinks it is because the Ilugoans are all friendly and adorable, especially Tarkan. Our male lead finally rises from the dead, and the annoyed girl tells him to be honest next time. She becomes upset again as she realizes that she knows nothing about Tarkan. Aristine is desperate to know everything about her husband and figure out why he is so sweet. But instead of pulling the man for a chat, she heads off to see his father. Nepthar happily eats the dessert Aristine is offering him and declares that he likes sweet things. He even says it tastes better because his daughter-in-law is the one feeding him. The king doesn't forget to mock his unhappy son, insisting he isn't picky like some certain people. The man is still worried about the princess and is happy that she is recovering from the carriage accident. Aristine replies that Tarkan was the one who stopped her from getting hurt and thanks the king for getting her a new carriage. Nepthar is pleased to see the girl smile and happily takes a bite out of the jelly. The man suddenly changes the topic, mentioning the rumors about Aristine's recent business. Our heroine isn't nervous because she always knew this moment would come. She reminds the king of her promise to get rid of Ilugo's reputation as a barbaric country. The king thinks her business is a good idea, but wonders how it will change their reputation. He only knows that the new scalpels will create great changes in the market. Aristine isn't really concerned about their reputation. The girl is only doing this business to make money, but knows she can't reveal her true purpose. Ari explains that once Ilugo becomes the main creator of the scalpels, they will control the whole health sector. All the hospitals would be anxious to buy their product and wouldn't dare to call them barbarians. Nepthar is amazed and secretly praises himself for picking a true treasure. He reveals his trust for Aristine, which makes the girl feel happy. The king also warns her to be careful of the queen, and our heroine promises to stay alert. Tarkan also seems to be running some secret business, and while he discusses with his father, Aristine daydreams about her happy life. The girl thinks that Nepthar might be a little rough, but he really supports her fully. She is happy because her father has recognized her business. Our heroine is still feeling ecstatic when the water in front of her suddenly begins to ripple. The girl is shocked and wonders why the Emperor's eye is showing her a vision right here. The scene begins with Litrin kneeling and apologizing for his mistake. Aristine says he did a good job and blames herself for the scalpel's failure. She says she was feeling too proud and excited, which is why she forgot this important detail. Our heroine is stunned and worried when she sees this vision because nothing must go wrong. The girl can't believe the scalpel failed and is so lost in thought, she doesn't notice the men calling her name. The king and his son are both worried because Aristine looks very pale. The girl insists that she is fine, but is secretly wondering where things went wrong. She knows there are many variables when doing this type of business, and the scalpels could have failed because they didn't sell well. But something about Litrin's apology and the vision makes Aristine very upset. She realizes that the scalpel must have been defective, but can't figure out which detail went wrong. Our female lead is desperate to solve the problem, and goes through all the events that have happened. Her last memory is Umir asking to buy a large amount of scalpels, and this scene finally gives our heroine a clue. Tarkan thinks Aristine is sick and suddenly grabs the girl as he announces that they are leaving. Aristine insists that she is okay, but the men clearly don't believe her. The girl finally realizes how weird she must have looked while she was watching the Emperor's eye. The men must have been startled when they saw her staring into the water for a long time and suddenly looking upset. Nepthar is also worried and approves their leave while urging the girl to get some rest. Aristine sighs because of the misunderstanding and feels guilty for leaving early when she is meeting the king after a long time. Still, the princess is more worried about her business, and now that she has found out about the cause of their failure, she is eager to head back and fix everything. Aristine gives the king a curtsy, but he suddenly advises her to stop enduring her hardships alone. He tells the girl to lean on others because no one is here to abuse her or make her suffer. Our female lead looks touched, until Tarkan interrupts the moment. He says he will take care of his wife and give her all the best things in the world to cover the bad memories. The men obviously think Aristine is some tragic damsel, which is totally not the case. Still, she tries to force out some tears because she has to look touched. Our heroine heads to the smithy as soon as she gets back and delivers the terrible news to Litrin. The boy screams in shock, wondering why they have to start the project all over again. Ari explains that the whole business will fail if they continue this way. The girl was so focused on copying the scalpel's appearance that she forgot one final detail. Aristine had allowed the compliments to get into her head and never asked why Umir would buy such a large quantity of scalpels. She only just realized that the woman was planning to throw out the scalpels after one use in order to prevent infections. Scalpels often come in contact with blood, so they rust quickly. Therefore, they have to be managed regularly, just like Mukali, who cleans his sword every morning and evening. However, this process is stressful, and since Umir is in charge of Tarkin's palace, she can afford to use the scalpels as consumables. Unfortunately, the other hospitals won't be able to do that. During her vision, Aristine had seen a fake-ass doctor who claimed that her scalpel was defective. He even asked her to take responsibility for the dead patient. Of course, Aristine had defended herself and accused him of failing to maintain his tools. Unfortunately, the man used this loophole to prove that her scalpels had caused the infection. The evil queen had also appeared, claiming that she could vouch for the doctor's skills. She pointed out that the man manages the second-largest hospital in Alugo, so there is no way he can't manage his tools. The vile woman even accused Aristine of only caring about money. Well, that last part isn't a lie, though. The girl explains her fears to Litrin, and he finally understands why the doctors always blame the smithy for their failures. Still, he is unwilling to stop their project because their scalpel is better than the other products. That isn't enough for Aristine because, just like the king said, her product has to be perfect in order to change the market. The princess decides that since rust is the problem, they have to switch to an iron that doesn't rust. Litrin points out that such an iron doesn't exist, but the princess asks him to make one. The poor boy is shocked, but Aristine insists that such an iron exists. In her past life, our heroine had seen an iron that doesn't rust, which is stainless steel. The girl had done some experiments in her past life, even though she was just trying to figure out which noodles would taste better between those cooked in a steel pot or a silver pot. The past, Aristine had gone through a textbook and found the formula for making stainless steel. Although our heroine doesn't know the exact ratios for each formula, she is determined to experiment until they get it right. The princess asks Litrin to trust her, and the boy is stunned by her confident look. Litrin had spent all his life in doubt, wondering if he had chosen the wrong path. But everything changed after he met Aristine. The girl had given him another chance, and he can feel his passion rising again. Litrin is willing to take the gamble, and the two share a happy moment. But their day is about to be ruined as Aristine's maid steps inside while trembling. The girl has bad news for the princess and reveals that their scalpel prototype is missing. Aristine returns to the bedroom to check her box, only to find it empty. Just like the maid said, the scalpel is missing. The three have terrible looks on their faces, and Aristine wonders who would sneak past Tarkin's security just to steal her scalpel. She tries her best to comfort Litrin, even though she is also feeling worried. The princess is afraid the thief might release the scalpel before them, causing them to be accused of plagiarism. Or even worse, they might have to compete to find the developing materials. The girl is very upset, but she has to hide her feelings so her subordinates wouldn't panic. Aristine is drowning in sorrow when Tarkin finally appears. The prince glances at his wife's sad face and immediately pulls her into his chest. He tells Aristine not to worry because he doesn't think the thief is trying to create the scalpel. The princess immediately raises her head, asking Tarkin to explain, but he refuses to reveal anything until he finds more evidence. Aristine looks very confused, but the man tells her to just focus on making her scalpels. The girl points out that her prototype is missing, so there is no way their work can continue. Our male lead begs his wife to trust him and promises to catch the culprit for her. For some strange reason, his words make Aristine's heart race, and she immediately believes him without an explanation. The girl has never had this strange feeling before and can't understand why she feels so relieved. Why did her mood actually get better just because Tarkin asked her not to worry? The princess decides not to bother with these thoughts and just focus on trusting her partner. Several days have passed since the theft, and contrary to Aristine's fears, no new scalpels were suddenly released on the market. Litrin began to develop the stainless steel, while Aristine did more research on which iron would be better to make the medical scalpels. The two even create a new design and can now separate the handle from the blade. This way, disinfection will be less stressful, causing the hygiene rate to increase. The group even invites the weird expert, and Umir announces that their idea is great. Finally, the research is completed and the two invite Mukali to see the final results. The general can't believe the new blade doesn't rust after being submerged in water for 7 days. His jaw nearly falls off while Aristine stands in a corner with a smug look on her face. She praises Litrin, causing the general to attack the boy with happiness. Aristine laughs as the two fight, asking Mukali not to hurt her treasure. Our heroine is very happy because stainless steel can be used in different places and not just the medical field. She recalls the king's words and smiles because she has made a perfect performance. Now, even if someone steals her design, she wouldn't be worried about a battle because her scalpel would turn the market upside down. The group are busy celebrating, so they don't notice the suspicious person watching them from the window. The figure seems to be a woman's, and, after listening for a while, she disappears without a trace. A few days later, Aristine is feeling exhausted from working at the smithy. After breakfast, she takes a look at the good weather and decides to take a nap. The princess sends out the Alugo maid, asking her to inform the other servants not to disturb her rest. She is about to drift off to sleep when the door suddenly opens. Aristine is surprised when she sees Brody standing in her room. She tries to send the girl away, but the servant refuses to leave and says she has something important to discuss. Our heroine immediately has a bad feeling. The servant keeps saying Aristine must have something to tell her, but the princess just looks confused. Brody asks her mistress to apologize and take responsibility for her injury. After all, she shouldn't be the one carrying this burn. Our female lead glares at the maid, noticing her wild eyes and scattered words. The girl has clearly gone crazy. She even tells Aristine to beg for forgiveness and immediately call a priest to treat her injury. Aristine recalls how Brody had carried a jar of hot water, intending to pour it on her face. If the princess didn't have the Emperor's eye, her injuries would have been worse than Brody's. She immediately glares at the girl and says she can't take responsibility for an injury she didn't cause. Meanwhile, in another room inside the palace, Rosaline is calmly sipping her tea. She laughs because the showdown between the princess and Brody must have already begun. The servant has always resented Aristine for treating her like a dog. Since the princess asked her to go hunting, she decided to manipulate Brody into causing some trouble. Rosaline laughs happily and hopes the princess would like her little surprise. Back at the princess's room, Aristine refuses to take responsibility, which makes Brody tremble in fury. The girl suddenly pulls out the missing scalpel, vowing to make the princess take responsibility by force. Aristine is shocked, as she realizes that Brody was the one who stole the missing scalpel. The evil maid rushes towards Ari, determined to ruin her face and destroy her pretty smile. She is about to stab the princess when she suddenly pauses. Of course, it isn't because she suddenly had a change of mind. Right now, two men in black cloaks have appeared out of nowhere and are currently holding down the evil maid. They even have a knife placed against her neck. The men force Brody to kneel before Aristine while the girl struggles to free herself. Meanwhile, our heroine is just confused, because she has no idea who these strange men are. Aristine asks for their identity, and the men reveal that they are members of the Shadowhawk. The princess is surprised because the Shadowhawk is Durante's unit for sneak attacks and assassinations. She wonders when exactly the men started to follow her, but the soldiers refuse to say a word. They announce that their boss will soon arrive to explain everything. Tarkin must have felt their presence and should already be on his way. Brody immediately looks terrified because she can hear those footsteps approaching. Tarkin's dark aura arrives even before the man himself appears. Our male lead looks very furious and doesn't even glance at the evil maid who is already trembling in fear. He immediately rushes towards his wife and kneels before her, desperate to know if she was hurt. The princess explains that she was only startled a little, and the man immediately smiles. The next second, his mood changes as he glances at the evil maid. The prince orders his men to lock her up in the Thorn Tower for daring to hurt his wife. Brody protests and says she didn't harm Aristine, but the Alugo maid immediately steps forward as a witness. The soldiers also show their support, and even though Brody is a noble sent by the Sylvanas Emperor, she will have to face punishment for trying to kill the princess. The evil maid finally looks terrified, as she realizes that she is in trouble. She finds it unfair that everyone is supporting Aristine, and thinks it is only because of the princess's good looks. Brody says Aristine should be the one with such an ugly face, and is annoyed that the girl she looked down on in Sylvanas has become a treasure in Alugo. The maid calls Aristine an empty shell pretending to be educated or dignified when she is just a street beggar. She recalls her secret meeting with Tarkan where he treated her harshly, and also blames this on Aristine. The maid is still screaming about her sad life when Tarkan suddenly orders her to stop. Brody instantly feels a strange force strangling her neck and struggles to take another breath. Tarkan holds Aristine against his chest, protecting her from his black energy while scolding the maid for daring to hurt his wife. He orders his men to take the girl away, and finally withdraws his aura. Brody falls to the ground as she struggles to breathe. She glances at Tarkan only to see him fawning over Aristine. The girl finds it unfair because even after all her efforts, the prince has never looked her way. Back then, she had even stopped Tarkan on his way to the office, asking him to listen to her poor story. She had pointed to her open chest, clearly inviting the prince to look at those fresh bosoms. Instead, the man had walked away without even a single glance. Brody had tried to chase after him, only to trip over her own feet and fall over in disgrace. The maid had never felt so embarrassed, and even after preparing everything from new makeup to fresh underwear, the prince had ignored her like she was nothing. Brody couldn't accept that fact and convinced herself that it was only because of the scar. Rosaline had also supported her delusions, and they both convinced themselves it was all Aristine's fault. The maid recalls Tarkin's loving look towards the princess and wonders why it couldn't be her. A few minutes later, Tarkin is still worried about his wife, and even orders some tea to calm her mind. Aristine is more curious to know how he figured out that the culprit was Brody. The prince explains that the maid had approached him while Aristine was busy making the scalpels. Our heroine immediately looks annoyed, causing the terrified man to shout that he had ignored her request. The girl says she isn't scolding him and is just surprised that Brody could be so bold. Tarkin admits that he had suspected the maid because of her strange behavior. Plus, she is also one of the few people who can freely enter Aristine's room. He wasn't sure, so he sent his shadow to gather more evidence, but never expected the crazy maid to actually cause such a huge scene. The prince had only kept her alive because he didn't want Aristine to see some blood, but now he regrets not killing the crazy maid. Aristine interrupts Tarkan's bloodthirsty thoughts and asks why he kept his investigation a secret from her. The prince is stunned by her question and instantly becomes speechless. How does he explain that he had always notices the fake smile in Aristine's face from the moment she saw him? The girl always looked expressionless, until she recently began to have a genuine smile on her face. The love-struck prince would do anything to keep that smile on her face. Tarkin was thinking about this in his heart and doesn't know when he suddenly blurts out his true feelings, which makes the princess very confused. The girl asks for an explanation while our male lead just covers his mouth in shame. Tarkin might be jealous because his wife spends all her time with the blacksmith, but he never wanted to see her sad. If he had revealed the truth, Aristine would be uncomfortable, and because of Brody, she would be unable to focus on her work. Tarkin always wants to see his wife's happy face and vows that, as long as she remains in his territory, no one would ever limit her freedom or make her unhappy. Our heroine is stunned by this confession, and the prince promises to always solve her problems just like today. Aristine's heart is filled with a warm emotion, causing a bright smile to appear on her face. Her cheeks even turn red as she announces that she has found a wonderful partner. The princess has no memories of her scary encounter with Brody because Tarkin has used his sweet warmth to cover up the sadness from her past. The two hold hands happily until Tarkin suddenly mentions the girl's comment about him working hard. Our heroine can't believe he is still holding on to those words until the man reminds her of her perverted behavior while he was sleeping. The princess is sure her image is ruined, but even though her husband is annoying, she still thinks he is the best partner. Aristine praises the warlord, making his cheeks turn red from shame. The man quickly looks away, pretending to be disgusted, but our heroine can see through his facade. He still hasn't let go of her hand, which means he doesn't dislike her compliments. A few days pass, and the news about Brody's attack on the princess is all over the headlines. Everyone rejoices when the evil maid is sentenced to life labor at the Thorn Tower. According to the rules, the girl should have been tried based on the laws of Sylvanus, but the Sylvanian emperor had quickly cut all ties with her. He had handed over the power to the Ilagoans, who demanded a harsh trial for the evil maid. Our heroine is busy reading the newspaper when she receives an unwelcome visitor. Rosaline rushes to Aristine's side, saying the princess must be feeling relieved. Although Brody is from a poor family, because the king had made her Aristine's servant, the princess couldn't remove her from the position without a proper reason. Now, with Rosaline's little tricks, they had gotten rid of the evil maid and even won some sympathy for the princess. Aristine finally realizes that this was all part of Rosaline's plan. She had wondered why her hunting dog suddenly became so silent, but it turns out the girl was busy showing Brody the location of the scalpel. Rosaline admits that she planned everything because she couldn't let the princess dirty her hands. Aristine knows her question is meaningless, but still wants to know why the maid didn't mention anything about Brody stealing the scalpel. Rosaline pretends to be ignorant and says she never expected things to turn out this way. She thought that Brody would only make a small fuss and never expected her to attack the princess. Our female lead turns away in disgust because the girl has just revealed her true colors. A true, loyal servant would never create a plan that would put her mistress in danger. Rosaline notices the princess's indifference, which causes her to panic. She grabs Aristine, claiming that she did those things just because of her mistress. She tries to manipulate her emotions, saying she would be sad if the princess doesn't recognize her value. Aristine isn't moved by the girl's fake words, but Rosaline was indeed the first servant to be interviewed by the press. The cunning maid had pushed all her sins to Brody, claiming that the girl had bullied Aristine during their journey. Now, she threatens the princess, promising to reveal the truth to the press if she ever tries to discard her. She would tell everyone that Aristine had ordered her to frame Brody, and no one would believe that the princess was actually trying to save herself. The silly maid actually believes that the princess will be forced to take her side. Our female lead watches Rosaline with a disdainful glance but sighs because she can't touch the girl for now. Things will become messy if she gets rid of another maid, and it might even affect her business. Instead, she praises the maid for her hard work, causing the girl to smile in happiness. Rosaline might be smarter than Brody, but she is also easier to control. Therefore, the princess has to give her hunting dog some rewards to keep her in line. Aristine leads the maid to a room filled with gorgeous clothes and jewels, explaining that these are the wedding gifts she received, but she can't use them all. She decides to give a few to Rosaline and even places a gorgeous necklace around her neck. The girl is shocked, but Aristine says it is just a small gift for getting rid of the troublesome Brody. Rosaline feels the weight of the necklace and immediately vows to hunt more maids. The dumb Melody is already in her control, so she can get rid of her whenever the princess likes. Aristine grins and tells the maid to take a dress, causing the girl to nearly scream. The princess even combs her hair, praising her for being obedient and promising to always trust the maid. Rosaline looks drunk from all this happiness, especially the big diamond necklace that Aristine has given her. She even tries to stop the princess from going out to work, showing her concern for Aristine's health. She reminds her mistress that coming home late every day will cause a distance in her marriage. Aristine is surprised by the girl's sudden change and grins because the necklace seems to be working. She pretends to be worried about her marriage, and Rosaline happily thinks that she has found her mistress's secret. She even orders Aristine to listen to everything she says from now on. Just then, Tarkin arrives wondering why his wife hasn't stepped outside. The women turn around and the prince suddenly looks upset. He approaches with a terrifying look, causing the maid to panic because Tarkan is heading towards her. The prince grabs her neck roughly, asking why the maid is wearing his wife's jewelry. The furious Tarkin glares at Rosaline with a fierce look, causing the poor girl to almost lose her soul from fear. She is already sweating buckets until Aristine saves her life and explains that she gifted her the necklace. Tarkin glances at his wife with a questioning look, wondering why she would give the sly maid a gift. Aristine responds with a glance that asks him not to bother because she will soon get the necklace back. She says out loud that she is just rewarding the girl for her hard work, but Tarkan can hear the hidden meaning. His wife is just afraid of causing trouble because her scalpel business would soon be launched. The prince speaks through his eyes again, offering to get rid of the troublesome servant, but Aristine replies with a look that says she can handle everything herself. The husband and wife have really unlocked a new telepathic skill and begin to communicate with their eyes. Tarkan wants to know why she gave the maid this particular necklace, and Aristine replies that it was her favorite wedding gift. Meanwhile, Rosaline's neck is about to snap from glancing between the two, and she wonders what weird ritual they are performing with their eyes. Tarkan blushes a little when his wife says she likes the necklace and immediately pulls the jewelry off the maid's neck, asking her to choose another reward. Aristine is confused because she thinks the necklace isn't expensive and can't understand why Tarkan is refusing. Still, since her husband doesn't agree, she snaps her fingers and summons the other maids. The Alugo servants immediately arrive and begin to pull Rosaline away. The girl screams about her necklace, so the Sylvanas princess promises to send her a different jewelry. Rosaline is unwilling but can only watch with anger as the couple leave happily. Aristine even has the guts to turn around and tell the girl goodbye. The servant sinks to the floor in despair, while trembling in anger. She had only touched the diamond necklace for a while, but she is already obsessed with the jewelry. The maid is sure that the necklace is more valuable than the other jewels. She really had a national treasure around her neck, only for it to be snatched away. Rosaline can still feel the touch of the necklace, and even though Aristine promised to get her a different jewel, she is unwilling to let go of the diamond necklace. The crazy girl insists that it is hers and swears to do anything to get it again. The mad can barely walk but still staggers outside to look for some prey. She sees the naive Melody taking a walk in the garden, and the hunting dog immediately has a crazy smile on her face. Meanwhile, Aristine is currently in shock as her husband reveals that he placed the diamond necklace among her jewelry. She wonders why he never said anything, but the man points out that she never pays attention to him. He wants to know if Aristine likes his gift, and the girl admits that it is her favorite. A few hours pass, and as midnight approaches, the couple return to their bedroom. We see Aristine hiding behind the curtain, looking like a bewitching siren. Meanwhile, Tarkan shows off his steamy abs, inviting her into his bed. He urges his wife not to feel so tense, but the girl turns away in shyness. Aristine reveals that this is her first time, and the prince comforts her, telling her not to worry. Our female lead blushes from shame, and just when we think a rated scene is about to begin, the girl suddenly explodes. Turns out, the princess is just worried because her business will be launching today. Sigh. What a waste of my popcorn. Our heroine can't remain calm and insists on checking the goods one more time. Fortunately, Tarkan stops her, reminding her that the goods have already been delivered. Earlier that morning, the scalpels were sent out to various merchants, and from next week, sales would begin in the princess's name. Finally, the scalpels will be revealed to the world. Our heroine can't breathe as she keeps imagining that something might go wrong. She is afraid that she might have missed something and even wants to handle the marketing herself. Tarkan had always thought his wife was very calm, but after seeing her freak out, he realizes that there are some exceptions. The girl who had boldly explained to the merchants is now having a crash out. The man is tired of her tantrums and pulls the rope to summon the maids. The servant arrives only to see her mistress wrapped up like a dumpling. The princess keeps screaming about a final check, until Tarkan points out that it is already too late. He had finally gotten his wife out of the smithy, so he would never allow her to go back in. The prince dumps the round dumpling on top of her favorite fluffy bed and asks her to go to sleep. Unfortunately, Aristine is unable to relax and keeps crying about her business. Tarkan can't understand why she is so upset when her scalpel didn't even rust after being placed in water for 10 days. She had even prepared replaceable blades for a one-time use. Aristine insists that the scalpels might have some flaws, but Tarkan suddenly pats her head and praises her for doing a good job. The girl blushes, looking like an adorable bunny, while the prince lies by her side and tries to comfort her by giving her some pats. Aristine's heart is filled with a strange emotion, and just by hearing his voice, her troubled mind finally calms down. She doesn't know if the man is treating her well because they are partners or if he is just so considerate. The princess is still trying to guess if Tarkan is only nice to his close friends when she is suddenly distracted by his steamy chest. Aristine keeps glancing at that spot, wondering why his chest is so big. She secretly scolds the man for showing off his body when he has a lover. Our female lead is amazed by the sight and suddenly screams in shock when Tarkan asks her to take a touch. She immediately scolds the man, calling him an idiot, but in the next second, we see a suspicious palm print on Tarkan's huge chest. Aristine tries to jump out of the bed in shame, explaining that it was just an instinctive reaction. The male lead isn't bothered and even asks for a rating, causing his little wife to call him shameless. Still, she raises a perfect scorecard because she really can't lie about that smooth chest. Because of Tarkan's sudden action, Aristine isn't feeling anxious any longer. Instead, she blames her husband for his shameless behavior, only for the man to ask if she disliked his show. Our heroine has to close her eyes to stop her heart from racing. She tells Tarkan to go to sleep and stop acting cute. Our male lead isn't pleased to hear his wife calling him cute, and suddenly leans over, determined to show off his manly charm. Aristine can feel her heart racing as she stares at the evil prince looming above her. The girl complains in her heart that he is too close, only for the man to move even closer. Tarkan leans down, and it is obvious that he is about to kiss Aristine. Just as we are about to witness the historical moment, someone suddenly ruins the atmosphere. The Alugo maid happily arrives with the prince's tea, only to see this shocking scene. The servant knows she has committed a huge crime and immediately flees while urging the couple to continue their romantic moment. The couple both look embarrassed and decide to go to sleep, but Aristine keeps obsessing over that moment. She is sure Tarkan was really about to kiss her. The next day, the maids and warriors watch Tarkan with shy looks while Sir Mukali is about to lose mind. He yells at his shameless boss, who is walking around with his shirt wide open, showing off the little palm print his wife had left on his chest. The general scolds his boss for being so shameless because that little mark could have disappeared with just a little bit of Tarkan's aura. He is sure the prince is forcing them to undergo this mental torture on purpose. Tarkan claims that he is just trying to gain some political benefits by showing off his close relationship with his wife. Unfortunately, Mukali isn't deceived by his bullshit, because his boss has never cared about such things. Well, he is right, because our jealous male lead is actually trying to chase away his competitors by marking territory. The man is feeling smug until he recalls the little lie he told Aristine. He had admitted that Diona is his lover. The prince is filled with frustration and suddenly punches the wall beside him, startling our poor Mukali. Inwardly, he curses himself for his stupid decision. The men leave and don't notice the little maid watching them from behind. The palace is filled with the news about the couple's steamy night, and the timid maid rushes back to her mistress to report. Everyone should be talking about the princess's evil maid, but instead all they care about is the gossip between the couple. The maid is worried about her poor mistress Diona, but the Alugo beauty pretends to be nonchalant, saying they should support the prince's relationship with his wife. She acts like a betrayed and pitiful woman who still has to be strong, causing the maid to feel sorry for her. The servant even resents Tarkan for not keeping his promise. She stares at Diona, wondering how the prince could abandon such a kind-hearted and beautiful lady. She has no idea that the kind-hearted lady is secretly laughing like a witch. Diona is convinced that the prince is just lusting after Aristine. It is only normal for him to go overboard because he has never tasted the pleasures of women before. The girl is upset that she isn't his first woman but pretends to understand the prince's heart. She believes that Tarkan will soon be bored of the other women and would come rushing back to her. After all, their fate is already set in stone. Diona is even willing for the prince to get involved with Melody because only then would he realize that Aristine is nothing special. That is why she had willingly leaked the information about his interest to Aristine's maid. The maid is still gossiping, revealing that her friends in the armory had told her a secret. They believe the princess doesn't know Tarkan very well because she had brought some desserts over to the prince. Diona pretends to be shocked, while she secretly laughs at the boldness of the Sylvanas maids. She guesses that Melody must have hidden the truth about the prince's likes, or even feed Aristine some false information. The Alugo beauty can almost imagine Aristine's embarrassed face when she was rejected by Tarkan. She really wants to laugh but is forced to act sad and even blames herself for not stepping in to help. The next second, the beauty receives a slap on her face as the maid reveals that Tarkan ate everything up. Diona screams at the girl, finding her words impossible, but the servant confirms that Tarkan had even finished the caramel drink. The Alugo beauty is filled with despair because even if they are business partners, the prince would never go this far. She tries to convince herself that she knows Tarkan better than anyone else, and the man would never change his mind. Meanwhile, the poor maid who interrupted the couple's special time keeps sighing in despair. Her friend notices her weird behavior, and the poor sinner immediately begins to cry. She confesses her evil crimes, admitting that she was the naughty bird who disrupted their master's romantic time. She had ruined such a historical moment, so she doesn't deserve to work in this palace any longer. The other maid stops her friend from committing work suicide, pointing out that the couple are still as close as ever. She advises the girl to put some fresh flowers in the couple's room to create a nice atmosphere. The guilty maid soon arrives with some fresh flowers which symbolize a crazy passion. The other maids have even added a few steamy undergarments to the princess's closet. The girl is grateful to her dear sisters and is determined to make up for her mistakes. Since the prince will be arriving before Aristine, she has to secretly place the flowers to stir up the atmosphere. The Alugo maid happily opens the door, hoping that her masters can have a hot and steamy night. Instead, the poor girl sees a shocking view. Melody is inside the couple's room and is even wearing one of Aristine's red and lacy undergarments. The two girls stare at each other in silence before screaming with horrified looks on their faces. Melody is sure going to have a hard time explaining herself, but we will find out soon enough. Want us to continue? Comment Aristine below for part 4. Until next time, ciao.